Is it easy to do it directly? Next time. Okay. How do I see the link of like where it comes up? This is starting.
Yeah.
This is so good. Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, I can start it and stop it, like whenever, but they just need to post it on their social media. Just start it. Yeah.
I think this is okay. Wait, I don't want to.
Yeah.
That's not.
What's up?
Testing.
1 2 1 2.
1 2 1 2. Oh.
Yeah, it's like we're good to go. So, Uncle, how are you doing? How does it look? It looks fine, right? It's probably the okay, got it. Just let me know. Yeah, I'll keep watching for
It's good one.
Very
everybody please come up in the front क्योंकि फिर जब presentations हो रही होती हैं ਜਿਹੜੇ latecomers आते हैं they come in the front and it's really disturbing so can I please request everybody to come up to the first 4 to 5 rows that would be great
You too, man.
so I got the Wi-Fi. Audio? Audio. I didn't get the audio from there, but the audio from here. When we were testing, it was okay with the mic.
But did you even ask him if they have that?
I can ask him. No, I didn't have a chance. He was going back. So we can ask him.
He gave you the black tape?
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਆਈ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਸੋ I try one more time ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ ਹੁਣ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗਾ ਚਾਚੂ ਗਈ ਅੰਦਰ so I'm glad thank you everybody for joining us Jadid ji can you just check if we have anybody else outside ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ please ਅੱਗੇ ਬੈਠਣ ਲਈ ਕਹਿ ਦੇਣਾ ਅੰਦਰ ਆ yeah so request ਸੀਗਾ ਜੀ ਕਿ if you're sitting in the back even if you are backbenchers all your life, this is one moment that you do want to come and join in the front and experience the life works of Professor Puran Singh ji, jo aap discuss karange for two practical reasons. One being ki jab presentations ho rahiyan hondiyan, it's quite disturbing to the speakers when somebody comes in the front. So please try not to sit in the back, but come up front. We appreciate that. The second one is that Professor Puran Singh ji is meant to be experienced, as you will see today. So I strongly urge you to create that space, that aura in this conference, in this seminar, to allow for that, allow for that nectar to be felt with everybody, and the closer we are, the better it is. So thank you. Before we begin, thank you all for coming here and joining us for this life celebration of Professor Puran Singh. This is the second version of life celebration that Sikh Research Institute is holding here. And the first one, I believe, was done in a Gurdwara on Paisa Bhai Veer Singh Ji? No, on Paisa Bhai Veer Singh Ji was done. Sorry, not in Gurdwara. But it was done on Paisa Bhai Veer Singh Ji, who you will learn as today that they were actually there is a relationship between the two. So I am glad that everyone is here. A couple of housekeeping rules. Number one, please do silence your phones and put them on vibrate. I would actually urge that you put them on do not disturb. We are streaming this whole program live on Facebook, so it would be quite annoying to have a cell phone go off and have that recorded in memory forever. So thank you. Restrooms, if you do not know already, if you go outside and to the right is the women's restroom. If you make another right, the men's restroom is right there. And also, and you don't need to stream me while we were streaming. So, and then also, no food or drinks are allowed in this auditorium at all. It's a cleanliness is a key. And it is kept very nice, as you have noticed. So let's keep it that way, please. If you have any food or drinks, please have them outside. Except for the speakers, they will have water available to them. We have a lot to cover today, so we'll try to get started as soon as possible here. The order of our speakers and presenters will be as follows. First will be Harinder Singh Ji, and then followed by a performance by Harleen Kaur Ji. The third presenter will be Professor Hardev Singh Ji, followed by a performance with a nice musical performance by Maya Batra. Last presenter will be Inni Kaur Ji. And then after that, we're actually going to see how much time we have. We'll try to squeeze in a question and answer panelist session, and I'll announce the rules as we get closer to that, and which will be followed by closing remarks. We're trying to get this all wrapped up by 1:30, so time is of the essence. But before we start, I'd like you to just kind of join me in a small story that is personal to me with Professor Puran Singh. And you will notice that a lot of the speakers that present or speak up here have had some sort of experience with Professor Puran Singh Ji. So for me, the year was 1996, and it was a white January, cold, dark morning in Provo, Utah. I woke up as I normally did my part, didn't bother to look outside, got dressed, and when I looked outside, I noticed that what I call God's wrath of love was showered upon us the night before. He had emblazoned the trees in heavy layer of white. Yes, it had snowed again, and everything was calm, quiet, and serene. So then why was there no serenity in my mind? Why was there no calm beacon of light in my soul? Armed with these thoughts and a borrowed London fog jacket from my father, I started walking down to the Brigham Young University library. As I felt that credit card that he had given me and a few dollars in a change in my jacket pocket, my dad's words were echoing in my mind. Jab ye khatam ho gaya na, wapas aa jaye, aur paise nahi aayenge. So when this card is full, come back. Otherwise, we don't have any more money for your education. Armed with that pressure, I continued to walk down the thick, slick sludge of sereneness ahead of me. Also armed with the stress that God forbid if I got anything less than an A. And the pressure of being in a university where they rejoiced in the idea of converting others that were not of their faith. So all those that don't know, BYU is a school that is by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's owned by them. And one of the core tenets of their faith is that they proselyte and want to spread the gospel to the world. So walking around BYU as a Sikh, I was a very easy target. So armed with all of this stress, pressures, I had already started to ask the questions, who am I? What am I doing here in this God-forsaken place? Why am I even a Sikh? Look at these guys. They're so good. I didn't choose this Sikhi. And then, at the same time, why am I even questioning this? And how did I even get to this point? So with all these pressures and questions, I walked into the BYU library and naturally gravitated towards the philosophy section, thinking some dead guy is going to help me answer this question. As I got to the aisle, I started walking around in the aisle and I saw a small red book. The binding on that book had faded through the passage of time because it looked like nobody had read it. So much so that even the letters of the title were faded. I opened the book just as I would be doing Part, because Part was written in a language that didn't make sense to me, and this obviously might make sense to me. And I landed on the first page by accident. And it read, the title Sikh, the disciple, was first given to us by Guru Nanak. We were mere corpses. He poured life into us. We were thus created anew by His love. He made us alive with our outdrawn love of Him, and He left us free. Those words are from Professor Puran Singh Ji's Spirit-Born People. And the connection and the love was felt, and a moment of self-discovery was made at that very moment, and the journey started. I ended up writing a paper on that book, doing a comparative view for Western philosophy and Eastern philosophy. So for me, the journey of self-discovery and self-rediscovery, I should say, of Sikhi, of my inner Sikhi, started with Professor Puran Singh Ji. So I'm actually honored and humbled to be here, to be able to host this ceremony with the wonderful panel of speakers that you'll have. Today we're going to celebrate the life works of this man. For some of us, he's near and dear to our hearts. For some of us, he's a protege of our father. For some of us, he's misunderstood between a great other humanitarian named Bhagat Puran Singh. And for some of us sitting here, it might be like, oh yaar, kede Puran Singh di gal ho rahi hai? Professor Kaun Singh? Right? So irrespective of which category you fall into, I promise you today will be enlightening. The experience that you'll hear from the speakers, they have experienced Professor Puran Singh in one of many ways, either through literature, through poetry, through social activism, through science, through spirituality, and even through music. And so what you'll learn today is that Professor Puran Singh Ji was not only a Renaissance man of his day, but his life journey, along with his ability to collect, recollect, combine, and then transformed those experiences that he lived, breathed, and connected to produce an ocean of knowledge filled with the drops of Guru Nanak's nectar. And these drops of dew transformed into huge cauldrons of knowledge through the passing of time, because he's as applicable today as he was before. So to give you a quick introduction to our first speaker, it is Harinder Singh ji, and the topic that Harinder ji will be speaking on is Professor Puran Singh, a global Sikh from the Punjab. I think everybody in this room knows Harinder ji in some way, and you guys also have a program that has the bios of everyone. We will be handing out a special commemorative memorabilia, which I will let Inni Kaurji speak about at the end before we leave. So please, everybody, do not leave. You have a special gift that will be presented to all of you for being here. So in here you have all the bios. I'm not going to go through all the details of the bios, but what I do want to mention is a couple of things about Harinder ji. Harinder ji is the Senior Fellow currently of Research and Policy, amongst other things, at the Sikh Research Institute. He holds a BS in Aerospace Engineering, MS in Engineering Management, and MPhil in Guru Granth Sahib. He's a Guru Sikh, a Punjab lover, and a Begumpura Jedi, which I love. That's my new aspiration, to become a Begumpura Jedi. But one interesting fact, I don't know if everybody knows this, but how many of you know who Harjit Singh Sajjan is? The Canadian Defense Minister. As Harjit Singh Sajjan was actually going through the Canadian basic training for military, one of the things that they do in Canada and most countries, including the US, is that they actually have to go into a room, put on a gas mask, and stay there. So one of the practical problems that has been raised in many countries, including America, US, was also raised in Canada, that, hey, how is Harjit Ji going to put on a gas mask with a dastar? So Harjit ji contacted Harinder ji, and Harinder ji was also responsible for the first design and development of the gas mask, which was incidentally then used also by Tejdeep Ratan, who was the first one to go through the US Army. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Harinder ji.
Thank you, and good morning, and Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. We're going to focus on the man whose name you're going to hear hundreds of times today, Professor Puran Singh. I think professor word got added to differentiate, because there were a lot of other Puran Singhs. And this is maybe थोड़ी जी पंजाबीयत भी है कि जड़ा थोड़ा पढ़ लिख जाता हो तो आगे प्रोफेसर लाना से शुरू कर देते हैं. But I was asked to dwell on his thinker part. So it's going to come from that angle. There are 3 speakers and 2 performers. So 3 speakers are pick the thinker and the science and the poet part. And within there, my introduction to Puran Singh happened in my university days in Kansas. But one of the things I later learned about him when I developed enough of the Punjabi readings and writings, that the vocabulary he uses for his Punjabi writings is also incredibly rich, which came much later for me, because Punjabi wasn't the first language I learned or the second language I learned. It was the third language I learned, and the first language I learned was Hindi. And what I also discovered is he has actually 6 essays in Hindi, which in the Hindi literature are considered one of the best available literary works as well, which eventually were translated in Punjabi, and 2 of them in English. So this journey of language and the thinking angle is going to come through the richness and vocabulary he also had, which not only was of a particular scientific or literary bent, but also spoke to the people of Punjab as well as people of South Asia. So this itself becomes very, what I would say, everyone talks about कि communication skills होने चाहिए ने, बोलने विच, लिखने विच. Well, he went through that, and it was through the language. And the connection I'm making is, once he was born in the house of the Guru, the hukum when I read today from Darbar Sahib Amritsar, which is in Rag Suhi, Mahla Pehla, and I want to share 2 lines because the vocabulary is different, which is going to sound foreign to you if you're not used to old Punjabi. And when you read Professor Puran Singh's Punjabi, or Parveer Singh's from that matter, there also sometimes you're not able to understand. Certain things we do, certain things we don't, because of the flavors we have today are a little bit different in the language context. So the hukum today said, Dehu Devi Andhkor Kab Muhayya. मेरे वर्गा को यार तो पंजाबी भी नहीं है की है, बट एक्चुअली है पंजाबी क्योंकि सानू पंजाबी भी नहीं आती. पंजाबी दियां कल डिस्कशन हो रही सी कि 13 मेजर उपबोलियां ने, डायलैक्ट्स है ने, and sometimes if you are not aware of particular dialect we think it's not Punjabi. I was actually in Lahore a month ago and I was speaking at one of the universities and one of the students says कि सानू जी ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ नहीं समझ आ रही, ਇੱਕੋ ਜੀ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਬੋਲਿਆ ਕਰੋ. मैं क्या, this is part of the problem. पंजाबी ਦੀਆਂ ਵੀ ਕਈ dialects ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ. So we are all facing this phenomena, and within this, Guru Nanak Sahib is using this vocabulary. Dehu Devi Andhkor Kab Muhayya Garb Musah Kar Chor Kis Rovaiya. I mean, it's basically saying that there is a pitch darkness in broad daylight. It's talking about us. You know, chandana da ਅਸੀਂ create ਕਰ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਆ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਬਾਹਰਲਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ. This pitch darkness in broad daylight. Even then, the wealth we have is being plundered. Right? ਆਪਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਚੋਰੀ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ ਤਾਂ ਸੰਨ ਲਾਣੀ ਪੈਂਦੀ ਹੈ, ਜਿਵੇਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਚ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀ, ਨੇਰੇਸ਼ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀ. It's like, no, in the broad daylight, we have a pitch darkness, and the wealth is being plundered, and thief of pride is robbing this home. Who are you going to cry to now? So the problem, Professor Puran Singh ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ vocabulary ਹੈ ਉਹ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਵੀ ਹੈ, and he forces introspection of this nature, which is born eventually when he was born in the house of the Guru. He also brought in a lot of these Sikh ideas. So what I want to take you through is a journey very quickly on my connection to him in the first 5 minutes, and then through his writing, because we want to think about that he was not a preacher. He wasn't explaining Sikhi to people. He was living it and interpreting it for his times in all arenas of life. So I call him the complete tiger in I. What do I mean by that? Singh actually is a tiger. He was very tiger-like, and we'll talk about that some other day. But quickly, think about the qualities of a tiger. Lion ਤਾਂ lazy ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਜਿਵੇਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਬਣਾਤੇ ਨਾ Hollywood ਮੂਵੀਆਂ ਨੇ Singh is king ਕਰ ਕਰਕੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕੁਝ ਹੋਰ ਬਣਾਤਾ. When we read Puran Singh, Nabha and Gurbani, you will see the tiger has a very different quality. Even the ones who wrote about it, whether in 84 or before that, and those who defended the faith, they're always called he fought like a tiger. And Puran Singh's writings are like that, whether it's in spirituality or critiquing the Oriental poetry, or whether it is talking about Sir John Simon. So my university days, I discovered him through his initial English books. You heard about Spirit-Born People, Spirit of the Sikh played a role in it. Then the romance which came through Temple Tulips and Pride of the Sky also set in. So mera actually pehla romance Puran Singh ne Angrezi ch karaya si mere ko, before I did it with a woman. Kyunki jehdi unhone gal ਕੀਤੀ na wo badi intimate hai, and this is something I want to bring across. His writing is very intimate, very personal. So when somebody says, don't take it personally, I'm like, no, please do take it personally. Whether he's writing about, Punjab vich ki ho reha, what is happening in Punjab, ya gurus ki kar rahe si, ya people of other faith, what they're doing, or what the politicians and writers of India are also doing. He actually made it very personal, because he lived it on a personal level. So he traveled a lot, he was a poet, he's an interpreter, and then he took me through a journey of Walt Whitman too, because in college days I was reading Walt Whitman de baare bada kuch padh rahe sige, and he is heavily influenced. In fact, of the 6 Hindi essays he wrote, even one of them is on Walt Whitman. So Punjabi, Angrezi, Hindi ch tinna ch unhone Walt Whitman ne badi gal ਕੀਤੀ hai. And then when I lived in Punjab for 5 years, between 97 and 2002, I discovered the man who was very political also, because those writings were not available in the anthologies. So this is a man who has been banned in India for years. His first publication didn't even happen until the Punjabi University Patiala got a great VC named M.S. Randhawa. And somebody gave him a manuscript. M.S. Randhawa has written this in one of the forwards of Spirit of the Sikh, where he says कि मैंने manuscript किसी ने पढ़ा था, मैं पढ़ लिया तो मैं क्या है, इतना कमाल का बंदा कैसे इन्हें publish नहीं करते? So he was primarily published. There is a book in Peshawar. First Spirit of the Born was printed in Peshawar, but primarily he was in England. When I lived in Punjab, I discovered his essays on the politics of India, on the politics of Bengali nationalism, on the politics of Jadunath Sarkar, Rabindranath Tagore, Gandhi, Sir John Simon's Commission, and politics within the Sikh community on how we treat each other and so-called the 5Ks. So that's a discovery I had. In fact, I ended up participating in one of the projects there, where then I printed his, I call it open diplomacy. I took Sukha Jinda's letter, and I took Professor Puran Singh's letter, which he wrote to Sir John Simon of the Simon Commission in 1928. And I printed that and distributed to universities at the time, in 98 I think it was. Because this is the man who really needs to be, who was relevant to his times, who actually lived what Sikhi talks about as I understood Sikhi to be. And then, since 2002, I just can't even tell you the level of vastness he carries. When I read and reread, I mean, those of you who attended my presentation, I usually have an opening slide by Professor Puran Singh related to that topic. Because he actually had not just surveyed Sikhi, he went into the depths of it, understood it, and then interpreted it. He wasn't just creating opinions. This is why I am impressed and super impressed with him. In fact, he was the one who helped me develop the romance in English with Sikhi. Punjabi ਵਿੱਚ ਭਾਈ ਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੇ ਕਰਾਇਆ, ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਰਾਇਆ। ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਫਰਕ ਹੈ ਦੋਨਾਂ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ, vocabulary ਦਾ ਵੀ ਫਰਕ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਸਟਾਈਲ ਦਾ ਵੀ ਫਰਕ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ, but idea same ਹੈ. And what I want to do for next half hour or 35 minutes is, I want to actually look at one of his essays. It's called Internationalism and the Sikhs. And I want to take you through the journey that within even 4 pages he wrote, he covers all this stuff. And this is the vastness or the completeness and the ferocious tigerness of the man. So let's start with that. Look at the first line he's using. He says, the Sikhs are creations of the Guru's universal love. They are, by their very birth of his spirit, citizens of the world. सारी गल ही खत्म करती उन्होंने कि सानू जिन्होंने दायरियां में सीमित रखना. You know, today there are campaigns like Beyond Borders and things of that nature. He's writing this in 1920s. When nationalism in Europe is at its peak, and Asia has not even developed the idea of nationalism. Because nation states started coming there after 40s, World War II to baad mostly. He's already, the word Europe has experimented with, and is about to denounce in few years after Nazi Germany. He's already telling them कि ये पुरानी गल है, असी experiment कर रहे हैं, सानू गुरु नानक ने पहले दिन तो सिखाया universal approach के में रखनी है. Now this is something we need to think about. You know, with the immigration debate, even in our countries, in the debates of last 2 weeks of nationalism between Canada and India, and the locating Sikhs and Punjab in there. In this debate, how do we contribute? Do we even feel universal? I will submit to you, my experience is I'm going to sort of interpret what he's writing. I would submit to you, 100 years ago, we were still not being universal, and today we only are universal in interfaith speeches. What is this universal love? And then he gets into it. What is this universal love? He says, the human body is one. The human soul is one. Human beauty is one. Our perception of the beautiful is one. Our self-intoxication is the same. Nasha. ਜੇ ਨਸ਼ਾ ਚੜਦਾ ਫਿਰ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਥੋੜੀ ਪੁੱਛਿਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਨਸ਼ੇ ਚੋਂ ਅਲੱਗ-ਅਲੱਗ ਹੋ ਸਕਦੇ ਨੇ ਪਰ ਨਸ਼ਾ ਤਾਂ ਨਸ਼ਾ ਹੀ ਆ ਨਾ. Our pursuits of pleasures are alike. There is no difference between man and man. Just a little note on the language of the time. It is 100 years old. Don't apply today's criteria. Generally, he and man were used as words for humanity. That was what we now call engendering was not engendering 100 years ago. So he's referring to all sexes, all genders, when he uses he or man. So this is the interpretation of Ekuankar. It's beautiful. The word God doesn't show up and there is no denouncement of atheists. It's about how we deal with things. How we actually are in a DNA what the science calls alike. How the psychology says in our emotions we are alike. ਸੋ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਇਹ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਓਂਕਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਣੀ ਸੁਰਤ ਵਿੱਚ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਉਣਾ, which he writes about also. ਫਿਰ ਸੁਰਤ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਜ਼ਬਾਨ ਤੇ ਲੈ ਆਉਣਾ, ਫਿਰ ਜ਼ਬਾਨ ਤੋਂ ਲਿਆ ਕੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਰਾਈਟਿੰਗ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਲੈ ਆਉਣਾ. ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਤਾਂ ਜੇ ਪਹਿਲਾ ਲੈਵਲ ਦਾ ਸਫ਼ਰ ਕਰਨਾ ਵੀ ਔਖਾ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ, because we are caught up in certain preaching elements of Sikhi. And he continues with this through his journeys. So he was, I see him as being somebody who was already on a development path. ਆਪਾਂ ਨਾ ਬੰਦੇ ਦੀ ਸ਼ਕਲ ਦੇਖ ਕੇ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਆਪਾਂ ਬੰਦੇ ਦੇ ਗੁਣ ਦੇਖ ਕੇ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ. And so he's traveling. In fact, in that picture, the man with the book, that's Professor Puran Singh in Japan. So he traveled to Japan. He became a protege of Swami Ramtirath, and at some point in his journeys, he was reading Whitman's of the World. Remember, at that time, he's reading this. ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਕਿ ਅੱਜ ਗੂਗਲ ਕਰਕੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਲੱਭ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਾਉਂਦੇ ਤਾਂ ਪੁੱਛਦੇ ਹਰਿੰਦਰ ਕਿੱਥੋਂ ਕਿਤਾਬ ਮਿਲੂ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਉੱਥੇ ਬੈਠੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਦਾ ਬੰਦਾ ਉਡੀਕ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਨਾ, ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ, ਉਹ ਆਪਣੀ ਪੂਰੀ ਕਰ ਲੈਂਦਾ. ਜਿਵੇਂ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ ਤੁਰਦੇ ਕੋ ਤੁਰਦਾ ਮਿਲੇ ਮੋਏ ਕੋ ਮੋਆ. ਜਿਹੜਾ ਤੁਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਉਹ ਲੱਭ ਲੂਗਾ ਤੁਰਨ ਵਾਲਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮਰਨ ਕਰਕੇ ਬੈਠਾ ਫਿਰ ਉਹ ਮਰਦੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਵਰਗਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਲੱਭ ਲੂ ਉਹਦੇ. So he is discovering that, and he says, and he records it. He leaves a carbon print of it, which is the heartbeat of man is alike from Japan to America. ਉਸ ਵੇਲੇ imagine ਕਰੋ Japan. Japan was a world power. This is pre-1940s. ਤੁਸੀਂ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਜੇ HBO ਸੀਰੀਜ਼ ਨੂੰ ਦੇਖੋਗੇ ਨਾ, ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹ ਬਣੀ ਆ ਮੈਨ ਇਨ ਹਾਈ ਕੈਸਲ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਰਿਵਰਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਦਿਖਾਇਆ ਹੋਇਆ ਕਿ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਜਾਪਾਨ ਤੇ ਜਰਮਨੀ ਇਸ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ. ਸੋ ਇਮੇਜਿਨ ਕਰੋ ਉਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਦੇ ਟਾਈਮ ਨੂੰ ਜਦੋਂ ਲਿਖ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ. He says the heartbeat of man is alike from Japan to America, and man has already begun to recognize his heartbeat in all living things. And then he invokes Lincoln, the man who is largely credited with the emancipation of slavery. He says Abraham Lincoln's fight for the freedom of slaves in America gives him the dignity of a prophet among statesmen. ਹੁਣ ਦੇਖੋ ਪੈਗੰਬਰ ਨੂੰ disrupt karta. This is what geniuses do. They break the labels. He says, you think the religious personalities who get into credits of the organized religions are the only prophet? He says, here is a prophet who freed people en masse. This is why he was assassinated. Those of you who understand history and kede theatre ch kyun marya gaya. And jo the movie dekh rahe ho na, ajkal koi padda nahi hai, uthe bhi tonu samjh aa jayu कि कितना कुछ करना पिया सी just to even get the emancipation out, just the declaration out. Okay, so that large sympathy of man for man is the recognition of the same heartbeat. ਜਿਹੜੀ ਨਬਜ਼ ਆ ਨਾ, ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਰੂਹ ਆ, ਜਾਂ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਵਾਸ ਨੇ, ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਦੇ ਲਫ਼ਜ਼ ਜੇ ਲੈਣੇ ਨੇ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਉਹ ਸਵਾਸਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹ ਸਾਰੇ ਦੇ ਸੇਮ ਨੇ. ਆਪਾਂ ਵੀ ਫਸੀ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ, you know, ਕਦੇ religion ਦੇ ਲੈਵਲ ਤੇ, ਕਦੇ status ਦੇ ਲੈਵਲ ਤੇ. He is saying the world is feeling the same heartbeat. Do you feel it? And he sees it in the superpowers of the world at the time, as well as emancipations wherever people are being freed. And he continues to talk about it, and then he gets into contradictions of life. So these are excerpts from one essay in 4 pages. So I have short things to talk about here. Now this is you and I now. We have the same heartbeat, then why do we have these contradictions? Well, let's talk about it. He says, the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, something like Peter Ajkal, is typical of the curious contradiction of the nature of man, who eats chicken with his plate of rice and goes out of the doors to prosecute a driver who's beating mercilessly with his slash his jaded horse in order to get a little more speed out of him. So ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵੈਜੀਟੇਰੀਅਨਿਜ਼ਮ ਦਾ ਰੌਲਾ ਪਾਉਣਗੇ ਤਾਂ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਟ੍ਰੀਟ ਕਰਨਾ ਠੀਕ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਉਂਦਾ, ਇੱਕ ਤਰੀਕਾ ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨ ਦਾ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ. ਸੋ ਸਾਡੇ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੰਟਰਡਿਕਸ਼ਨ ਆ. But at the same time, wars rage and sisters of mercy nurse the wounded of both camps. Pai Kanaias, what he sees at the time. All these contradictions of feeling only show that something nobler is stirring in the human mind, and soon it will be born. ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ ਥਾਂ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੇ ਇਸ ਗੱਲ ਨੂੰ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਹੈਗੀ ਨਾ, ਉਹ ਪ੍ਰੈਗਨੈਂਟ ਬੈਠੀ ਹੈ, ਡਿਲੀਵਰੀ ਦੀ ਉਡੀਕ ਕਰ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ, ਬੱਚੇ ਦੀ ਉਡੀਕ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਨਾ, ਡਿਲੀਵਰੀ. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਉਹ ਡਿਲੀਵਰੀ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਹੋਣੀ ਹੈ ਇਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਮਝ ਆ ਰਿਹਾ ਬਸ, but pregnant ਬੈਠੇ. So which means we all have these potentials. We are sitting with them, and we want to do the right things, and the world wants to do the right things, but there are so many contradictions within us that it's not allowing us to go there fully yet. So contradiction apne aap chhodi, he considers that not a problem. We think it's a problem. Because Walt Whitman said the same thing, by the way. This is why he's writing, and Walt Whitman has written where he says, "Do I contradict myself? Well, then I contradict myself because I am vast." ਬੰਦੇ ਨੂੰ ਵੱਡਾ ਹੋਣਾ, ਚੌੜਾ ਹੋਣਾ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਹੈ। ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਫਿਰ ਉਹ ਕੰਟਰਡਿਕਸ਼ਨਸ ਨਾਲ ਡੀਲ ਕਰ ਲਓ। ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਛੋਟੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਹੋ, ਫਿਰ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੰਟਰਡਿਕਸ਼ਨ ਨਾਲ ਡੀਲ ਕਰਨਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਊਗਾ। So he's saying the world is full of contradictions, it's okay. But it is trying to go beyond contradiction. So he's talking about personally what we do, that we are not able to treat human beings as equals or with the same feelings while we want to work on certain animal rights. So he's not saying don't work on animal rights. He's saying look at the contradiction. ਜਿਵੇਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਕੰਟਕੀ ਡਰਬੀ ਦੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮਪਲ ਪਾ ਲਓ ਨਾ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇੱਕ ਤਰਫ ਕਹੋ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਨਾ, ਇੱਕ ਤਰਫ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਚਾਬੁਕ ਮਾਰ ਕੇ ਘੋੜਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹੋਰ ਤੇਜ਼ ਤੁਰ, ਤੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਤਾਂ ਬੰਦਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਚਾਬੁਕ ਮਾਰੇ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ। And what Puran Singh gets into is Gurbani teaches us कि चाबुक मारने ने, पर केड़े चाबुक मारने ने? हिचर तो प्रेम के चाबुक मारो। कि जब इस तरह की एक रेजिस्टेंस हैगी, इस तरह की एक हिंड्रेंस क्रिएट हो हुई है, or something which is not allowing you to go to the next level, he says that's the time to use love. And that's the larger thing he gets into in terms of how to deal with these contradictions. But even in these contradictions, he says the higher tendencies of the civilized and cultured men towards universal kinship. But people are still working to create this universal ideas while there is a politics of nations going on, politics of religions going on, all desire peace upon earth. This small, sweet home of man, the days of patriotism are gone. Now let's look into this in today's context. This is very important, whether you are sitting in America or those of you who shuttle between India and America. बहुत hyper patriotism चल रहा है दोनों थामों पे. And he says the days of patriotism are gone. Patriotism was a foolish clannishness. But he's not mincing his words. In these days, man with the patriotic feeling is a brute because patriotism makes him blind to the larger interests of the family of man. Manas ki jaat badi gal. All the barbaric selfishness that still dominates the narrow-minded politics of the governments of different countries is due to the wrong notion, quote, this for me alone and for none else. वो की कह रहे हैं? देखो इंटरप्रिटेशन है ये है, गुरबाणी ਨੂੰ ਸਮਝਿਆ, ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਦੀ ਪੈਰਾਡਾਈਮ ਨੂੰ ਲਾਈਫ ਵਿੱਚ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਇਆ, ਦਿਮਾਗ ਵਿੱਚ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਏ, ਫਿਰ ਉਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਦੀ ਵੋਕੈਬਲਰੀ ਤੇ ਉਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਦੇ ਕਲਚਰਲ ਕੰਟੈਕਸਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਣੀ ਇੰਟਰਪ੍ਰੀਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ। ਇਹ ਲਾਈਕ ਬੇਵਕੂਫ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ, ਜਿਵੇਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨਾ, ਤੇ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਛਾਤੀ ਪਿੱਟਦੇ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਸਾਡਾ ਦੇਸ਼ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵਧੀਆ, ਤੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਹੋਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਅਲਾਉ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ। And who are these brute and the beast? We need not refer to the fight that is going on apace all over the world between the capital and labor. He says nationalism is सिर्फ गार्ड है, लड़ाई कुछ और है, and he talks about कि लड़ाई की है, आज भी यही है। He says, what is it? Between capital and labor, the aristocratic state and the proletariat, for this strife only thickens the gloom before us. What we now call 99%ers versus the 1%ers. What we now call the blue-collar workers versus the oligarchs. Different phrases are being used in different countries. The rise of aristocracy, आजकल की हैगी, जेडे multi-billionaires ने, Economist did an article 2 weeks ago where they're showing that less than 1% of the population now owns more than 60% of the world's wealth. The gloom of centuries seems to thicken still in the old ways of the brute and beast. 100 साल पहला भी थे, आज भी. This is why the ideas of Gurbani will become sense when we say, na, aaj sach, jawab sach. If it is Gurbani's idea, it's born out of that spirit, you will still make sense even today. We, however, wish to look at the distant rays of the coming dawn of peace between brother and brother, members of the one human family. So he's essentially saying, ये लड़ाई चल रही है, जब आशा की बात आ गया ना, एक ने दुध समाई है, एक चूल्हे रहने चढ़े. Today we say, why is this happening? People like Professor Puran Singh says, this will happen. Where do you want to be in this? This is always going to happen. So while this is going on, you need some towering personalities to change the phenomena in the world. And he writes, in the modern world, there is no towering personality. The race of the old worthies has been run. England has not yet given us another Carlyle, not America produced another Abraham Lincoln. So he's talking about, he studied the 19th century and he's early 20th century. In the early 20th century, it was all about borders. It was all about force. It wasn't about the oneness idea. And because of this want of greatness, there is confusion not only in the direction of world politics, but in the human affairs. So towering personality he meets in this Is Simran with him. Towering personality ਅੱਗੇ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਝੁਕ ਸਕਦਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਤਾਂ ਉਹ ਤਾਂ ਸਿੱਧਾ ਖੜਦਾ ਸੀ ਤੇ ਪੂਰੇ ਗੁੱਸੇ 'ਚ ਵੀ ਬੋਲਦਾ ਸੀ ਜੇ ਕੋਈ ਅੜ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਸੀ You know, for you to surrender and say I want to learn, somebody much bigger has to come. This is why all of us surrender in front of Guru Granth Sahib, but among people we have to be careful. हर एक नहीं मत्था टेकिया जा सकता. And he says this confusion is continuing in world politics because the human affairs are not being dealt with. Economists wrote this last year for the first time in the history of the world. This still applies. The reason we have poverty is because of the greed of the nations, not because we do not produce enough in the world. So this is not that we are going to have famine now. If people don't have enough to eat or the right kind of things to eat, it's primarily because of greed now, not because of abundance issues. Okay, let's continue with this journey in the form of democracy. And this is what he says about democracy. This is the misfortune of modern times. He identifies two of them, and this is the first one. He says, great men are true representatives of the people. So they have been in all ages. जब तुसी हिस्ट्री में पढ़ते हो भावें ग्रीक आ भावें अरेबिया दी है भावें साउथ एशिया दी है भावें वेस्टर्न हेमिस्फीयर दी है there have to be people who are great to keep people who are otherwise brute in check. So he says, so they have been in all ages. For true greatness is always representative. But what is the problem now? He says, but the giants are gone. And now the tiny dwarfs flutter and shake their wings. ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ SEO ਕਰਾ ਕੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਗੂਗਲ ਦੇ ਰੇਟਿੰਗ ਹਾਈ ਕਰਤਾ ਹੈ. There are different ways to do it in every generation. And he says they have not the soul in them to take any responsibility. There is no Banda Singh Bahadur left in Sikh among them. He took responsibility for everything his men did. And he says, I will pay for it. That's the difference between the Banda Bahadurs of the world or Sir Thomas Moores of the world. So he says they have not soul in them. ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨਾ ਰੂਹ. ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਰੂਹ ਜਦ ਖਤਮ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਫਿਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿੱਥੋਂ ਰਿਸਪੌਂਸਿਬਿਲਿਟੀ ਲਾਓਗੇ ਫਿਰ ਐਕਸਕਿਊਜ਼ਸ ਨਿਕਲਦੇ ਨੇ. They have misunderstood democracy. By the introduction of the idea of democracy into politics, perhaps that tall Himalayan kind of human personality has been made impossible. ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਵਰਡ ਜਦ ਗੁਰੂ ਅਮਰਦਾਸ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੈਂਟ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਨਾ ਉੱਥੇ ਲਫ਼ਜ਼ ਯੂਜ਼ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਡਾ ਮਾਊਂਟੇਨ ਆ ਪਰਬਤ ਕਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਹਿੰਦੁਸਤਾਨੀ ਪਰੰਪਰਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹਾਂਜੀ ਹਿਮਾਲਿਆ ਹੈਗਾ ਬਟ ਨਾ ਕੁਝ ਹੋਰ ਵਰਤਦੇ ਆ ਅਸੀਂ ਹਾਂਜੀ ਵੇਖ ਸੋ ਗੁਰੂ ਅਮਰਦਾਸ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੈਂਟ ਕੀਤਾ ਐਂਡ ਦੈਟ ਸਿੰਬਲਿਜ਼ਮ ਹੀ ਇਜ਼ ਬ੍ਰਿੰਗਿੰਗ ਇਨ ਪਰਬਤ ਮੇਵਾਨ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਦੇ ਲਫ਼ਜ਼ that tall mountain मतलब mountain like personalities जिन्हां नूं कोई state कोई religion कोई परिवार नहीं डोल सकता ये निशानी गुरु ग्रंथ साहब दसी हुई है कि जिहड़ा गुरमुख हुंदा ना वो नहीं होगा जो मैसी बना लिया कि देखण नूं डबल पग आ या की आ गुरबाणी च आया कि जिहड़ा गुरमुख हुंदा ना जिहड़ा पूरा हो जांदा पूरे दी निशानी की है पूरन पुरख नहीं डोलांदे. So this is what he's bringing in, interpretations in English of the ideas of Gurbani. And he says all have become sand grains in one great level desert. Maru tha katha ho gaya. Kai baithe ne Kuwait de ithe paani na kare ho. The winds blow and heaps of sand are gathered here and there and then blown away. So, you know, mounds how they work, right? Thodi chir tanu lagੂਗਾ kuch ho raha जो सानू भी लग रहा पिछले 3-4 साल सिखा लगता भी कुछ होने वाला साडा भी कोई चंगा लीडर आ रहा थोड़ी जी हवा आती है सब खाली हो जाता है बिकॉज माउंटेन लाइक पर्सनैलिटीज नहीं है पूरा पुरख नहीं डोलाते नहीं सानू नजर आ रहा एंड दैट्स ही सेज इन डेमोक्रेसी द सेम थिंग हैपेंस बिकॉज व्हाट इज डेमोक्रेसी others have written about it and Puran Singh is also saying that democracy when you have democratized the ideas ਉਹ ਮੈਂ ਨਾ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਜਿਹਦੀ ਇੰਸਟੀਟਿਊਟ ਆਫ ਸਿੱਖ ਸਟੱਡੀਜ਼ ਦੀ ਮੀਟਿੰਗ ਬਾਰੇ ਮੈਂ ਜ਼ਿਕਰ ਕਰਦਾ ਹਾਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਫੇਰ ਕਰ ਦਿੰਦਾ ਉੱਥੇ ਵੀ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰ ਵੋਟ ਪਾਉਣ ਲੱਗੇ ਜਦ ਇੰਸਟੀਟਿਊਟ ਆਫ ਸਿੱਖ ਸਟੱਡੀਜ਼ ਦੀ ਡਾਊਨਫਾਲ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਇਟ ਵਾਸ ਇਨ ਮਿਡ 90s ਆਈ ਰਿਮੈਂਬਰ 98 ਦੀ ਮੈਂ ਉਹਦੀ ਐਨੂਅਲ ਮੀਟਿੰਗ ਤੇ ਗਿਆ ਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਬਜ਼ੁਰਗ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਬਾਹਰ ਆ ਗਏ ਮੀਟਿੰਗ ਤੋਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕਾਕਾ ਤੂੰ ਬਾਹਰ ਆ ਗਿਆ ਮੈਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੀ ਮੈਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਮੈਂਬਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ He says, do you know what is about to happen inside? मैं कहा नहीं जी दसो कहना उन्हें 49 गधे इकट्ठे होके एक शेर को कहने तू गधा. That's called mob mentality. When you get enough force, enough power, enough lobbying, or as Chris Rock in this country said, why is there still a poverty in this nation? Because they don't have lobbyists. Otherwise, there is no reason not to. I mean, look at the history of this country. There's no reason not to have that. So continuing with this, he's basically critiquing the democracy when democracy has not reached India, and he's predicting ki hone lag gaya the 4 countries which hone lag gaya. So what culture is he after? He says that true culture is that which does not make him a Sikh or a Mohammedan. 20th century word for Muslims, this was a popular word. Or Hindu or Christian, but a man. Human being makes you powerful. Rest is for you. True education is that which does not make him, True education is that which does not make him Indian or English or Japanese or American, but man. So he is not just denouncing the patriotism of the old, he is saying, replace it with this. This is what Guru Nanak Sahib does in Asakiwar, by the way. He demolishes the superstructures of society and in its place, and Puran Singh writes that in his Asakiwar's introduction. He says then not only he demolishes, he builds the new culture on it. ਅਸੀਂ ਨਾ ਸਿਰਫ ਕ੍ਰਿਟੀਕ ਕਰਦੇ ਮਰ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਬੰਦੇ ਨੂੰ ਖਤਮ ਕਰ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਇਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਦੱਸਦੇ ਕਿ ਉਹਦਾ ਕਰੀਏ ਕੀ. You have to replace it with something. What is the alternative? And he says these nationalism, patriotism, religious identity, political identity, they are not really matters of human affairs. They are matters of political affairs. A truly educated and cultured man is he whose radiant sympathy, whose genuine feelings, whose brilliant mind, whose godlike manners bring him the spontaneous kinship of all the races of man wherever he may go, so that he becomes indistinguishably a man of all countries, colors, climes and castes. This is the spirit of the Gurus. कहते कोई परदेसी नहीं है. गुरबाणी च नहीं आਉਂਦਾ मन परदेसी जेतिए सब देश पराया. The only foreigner entity is when you are not connected with your mind. When you are connected, and this is what you see what the Gurus did wherever they went, there's a kinship regardless of regionalism, tribalism, clanism, patriotism, nationalistic boundaries and things of that nature. He's acknowledging that those exist, but he said, but the Gurus did not invoke this. They worked with those nation ideas as well. They supported them. He'll talk about that. But that's not the end goal. End goal is this. What he himself calls it eventually Naam culture. I love it because that's what it is. Naam is a culture. Naam is not something we do internally or externally. It's something which we do everything. It involves all of us. This is where he says every divine potential in the world, which means 7.5 billion people now today, they all need to work towards this. And then you can say where you studied this. So jehde labels ne na, he's saying these are the schools you go to. That's the example I like to use. Where you went to school, it matters for a while, not for a lifetime. ਆਪਾਂ ਜੇ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਆਏ ਹੋਏ ਆਪਾਂ ਹੀ ਕਹੀ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਜੀ ਇਹ ਮਿਸ਼ਨਰੀ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ ਟਕਸਾਲੀ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ ਜੱਥੇ ਦਾ ਹੈਗਾ. But you know, even on your resumes, after 5 years of experience, you put it at the end where you went to school. Now tell us what have you done with it? And that's what he's talking about. You might be born in a particular place or religion. I want to see what have you done with it. To go do something with it, his explanation comes, whosoever met. Now this is very important. If nothing else, I want you to focus on the next 3-4 slides, what he's really after. He says, whosoever met the Guru in his soul said he was no other but a man. Of what use is our going to the prophets and saying we are their followers if we are a disgrace to their genius, which exhausted by making the human wolves flock together as lambs under the protection of one shepherd. When the Guru says man is one, it is blasphemy for us to recognize Hindus, Mohammedans and Christians anymore. Now what am I getting out of this? He says, Guru claims, na Hindu na Musliman. But when he treats them, he refuses to treat them because of their label in a particular way. So the way we treat people with dignity and respect is what he's after. He's saying you can self-identify however you want to. But what I'm most interested in is how do you treat an individual, your behavior with them. ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨ ਦਾ, ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਬਾਡੀ ਲੈਂਗੁਏਜ ਦਾ, ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਪਾਲਿਸੀਜ਼ ਦਾ, ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਇਕਨੋਮਿਕਸ ਦਾ, ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਕਲ ਥਿਓਰੀਜ਼ ਉੱਥੇ ਦੇਖਣੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਅਸੀਂ। And that's what he's after. How do you treat? ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਉਹ ਕੌਣ ਕਰੂਗਾ? Whosoever met the Guru in his soul. ਇਹ ਸਮਝਣ ਵਾਲੀ ਗੱਲ ਆ, ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਬਰਦਸਤ। ਆਪਾਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਕਲੇਮ ਕਰਦੇ ਨਾ, ਐਜ਼ ਅ ਸੈਲਫ ਆਈਡੈਂਟੀਫਾਈਡ ਸਿਕਸ, ਮੋਸਟ ਪੀਪਲ ਐਟ ਲੀਸਟ, ਇਫ ਨਾਟ ਐਵਰੀਵਨ ਹੇਅਰ, ਕੋਈ ਫਰਕ ਨਹੀਂ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹੋ, ਬਟ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਅੰਦਰ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਕੀਤਾ ਇਸ਼ਨਾਨ ਗੁਰੂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ, ਤੀਰਥ ਨਹਾਉਣ ਜਾਓ, ਤੀਰਥ ਨਾਮ ਹੈ ਦਾ ਆਈਡੀਆ, and then you will know how to treat people. Otherwise you are still playing a sub element of either a religious or political identity. And then he talks about a man, because we might be sitting here and thinking like you and me, how is this possible? What about our martyrs and our shaheeds? So here's an example he gives. Those of you who might not know, Bhai Bir Singh of Aurangabad, the context of this is Maharaja Ranjit Singh's kingdom has been lost because of the Dogra brothers traitors, infight among his family, and British India taking advantage of all that. Context is Bhai Bir Singh, who runs a dera. To put it in perspective, Bhai Maharaj Singh, Bhai Bir Singh, after 1849, were the major Sikhs left who fought to defend Punjab. But he was the one in dera doing Nam Simran. That's the context. So let's talk about him. He lived in a fort. He was of the Guru. If fort and Sikh go together from the day one of Guru Nanak, by the way, because this is what Guru Granth Sahib says. In Guru Granth Sahib it says, Nanak Raj Chalaya, Sach Kot Satani Nev De. Sikh will live in the Quran. To see the political value, of course it is. Let's understand the nuances of it. He says he lived in the fort, he was of the Guru. Though a man of renunciation, he lived like a king in the fort. Such is the need of the soul that is given to the Guru. ਹੁਣ ਭਾਈ ਮਾਈ ਭਾਗੋ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਇਦਾਂ ਦੇਖੋ, ਉਹ ਵੀ ਫੋਰਟ 'ਚ ਰਹੀ ਸੀਗੀ। ਇਫ ਯੂ ਗੋ ਟੂ ਹੈਦਰਾਬਾਦ, ਨਾਨਕ ਝੀਰਾ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਹੋ, ਉਹ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਰਹਿੰਦੀ ਸੀ ਉਹ ਛੋਟਾ ਫੋਰਟ ਹੈਗਾ 14 ਕਿਲੋਮੀਟਰ ਦੂਰ ਹਜ਼ੂਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਤੋਂ। Because fort is about the production. Renunciation in Gurbani is not of what you eat and what thing. Renunciation is of the vices. ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਤਾਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਜ਼ਿਕਰ ਕਿਹਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਗ੍ਰਸਥ ਸੋ ਜੋ ਨਿਗਰਾਹੀ ਕਰੇ, those who are not caught up in indulgences. So what is the fault? They said he had more of him than they had, so they sang to him. मैं skip कर रहे हैं, मतलब people, Sikhs of Punjab. They wanted to do Shabad, they wanted him to listen to more Shabad because he reminded them of the Guru. ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਬੁਲਾਉਣੇ ਪੈਂਦੇ ਨੇ, ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਗਾਉਂਦੇ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਗਾਣਾ ਉੱਥੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ। They said he had more of him. Him is referring to the Guru. Than they had. So ਇੰਨੀ ਕੁ ਵੀ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਾਣ ਸੀਗੀ ਕਿ ਕਿਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੁਰੂ ਦੀ ਝਲਕ ਆ। So they sang to him. They recognized him as their prince. And the fort was a temple in the image of the golden temple of the Guru. The herd of Sukh soldiery, mad with the lust of revenge on the men, and princes who opposed their mob rule, besieged the fort of Baba Bir Singh. Either surrender such and such a Sikh prince who has taken refuge in the port, or we blow it up. 20,000 ਬੰਦੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਫੜਨ ਲਈ ਗਏ ਸੀਗੇ। 20,000। Once the Punjab ਦਾ ਰਾਜ ਜਦ ਡੋਗਰਿਆਂ ਬ੍ਰਦਰਸ ਨੇ ਬ੍ਰਿਟਿਸ਼ ਨਾਲ ਰਲ ਕੇ ਲੈ ਲਿਆ ਸੀ ਨਾ, ਉਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਆ। So it's very political, it's very bloody, and it's very instructive. And Puran Singh invokes it. When he is being told either surrender or we'll do this and this, the ultimatum was given. And he says, my fort? No. It is the temple of Guru Nanak. He's connecting it to Guru Granth Sahib. We today struggle with this because Nanak ne Raj da fort. My fort? No. It is the temple of Guru Nanak. The prince has taken shelter with the Guru. I am nobody here. All right then, blow us up. ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਲੰਗਰ ਬਣਵਾਏ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਆ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ। This is what Bhai Maharaj Singh and Bhai Bir Singh are talking. Both are very tall personalities of the time. This is where, when you hear Shyam Singh Atariwala, you forget these people. Shyam Singh Atariwala was with them. These are the leaders, Sikh leaders of the time. The mad soldiery started the firing. And what did they do? Come ye minstrels, मतलब ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ, ਥੋੜੀ ਉਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਲੈਂਗੁਏਜ ਹੈਗੀ, and sing now our wedding song. ਅੱਜ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮੈਂ ਅੱਜ ਦਾ ਹੁਕਮ ਆਇਆ ਨਾ, ਉਹ ਵੀ ਰਾਗ ਸੂਹੀ ਸੀ। ਸੂਹੀ ਰੈਡ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਰੈਡਨੈਸ ਸੁਹਾਗ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਨਵੋਕ ਕੀਤੀ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ। ਇਹ ਬੜੇ ਇਹਦੀਆਂ ਬੜੀਆਂ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਜਦ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇੱਕ ਬਹੁਤ ਟਫ ਗੱਲ ਵੀ ਕਰਨ ਲੱਗ ਗਏ ਹੋ ਕਿ ਐਨਮੀ ਵਿਦਨ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਬੈਠਾ ਔਰ ਐਨਮੀ ਆਊਟਸਾਈਡ ਬੈਠਾ ਉਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਵੀ ਪਿਆਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਭਿੱਜ ਕੇ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਕਰਨੀ ਹੈ. This is what Professor Puran Singh is invoking for us. And he says, Baba Veer Singh says, come, sing now our wedding song, said the old saint whom the religious history of the world does not know, because the Guru's man never proclaims himself. Here is the differentiation between Maharaja Ranjit Singh and Baba Veer Singh. He goes to get Maharaja Ranjit Singh's son released from the fort. And he wants to fight to get the kingdom of Punjab back. You see the nuancing? Sikh will fight for anyone's behalf, whoever's rights are being violated, including if even it's the Punjabi Sikh's right being violated. But this is not the end goal of a Sikh. This is what is demanded at the time. Loving the rapturous silence of his love, he lives and dies in it. My system is for me to live by. And I am as a tree that gives shade wherever I am. The shells fell, bullets, the rampart was gone, that parapet is broken, and then fell a shell in the choir and the Baba was gone. But before this happened, and this is the instruction, the inmates of the fort asked him permission to reply fire. ਤਿਆਰੀ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਵੀ ਪੂਰੀ ਸੀ ਲੜਨ ਦੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਕਿ ਡੋਗਰਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਭੇਜੇ ਨੇ ਮਾਰਨ ਲਈ. This is again something to think about what's been happening with us in our Gurdwaras in the last 30 years of Punjab's history. Because Punjab, 80% population still lives in Punjab. We have to become nuanced about these things. And he says what? He says, one of the inmates there, which means one of the persons, one of the Sikhs goes to Babaji, says, asks his permission to reply fire, which means let's fight back because we have all the horses, we have the right man, the Guru is with us. He says, no, said the Baba. They are brothers, not enemies. But they are fighting. They know not we are their brothers. We know they are. This knowledge makes all the difference. The difference was death. For those who value the Guru's ideals of brotherhood, prefer death. ਜਿਹੜਾ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਸੋਚਣਾ ਪੈਣਾ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ. ਜਦ ਗੁਰਬਾਈ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਡੀ ਲੜਾਈ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋ ਸਕਦੀ. ਕਿਉਂ ਭੁਲੇਖੇ ਚ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਉਂ ਭੁਲੇਖੇ ਚ ਆ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ? That's what he's saying. And this is the Baba Veer Singh who the world doesn't know, now Sikhs also doesn't know. He doesn't show up in his... People talk about 1857 is the first war in India to counter the British. They are not wanting you to remember this man. When he did Naam Simran all the time, but he was so well trained to fight. And not fighting to kill your own kind, this is leadership. As the Guru shows us. Okay? So why are we not able to do this? Let's see what Puran Singh says about this. He says because we are not his yet. Asi Guru de nahi bane is karke. Kyun? Because you are not amongst yourself full of pure love for each other. You have not yet dropped selfishness and love and given yourselves wholly to love. Sade ch pyar hi nahi hai. Je pyar chunda tusi ਉਹਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ ਚੇਂਜ ਕਰਾ ਸਕਦੇ. ਫਿਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜਿਹੜੇ 11 different hues of love in Guru Granth Sahib ਹੈਗੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਸਨੇਹ ਨੇਹ ਪ੍ਰੇਮ ਇਸ਼ਕ ਪ੍ਰੀਤ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਤਾ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਕਿ ਨੁਸਰਤ ਨਹੀਂ ਗਾ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਸਿਰਫ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਗਾ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਇੰਜੋਏ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਰੂਮੀ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਬਟ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ 11 different words ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ different feelings ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਪਿਆਰ ਬਾਰੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਿਆਰੇ ਬਣਾਇਆ ਸੀ 10ਵੇਂ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਨੇ ਵੀ ਤੇ ਪਿਆਰੇ ਵੀ ਅੱਜ ਪਿਆਰ ਤੋਂ ਇਲਾਵਾ ਸਭ ਕੁਝ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਸਾਡੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਖੜੀ ਹੈ ਕਿਉਂ ਬਿਕਾਜ਼ ਵੀ ਆਰ ਨਾਟ ਇਨ ਲਵ ਇਨ ਫੇਸ ਆਫ ਦਿਸ ਸਮਾਲ ਪਰਫਾਰਮੈਂਸ ਯੂ ਥਿੰਕ ਪਰਫਾਰਮੈਂਸ ਇਜ਼ ਟੁਡੇ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦਿਖ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਬੜੀਆਂ ਪਰਫਾਰਮੈਂਸ ਸਿੱਖ ਵੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ ਬਟ ਇਟਸ ਗੋਇੰਗ ਔਨ ਫॉर ਅ ਵਾਈਲ ਯੂ ਆਰ ਕਾਲਿੰਗ yourself his only is empty talk but we must hang our heads in shame and stand condemned if we have not yet acknowledged love as the only substance of human life jin prem kiyo tinhi prabhupada only substance of human life. It is not for me to remind you of your performance. We have not yet risen to his ideal. We are not his yet. In spite of wearing 2 swords, 2 turbans and drinking the sugared syrup to our heart's content. Amrit di gal kar rahe hain. Kyunki jehda amrit pee lenda wo nahi wo ta pyar cha na. Tai unhone ne kiha tusi je amrit nahi peeta je ceremony ch gaye ho. Farak hai do cheezan ch. ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਕਲ ਗੇਨਸ ਲਈ ਪ੍ਰਧਾਨ ਬਣਨ ਲਈ ਵੀ ਲੋਕੀ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤ ਛਕ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਨੇ That doesn't mean they are in love. Lover goes to the Guru and says, I am yours, I give my head to you, right? You know the vocabulary, and that's what he's explaining. Sadi ne tuhadi gall ho rahi hai. We are not his yet. In spite of wearing 2 swords and 2 turbans and drinking the sugared syrup to our heart's content, self-flattery cannot give us wings to fly. Those who have wings fly and never see the earth. The larks know not but their own song. So ਭਾਵੇਂ ਦਰਬਾਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜਾਂ ਅਕਾਲ ਤਖਤ ਤੇ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਤੇ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਲੋਕਲ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰੇ 'ਚ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ, ਉਹਦੀ ਜੜ ਹੈਗੀ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਪ੍ਰੇਮ ਜਾਂ ਪ੍ਰੀਤ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਹਾਂ। ਕੀ ਕਰੀਏ ਫਿਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਲੜਾਂਗੇ ਕਿ ਧਾਰਮਿਕ ਕੌਣ ਹੈ ਜੋ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਰਨ ਲੱਗ ਗਏ ਹਾਂ। If you read closely Asa Diwar, you will find it. You read about Ustad of Guru Gobind Singh, you will find it indelibly written. All gods are relegated to the past. ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੀ ਇਹ ਡਿਬੇਟ ਹੀ ਹੈ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਰੱਬ ਨੂੰ ਮੰਨਦੇ ਹੋ ਕਿ ਨਹੀਂ। ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਗੁਰੂਆਂ ਨੇ ਇੱਕ ਓਂਕਾਰ ਕਰਤਾ। ਅਸੀਂ ਫਿਰ ਉਸ ਡਿਬੇਟ 'ਚ ਆ ਗਏ ਹਾਂ ਹੋਰ ਧਰਮਾਂ ਵਾਂਗੂ। So what does he say? All religions are thrown away. Carefully read Asa Diwar next times. If you look at the types of the lives of the Gurus created in Punjab, you will for the first time see the ideals of civic life coming into being. ਇਦਾਂ ਹੀ ਥੋੜੀ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦਾ ਮੁਸਲਮਾਨ ਤੇ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦਾ ਹਿੰਦੂ ਤੇ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦਾ ਟ੍ਰਾਈਬਲਿਸਟ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਗੁਰੂਆਂ ਨਾਲ ਖੜ ਗਿਆ ਆ ਕੇ। ਕੋਈ ਗੱਲ ਸੀ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਕਿ ਜੋ ਗੁਰੂ ਕਹਿ ਰਿਹਾ ਉਹ ਵਾਕਈ ਕੋਈ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਤੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ 5, 7, 9 ਜਨਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਸਿੱਖ ਬਣੇ, 4 fathers and 4 mothers, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਵੀ ਇਹ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਤਾਂ ਹੀ ਉਹ ਬਣੇ ਸੀ। So ਕੀ ਹੈ, you will see men with families serving the poor. ਆਪਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਟਾਈਮ ਹੈ ਨਹੀਂ, ਇਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਟ ਗੱਲ ਹੈ। ਬੱਚੇ ਤਾਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਪੈਦਾ ਕਰ ਲੈਂਦੇ, ਪਾਲਣੇ ਵੀ ਨੇ, but ਟਾਈਮ ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਹੈ। He says you will see men with families serving the poor and the weak with their very lives. A man apparently not of their persuasion comes complaining to the Sikhs assembled in Golden Temple at Amritsar that a tyrant had snatched away his wife. The assembled men all rise and go. Some of them die in a fray. Others restore the wife to her husband. These were men wholly unpractical. Ajkal sanu कहना practical ਗੱਲ ਕਰੋ, ਇਹ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਜਵਾਬ ਆ। These were men wholly unpractical in the ordinary worldly prudent sense. They reeked not of power and of the kingdoms of this world. For all belong to the Guru. We are his dedicated servants. ਇਹ ਕਹਿਣ ਨਾਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੇਵਾਦਾਰ ਬਣ ਜਾਈਦਾ। ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ 'ਚ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਬੜਾ ਕਲੀਅਰ ਆ। ਕਹਿਣ ਕਹਾਵਨ ਕੋ ਕਈ ਕੀਤੇ ਐਸੋ ਜਨ ਬਿਰਨੋ ਹਾ ਸੇਵਕ। Guru knows our mentalities even today, right? It's the same behaviors. He says ਅਸੀਂ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰਨੀ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਸੇਵਾਦਾਰ ਬਣਦਾ ਕੁਝ ਮਤਲਬ ਹੋਰ ਆ। ਕੀ ਹੈ? For all belongs to the Guru. We are his dedicated servant. All belongs to the Guru. This feeling made the men of the Guru as universal as the wind and river and light. ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਲੇਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰ ਸਕਦਾ ਕੋਈ। ਇਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਤੇ ਗੁਰੂਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਕੱਲੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਲੇਮ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ। ਪੀਰ ਬੁੱਧੂ ਸ਼ਾਲਾ ਕੀ ਕਰੋਗੇ? ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਕਲੇਮ ਕਰਨਾ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਨੂੰ ਪਿਆਰ ਕਰੂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਲੇਮ ਕਰੂ। Now let's talk about our Gurdwaras. If our daily life is not ideal as what that of the old disciples of the Gurus, if we have no spiritual expression of the Guru's ideal in society and in our homes, and if there is no musical peace of the soul as expressed in the temples and the offices of the Ceremonies Gurdwara Prabandhak Committee, then what use is our falling flat with both our arms spread on the floor of our temple, and of what use is our cry to possess them? ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਲੰਬੀਆਂ ਲੰਬੀਆਂ ਡੰਡੌਤਾਂ ਕਰੀ ਜਾਓ, ਕਿਹਨੂੰ ਬੁੱਧੂ ਬਣਾ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ? ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਲੋਕਲ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰੇ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋ ਤੇ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਦਰਬਾਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋ। Then I will frankly call this possession of temples by my Akali brothers a bearish embrace of brick and mortar. Even in Guru Hargobind Patsha period, they used to say, Takht is where the Guru is. People never attached to the buildings. If the spirit of the Guru, which alone makes all temples sacred, has departed from our hearts, of what interest to us or to the world are our shrines? And the superstitions and formal sanctimonious regard for them is the sign of the death of that feeling which brought them into existence. ਸਾਡਾ ਹਰਿੰਦਰ ਸੀ ਇਹ, ਪੂਰੀ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦਾ ਜਹਾਨ ਦਾ 84 ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਇਹੀ ਲਿਖਿਆ। ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਮਝਦੇ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਮੁਸਲਮਾਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਲਿਖ ਰਿਹਾ। ਅਫਜ਼ਲ ਰੰਧਾਵੇ ਦੀ ਡੈਥ ਹੋ ਗਈ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਪਾਕਿਸਤਾਨ ਦੇ ਲੀਡਿੰਗ ਡਿਸੈਂਟਰ ਸੀਗੇ, ਪਾਕਿਸਤਾਨ ਗਵਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਨੇ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜੇਲ੍ਹ 'ਚ ਰੱਖਿਆ ਸੀ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ 84 ਬਾਰੇ ਪੋਇਮ ਲਿਖੇਗੀ, ਔੜਕ ਮੁਕੇਗੀ ਇਹ ਰਾਤ, and he says ਜਿੱਥੇ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਮੱਥਾ ਟੇਕਦੀ। ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸਰ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੂੰ ਸਮਝਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਕਿਉਂ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਸੀ ਮੱਥਾ ਟੇਕਣ, ਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਵੀ ਆਊਗੀ ਜਿਸ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਡੀ ਸਪਿਰਿਟ ਰਹੂਗੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਫਰਕ ਨਹੀਂ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਸਰਕਾਰਾਂ ਤੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਪ੍ਰਬੰਧਕ ਕੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ। Okay, so now let's talk about interfaith a bit. I see no reason why in Golden Temple should not gather the Hindu and the Muslim and the Christian to recite their kathas and songs. They used to, provided they serve to maintain the peaceful, radiant, spiritual atmosphere characteristic of the Guru's teaching. In our binary ਅਸੀਂ create ਕਰਦੀਆਂ in our complexities of post-partition syndrome, these have been very damaging for us. There is no binary, yes no ਵਾਲੇ ਆਨਸਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੇ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬੰਦੇ ਨੂੰ ਪਛਾਣੋ। ਮੇਰੀ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਮੈਮਰੀ ਪਾਕਿਸਤਾਨ में पहली बार 84 ਚ ਗਿਆ, ਜਦ ਨਨਕਾਣਾ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਬੜਿਆ ਤੇ ਮੁਸਲਮਾਨ ਹੀ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀ ਕੀਰਤਨ, ਤੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਭੁੱਲਦਾ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਉਹ। ਫਿਰ ਉਹਨੇ ਗੀਤ ਗਾਏ ਉੱਥੇ ਬਹਿ ਕੇ। That great calm harmony of the complexity of faiths and the inner oneness of all religions is the special theme of the Gurus. The very first thinker on comparative religion was Guru Nanak. The modern word East and West followed. Caste. The Guru says, I embrace the sweeper who has his name in him. Nichi hu ab neech. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਛਾਤੀ ਨਾਲ ਲਾਵਾਂਗੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ, ਅੰਬਰੇਸ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਉੱਥੇ ਨਜ਼ਰ ਆ, ਉੱਥੇ ਤੇਰੀ ਨਜ਼ਰ ਬਖਸ਼ੀਸ਼ ਹੈ। And we shut the doors of our heart. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਫਿਜ਼ੀਕਲੀ ਤਾਂ ਛੱਡੋ, ਆਪਣੇ ਦਿਲ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਥਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਦਿੰਦੇ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਵੀ ਇਹੀ ਚੱਲ ਰਿਹਾ। The shutting of the temple door is immaterial, but the shutting of the doors of the heart is not in the harmony with the Guru's ideal of the universal kinship of man. People point out we do not treat the low caste that have joined, perhaps only outwardly for social reasons, or persuasion on the basis of human equality. But the sad fact is not our treatment of these people, but the smallness of our moral stature in comparison with the ideals of the Guru. ਭਗਤ ਕਬੀਰ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਸ਼ਲੋਕ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਕਿ ਗੁਰੂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਲਈ ਕੀ ਕਰੇ ਜੇ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ 'ਚ ਚੂਕ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ। ਇਹ ਸਾਡੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਹੁਣ, ਤੇ 100 ਸਾਲ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਵੀ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਹਿੰਦੁਸਤਾਨ ਤੇ ਪਾਕਿਸਤਾਨ ਆਜ਼ਾਦ ਕਰਾ ਲਏ, ਬਟ ਗੁਰੂ ਦੇ ਪਿਆਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਜੇ ਵੀ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਨਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਇਆ। That's the context when he's writing all this. ਅਸੀਂ ਸ਼ਹਾਦਤਾਂ ਵੀ ਦਿੱਤੀਆਂ, ਉਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਵੀ ਬੜੀਆਂ ਦਿੱਤੀਆਂ, 90% 80% ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ ਨੇ, ਬਟ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਪ੍ਰੀਤ ਵਾਲੀ ਗੱਲ ਸੀ ਇਹ ਸਾਡੀ ਘਟ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। ਹੁਣ ਅਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਹੋਰਾਂ ਵਾਂਗੂ ਬਣੀ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ। And those of you who don't like the clean-shaven people, whatever that means to you, this is him in Japan. We as men of the Guru have no symbols. We, I say, as the men of the Guru have no so-called religion or religious creed as others have. Then what are these impediments of long hair and beard? Asks the impatient young Sikh who sees no reason for the whole world is clean-shaven with a cigarette in his lips. ਘਬਰਾਇਆ ਨਾ ਕਰੋ ਜੇ ਕੋਈ ਬੀੜੀ ਸੁਪਾੜੀ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦਾ। ਇੰਨੀ ਹਿੰਮਤ ਹੋਣੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਸੁਣੋ। ਅਸੀਂ ਤਾਂ ਘਬਰਾ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਬੜੀ ਛੇਤੀ। Puran Singh is invoking that. He says if somebody asks that, he says a young man asks, and it is so neat looking that he says, or the young man says, I wish to be like that. After all, what does the hair matter when my heart is pure? ਆਪਾਂ ਵੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹੈ ਇਹ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਅੰਦਰੋਂ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਹੈ, all the things we come up with. The question is quite simple to answer, but the answer is based on an intellectual analysis of things. And who is there to compel anyone to be of the Guru? ਆਪਾਂ ਬਣਾਉਣ ਲੱਗੇ ਨਾ ਹੋਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਿੱਖ, ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਆ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। Unless one feels the need of his love and his protection and his ideal, and unless one seeks ardently for him. You know the word sanctuary we use? ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਲੋੜ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੈਂਚੁਰੀ ਦੀ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਜਵਾਬ ਦਿਓਗੇ? ਉਹ ਆਪਣੀ ਥਾਂ ਠੀਕ ਬੋਲ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ। ਜਿਹਨੇ ਪਿਆਰ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਨਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਲਈ ਹੈ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ, ਤੇ ਕਦੇ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ। ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਮੁੰਡਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਾਇਆ। ਸਾਡੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਅਸੀਂ ਜ਼ਬਰਦਸਤੀ ਕਰਾਉਂਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜ਼ਬਰਦਸਤੀ ਕਰਾਓਗੇ ਫਿਰ ਕਨਵਰਸੇਸ਼ਨ ਕਰਨੀ ਤਾਂ ਸਿੱਖੋ। But those who have been to him and have loved him and have received his gifts cannot throw the gifts of the Guru to the winds and still say they love him. Nuancing ਕਰੋ ਗਲਤੀ। ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਿਆਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਤੂੰ ਵੀ ਕਰ, ਤੇ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਪਿਆਰ ਭਾਈ ਤੂੰ ਕਰ, ਤੇਰੇ ਕੋਲ ਆਪਸ਼ਨ ਨਹੀਂ। It is a question of the intensity of personal love for the Guru. These sacred knots of the 5 beloved of the Guru Gobind Singh, who tied them on their heads with his own hands, are his gifts, dance forward. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜਿੱਦਣ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਣੀ ਲਾਈਫ 'ਚ ਇਨਵਾਈਟ ਕਰ ਲਿਆ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਹੁਣ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੇਰਾ ਜੂੜਾ ਕਰ ਦਿਓ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਉਹ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨੇ ਹੁਣ। ਤੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਕਿਉਂ ਨੇ? ਐਕਚੁਅਲੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਦੇ ਨੇ, ਗੁਰੂ ਨੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਨੇ। ਕਿਉਂ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਨੇ, ਕਿਉਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਦਿੱਤੇ, ਇਹ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪ ਡਿਸਾਈਡ ਕਰਨਾ। For one who has any feeling in his heart, in his breast, death is more welcome than parting his gifts. But at the same time, and this is instructive for all of us, but at the same time, we should not be so foolish as to impose the possession of these gifts as a condition on the modern man for his capacity to sympathize with the Guru's ideals and to accept them for his soul. We fought with the people who made them impositions. And now we want to impose this. We have not understood the Preet idea at all then, and the Guru's ideals. It is simply stupid. Harsh word hai, but samjho is gall gusse na hoye Puran Singh la. It is simply stupid in this age of the progressive tendencies of a man to tie him down to any superstitious symbols. Symbols will be discarded if they are merely symbols. फिर पंजाब के सिखा ने सिंबल्स नाल की कीता, ये समझनी तुहाडे ते मेरे लिए बहुत जरूरी है। बट वी सिक्स ऑफ द पंजाब सॉ हिम, met him. ਆਪਾਂ ਗੱਲ ਉਹਦੀ ਕਰੀਏ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਗੁਰੂ ਨੂੰ ਦੇਖਦਾ, ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ, ਫਿਰ ਕਨਫਿਊਜ਼ਨ ਤੇ ਕੰਟਰਡਿਕਸ਼ਨ ਹੋਰ ਬਹੁਤ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ। ਗੁਰਮਾੜੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੀ ਸੀ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਪਤਾ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਮੇਰਾ ਗੁਰੂ ਮਿਲ ਗਿਆ? ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਹੋ ਬਦਲ ਜਾਂਦਾ, ਸਤਿਗੁਰ ਮਿਲਿਆ ਦਿਵ ਦ੍ਰਿਸ਼ਟ ਹੋਈ। This is how you know you see the Guru now, because the way you see changes. He gave us his personal love and we gave him ours, though we went astray and still go astray. The sacred knot of hair is a veritable crown because it is his gift. Better death than parting with this gift. After a short while, except for this shape of the Guru, all other things they call symbol shall be one chooses. To say that because a Punjabi Sikh binds a turban, the American Sikh sympathizer shall therefore be precluded from wearing his hat is the idle jugglery of an ignorant fanaticism for a local personal gratefulness to him who freed us from the caste and superstition and saved us from the hands of political slavery. थोड़ी सख्त गल कही है उन्होंने। कहना जो तुहाडा मुंडा है कोई होर जिहड़ा सिक्खी नाल इवन सिंपथाइज करदा, तुसीं उहदे पिछे क्यों पै जांदे हो कि उहदी पग बनदा? पग तो उहने लैनी है गुरु कोलों, जब उहने लैनी होगी जाके लै लो, क्योंकि पग असीं अपनी बना ली, असीं एक दूजे दी उछालन लग गए। दिस इज द प्रॉब्लम। जब तुसीं इहदी गुरु कोलों लाओगे फिर तुसीं किसी नूं नहीं कहोगे तू क्यों नहीं बनदा। एक पंजाब के सिखां ने कीता ते सानूं करके दिखाया सी। दोज़ ऑफ अस हू स्पीक अगेंस्ट पंजाबी सिक्स, पुराने पंजाबी सिख इदां दे सीगे, ਉਹ ਪ੍ਰੀਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ। ਆਪਾਂ Christian, in the interest of time, I want to skip few things now. He's saying, in fact, let's look at this one line. He says, now we are doing what the missionaries used to do. We have got a bad habit from modern Christian missionary of going with the Bible in the hand in the dust and noise of the streets and saying, believe in Jesus or you shall forever damn. ਆਪਾਂ ਵੀ ਇਹੀ ਕਰਨ ਲੱਗ ਗਏ। ਆਪਾਂ ਕਹਿਣ ਲੱਗ ਗਏ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਨਰਕਾਂ ਜਾਓਗੇ। ਦੇਖੋ ਕੀ ਹਾਲ ਸਾਡਾ। ਅਸੀਂ ਕਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਇਦਾਂ ਬੋਲਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀ। Because we don't have the love. The last line is, and yet my radiance should be a revelation of him, as is the fragrance of the rose. ਸਾਡੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਖੁਸ਼ਬੂ ਨਹੀਂ ਆ ਰਹੀ, ਫਿਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹੁਣ ਚਲੋ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਿੱਖ ਬਣਾਈਏ। Quickly ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨੀ in last 2 minutes। ਮੈਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਇੱਕ ਕਵਿਤਾ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਦੱਸ ਰਿਹਾ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਬਗੈਰ ਉਹ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਊਗੀ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਕਵਿਤਾ ਲਿਖੀ ਹੈ ਕੌਨਸ਼ੀਅਸਨੈਸ ਐਂਡ ਈਗੋ, ਸੁਰ ਤੇ ਹੰਕਾਰ। In fact, I highly recommend this book. It's called Era Jama Main Puran Singh, Professor Kulwant Singh Garewal ਦੀ ਲਿਖੀ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ ਛੋਟੀ ਜਿਹੀ ਕਿਤਾਬ, where it's a whole thesis is Puran Singh's thesis of his works, where he says, Surat akalli na kade, consciousness is never alone. Hankar sabha akalla, ਇਹੋ ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨੀ, ਇਹੋ ਫਰਕ, ਸੁਰਤ ਨੂੰ ਸੰਭਾਲਦੇ ਰੱਬ ਦੇ ਪਿਆਰੇ, ਅਣਡਿੱਠੇ ਦੇਸਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਰਹਿਣ ਉਪਕਾਰੀ। ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੁਰਤ ਨੂੰ ਸੰਭਾਲਦੇ ਨੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਦੇ ਬੰਦੇ, ਤੇ doesn't matter which country they live in, ਅਣਡਿੱਠੇ, the nations which have not even yet been born। ਸਮਝ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਗੱਲ? ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਨੇਸ਼ਨ ਸਟੇਟ ਤਾਂ ਚੇਂਜ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ। ਠੀਕ ਕੋਈ ਹੋਰ ਲੋਕ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸੁਰਤ ਨੂੰ ਪਿਆਰ ਦੇ, ਉੱਥੇ ਜੋਗ ਮਹਾਬਲਸੂਰ। ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਵਾਰੀਅਰ ਤਾਂ ਬਣੀਦਾ ਜਦ ਕੌਨਸ਼ੀਅਸਨੈਸ ਜਾਗੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ, ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਗੈਰ ਫਾਈਟਰਸ ਬਣੋਗੇ। ਤੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਫਾਈਟਰਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਣਾਇਆ ਸੀ, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਵਾਰੀਅਰਸ ਬਣਾਇਆ ਸੀ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਰੱਖਿਆ ਸੁਰਤ ਨੂੰ ਸਤ ਕਦੀ ਇਕੱਲੀ ਨਾ, ਸੁਰਤ ਕਦੇ ਇਕੱਲੀ ਨਾ, ਇਹ ਭੇਤ ਜਾਣਨਾ, ਸੁਰਤ ਰੱਬ ਦੀ ਜੋਤ ਇਨਸਾਨ ਵਿੱਚ, ਹੰਕਾਰ ਭੈੜਾ ਹੈਵਾਨ ਜੰਗਲੀ. So this battle of ਸੁਰਤ and ਹੰਕਾਰ within us. And ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ 3 ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੀਆਂ ਮੇਨ ਕਿਤਾਬਾਂ, ਉਹਦੇ ਚ ਮੈਂ ਇੱਕ ਸੈਂਪਲ ਖੁੱਲੇ ਘੁੰਡ ਚੋਂ, ਦੇਖੋ ਨਾਂ ਕੀ ਰੱਖਿਆ, ਖੁੱਲੇ ਘੁੰਡ. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਰਤੇ ਕਰ ਦਬਾਈ ਰੱਖੋਗੇ. ਆਪਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨਾ ਕਿ ਰੂਮੀ ਨੇ ਵੀ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਕਿ ਕੁਰਾਨ ਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦਬਾਈ ਜਾਂਦੇ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਖੋਲੋ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਪੜ੍ਹੋ. ਇਹ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਘੁੰਡ ਹਟਾਓ, ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਰਿਸ਼ਤਾ ਬਣਾਓ. ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਮੁੰਡਿਆਂ ਬਾਰੇ, ਗੱਭਰੂਆਂ ਬਾਰੇ, which means youth ਬਾਰੇ ਕੀ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ? ਇਹ ਬੇਪਰਵਾਹ ਜਵਾਨ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਮੌਤ ਨੂੰ ਮੁਖੌਲਾ ਕਰਨ, ਮਰਨ ਥੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਡਰਦੇ. ਕਿਉਂ? ਪਿਆਰ ਨਾਲ ਇਹ ਕਰਨ ਗੁਲਾਮੀ, ਇਹ ਸਿਖਾਇਆ ਸੀ ਸਿੱਖ ਗੁਰੂ. ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਜ਼ਬਰਦਸਤੀ ਗੁਲਾਮੀ ਕਰਾਵੇ ਨਾ, ਅਸੀਂ ਲੜਾਂਗੇ. ਪਿਆਰ ਨਾਲ ਇਹ ਕਰਨ ਗੁਲਾਮੀ, ਮਤਲਬ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਲ. ਜਾਨ ਕੋ ਆਪਣੀ ਵਾਰ ਦਿੰਦੇ, ਪਰ ਟਹਿ ਨਾ ਮੰਨਣ ਕਿਸੇ ਦੀ. ਜਦੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਵਾਰ ਪੜ੍ਹੀ ਨਾ, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਥੋੜੀ ਜਿਹੀ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਸਾਇਕੀ ਸਮਝ ਆਈ. ਫਿਰ ਮੈਂ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਵਿੱਚ ਘੁੰਮਿਆ ਜਾ ਕੇ, ਜਦ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਮੈਂ ਹੇਅਰ ਕੱਟ ਮੁੰਡਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਾਲਜਾਂ ਦੇ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ, ਮੈਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੁਛ ਕਿਹਾ. ਜਦ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਬਾਪੂ ਸਾਡਾ ਗੁਰੂ ਗੋਬਿੰਦ ਹੀ ਹੈ, ਗੁਰੂ ਗੋਬਿੰਦ ਸਿੰਘ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਜੀ ਨੇ. ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਹੈ ਇਸ ਗੱਲ ਦੀ ਜਾਂਚ, ਭਾਵੇਂ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੇ ਜਿਹੇ ਮਰਜ਼ੀ ਰੂਪ ਚ ਹੋਣ. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਗਾਂਧੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਾਡਾ ਬਾਪੂ ਬਣ ਸਕਦਾ. ਸੋ ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਸਮਝਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਦੁਨੀਆ 'ਚ ਘੁੰਮ ਕੇ ਆਇਆ. ਕਈ ਵਾਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਬਾਹਰ ਬੈਠੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਮੁੰਡੇ ਏਦਾਂ ਦੇ ਨੇ, ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਮੁੰਡੇ ਹੀ ਕੁਝ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬੜਾ ਬੋਲੀ ਜਾਓ. ਇਹ ਪਿਆਰ ਨਾਲ ਇਹ ਕਰਨ ਗੁਲਾਮੀ, ਜਾਨ ਕੋ ਆਪਣੀ ਵਾਰ ਦਿੰਦੇ, ਪਰ ਟਹਿ ਨਾ ਮੰਨਣ ਕਿਸੇ ਦੀ, ਖਲੋ ਜਾਣ ਡਾਂਗਾ ਮੋਢੇ ਤੇ ਉਲਾਰਦੇ. ਮੰਨਣ ਬਸ ਇੱਕ ਆਪਣੀ ਜਵਾਨੀ ਦੇ ਜ਼ੋਰ ਨੂੰ, ਅੱਖੜ ਖਾਂਦ ਅਦ ਬੇਲੇ ਥੁਰ ਧੁਰ ਥੀ ਸਤਿਗੁਰਾਂ ਦੇ. ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਸਮਝਣ ਵਾਲੀ. ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਿਰਫ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਡਾਂਗਾਂ ਨਾ ਦੇਖਿਓ, ਉਹ ਦੇਖੋ ਕਿ ਕਿਹੜੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਦੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਉਹ ਡਾਂਗਾਂ ਚੱਕ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ. ਤਾਂ ਹੀ ਭੰਗੜੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਡਾਂਗਾਂ ਆ ਗਈਆਂ, ਨਹੀਂ ਤਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਸੈਂਸ ਬਣਦੀ ਸੀ. ਮਤਲਬ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇੰਟੀਗ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਸਾਡੇ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਡਾਂਸਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਅਜੇ ਸਮਝ ਨਹੀਂ ਆ ਰਹੀ, ਅਸੀਂ ਕੁਝ ਹੋਰ ਬਣਾਈ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ. ਚਲੋ, ਪੰਜਾਬ ਨਾ ਹਿੰਦੂ ਨਾ ਮੁਸਲਮਾਨ, ਪੰਜਾਬ ਸਾਰਾ ਜੀਂਦਾ ਗੁਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਮ ਤੇ. ਇਹ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਆਈ ਹੈ ਲਾਈਨ. ਠੀਕ ਹੈ ਜੀ. ਇਹ ਹੈਗੀ ਖੁੱਲੇ ਮੈਦਾਨ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ, ਤੇ ਅਖੀਰਲੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਖੁੱਲੇ ਅਸਮਾਨੀ ਰੰਗ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ. And I'm going to end with this, where he says ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਮਝ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਕਦੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਗੋਬਿੰਦ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੂੰ. ਕਿਉਂ? Because it's too hard. ਅਸੀਂ ਐਵੇਂ ਕਹੀ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਈਜ਼ੀ ਹੈ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕੋਈ ਈਜ਼ੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ. ਕਠਨ ਗਿਆਨ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦਾ. ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ ਮੇਲੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਵਿੱਚ. ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਫਤਿਹ ਬੁਲਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਮਿਲ ਰਿਹਾ ਗੁਰੂ? ਇਹ ਸੋਚੇ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਬੈਠ ਕੇ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਉੱਥੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਮਿਲਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਉਹਨੂੰ. ਇਹ ਉਹ ਕਲਗੀਆਂ ਵਾਲੇ ਨੇ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਰਵਿੱਤ ਰੱਬ ਦਾ ਰਾਜ ਉਜਾਲਿਆ. ਰੱਬ ਦਾ ਨੇ ਨਵਾਂ ਆਨੰਦਪੁਰ ਸਾਜਿਆ, ਨਵਾਂ ਕਾਨੂੰਨ ਹੈ. He says there is a new law now. What is the new law? ਖਾਲਸਾ ਜੋਤ ਅਕਾਲ ਦੀ ਘਾਟ ਘਾਟ ਜਾਗਸੀ, ਇਹ ਲਾਟ ਸਦਾ ਫਤਿਹ ਦੀ ਕਦੀ ਨਾ ਹਾਰਸੀ. ਨਾਮ ਰੱਬ ਦਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਗੁਰੂ ਗੋਬਿੰਦ ਸਿੰਘ ਸਾਜਸੀ, ਰੱਬ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪ ਖਲੋਸੀ, ਖਾਲਸਾ ਸਦਾ ਫਤਿਹ ਗਜਾਏ ਸੀ. ਖਾਲਸਾ ਨਾਮ ਪਿਆਰ ਦਾ, ਜਾਨ ਰੱਬ ਦੀ ਧੜਕ ਸੀ, ਕੁਦਰਤ ਸਾਜਨਹਾਰ ਦੀ ਇੱਕ ਨਵਾਂ ਕਾਲ ਹੁਣ ਵੱਜ ਸੀ. ਗਲੀ ਗਲੀ ਸਤਿ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ, ਉਹ ਘਰ ਘਰ ਅਕਾਲ ਗੱਜ ਸੀ. ਲੁੰਡੀ ਬੁੱਚੀ ਸਭ ਨੇ. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜਦ ਵਧੀਆ ਕੰਮ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਨਾ, ਫਿਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਘਟੀਆ ਲੋਕ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਚੁੱਪ ਕਰ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਨੇ. ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਵਧੀਆ ਕੰਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ. ਗਾਲਾਂ ਹੀ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਕਿਸਮ ਦੀਆਂ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵਰਡ ਆਏ. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਹੋ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਚੁੱਪ ਕਰਾਉਣਾ ਤਾਂ ਆਪਣਾ ਕੰਮ ਕਰੋ ਗੁਰੂ ਦੇ ਨਾਮ ਤੇ. So this is Professor Puran Singh, who basically is telling us how to express Sikhi. It is certainly a tiresome futility for us to go impressing on the busy world of today that unless they keep long hair, wear turbans, they cannot understand the Guru. ਇਹ ਕੋਈ requirement ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ. ਜਿਹਨੇ ਕੇਸ ਰੱਖਣੇ ਨੇ, ਦਸਤਾਰ ਸਜਾਣੀ ਆ, ਉਹ ਗੁਰੂ ਕੋਲੋਂ ਬਖਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਮੰਗਦਾ ਜਾ ਕੇ. ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਸਿਖਾਇਆ ਸੀ. The Guru is already diffusing his mind in the world mind, and if other theologians and priests ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਨਕਲ ਨਾ ਮਾਰੀਏ, we strive to force upon the world our particular theology and rites and symbols, we shall certainly fail. ਦੇਖੋ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਜ਼ੋਰ ਨਾਲ ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ, we will certainly fail ਜੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਅਪਣਾਵਾਂਗੇ. As the shape of nose and ear and eye cannot be limitations for the ecstasy of the soul, so no symbol, no rite, no particular form, no particular virtue or vice can impede the inner realization of the great ideals of the Guru. So what do we need? Akhirli line, our shapes indeed can in no sense be considered symbols. But more important, and this is the ending, but more important is the expression of the Sikh soul through their medium. जिस साडे दस्तार ते beard ते केस विचों गुरु दी spirit नहीं नजर आ रही, and if their expression is lacking, our very life and body, whether our head be dressed or clean shaven, are meaningless superstitions. Puran Singh, ਸਮੇਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਸਰਕਾਰਾਂ, ਸਮੇਂ ਦੇ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ, ਸਮੇਂ ਦੇ ਧਰਮ, ਸਮੇਂ ਦੇ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਸ਼ੀਅਨਸ, ਸਮੇਂ ਦਾ ਲਿਟਰੇਚਰ, ਸਮੇਂ ਦੇ ਰੋਮਾਂਟਿਕਸ, ਅਜੇ ਉਹਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨੀ ਰਹਿ ਗਈ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿ ਹੀਰ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਇਨਵੋਕ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ. He was relevant, he gave opinions, interpretations. After his journey of religions, he was born in the house of the Guru. After being born in the house of the Guru, he very responsibly participated in the politics of the time, in the discussions of the time, including while developing his spirituality every day. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
One more round of applause for Harinder. I think if there's one Gurbani line that I took away from there, which is the essence of Professor Puran Singh Ji, that would have to be Jin Prem Kiyo Tin Hi Prapayo. Ki Prem de vich ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਗਿਆਨ ਦਾ ਭੰਡਾਰ ਇਕੱਠਾ ਕਰਕੇ, and how he's represented and represented it to us while traveling this journey of spiritual consciousness. As Harinder Ji was ending his last slide, it actually reminded me of I am a spirit-born people guy. I'll be very honest and truthful. I've read Spirit of Sikh and Spirit-Born People. This essay is a one remarkable chapter in Spirit-Born People. ਤੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ ਲਾਈਨ ਉਹਦੀ ਯਾਦ ਆ ਗਈ ਕਿ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ, those who do not understand the law of love cannot and should not wear the master's knot of the sacred tresses, and those who do should wear it as a token of spiritual isolation from the herd. So we can be of herd mentality. I think that's what one of the points that Harinder Ji was raising. We can be of herd mentality. Very easy to do, right? Patriotism, all this brute force. We can be like that, or we can be what Gobind Singh Ji commanded us to be. So thank you once again for. Our next presenter is Harinder Ji. She, as many of you know, she is my better half. And she holds a bachelor's in Hindustani classical. I shouldn't have to read this. So she holds a bachelor's in Hindustani classical, and her passion is teaching Punjabi, number 1, and 2, also Kirtan. And then a little known passion of hers that I think a lot of you have connected with her is on cooking. She has her own page, and she really has a lot of gifted way of developing, which she actually attained after marriage. So she's going to be reading a section of a kavita, and I will translate what she's about to say in Punjabi in the beginning for our audiences on Facebook as well. That the name of the kavita is Punjab Di Ahiran Ik Gohe Thapdi. This is one poem amongst many that Professor Puran Singh Ji has written. And in this poem, Professor Saab is talking about the Punjab that we see in its metaphorical form, and you will hear what that metaphor is through the poem. So I ask Harinder Ji to join us.
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਦੀ ਮਹਾਨ ਕਵਿਤਾਵਾਂ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਇੱਕ ਕਵਿਤਾ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੀ ਇੱਕ ਅਹੀਰਨ ਗੋਹੇ ਥੱਪਦੀ ਉਹਦੇ ਤੇ ਲਿਖੀ ਸੀ। इस कविता विच वो दसना चाह रहे ने कि वो देखते थे अहीरन नूं पे, पर अहीरन दे थानी पंजाब दे खित्ते बारे दसना चाह रहे हैं। केड़ा पंजाब? मेरा पंजाब, तुहाडा पंजाब नहीं, साडे सारियां दा पंजाब। आओ उस कविता का एक पैराग्राफ आज मैं तुहाडे नाल शेयर करांगी। इत्थे बाबे दे शब्द ने पत्थरां नूं पिघालिया। इत्थे बाबे दे शब्द ने पत्थरां नूं पिघालिया। मर्दाने दी रबाब वजी, पर्वतां सलाम किता। बूटा बूटा वजद विच नचिया। हर जन नाचो हर हर त्याए। बूटा बूटा वजद विच नचिया। पंजाब दी मिट्टी दा जरा जरा कंबिया किदे विच? प्यार विच। उसे इलाही सुर विच दरिया पे वगदे ने। ए नवे सजरे बर्फानी दरियावां दा देश है। दरिया हो रहना, दरिया हो जीना। इत्थे है सतगुरां दा आदेश है। दरियावां दे मेले इत्थे, दरियावां दे विछोड़े इत्थे। डूंगे ते लम्मे सारे, वड्डे वड्डे दर्द हुए। इत्थे खुल दा मैदान है। इत्थे प्यार ते हड़ां दा आवेश है। इत्थे कोई अणपछाता जिहा इलाही स्वाद है। मैनू पंजाब जिहा मुल्क कोई होर ना दिसदा। वसदा हसदा खेड़दा मजूरी करदा किदी? प्यार दी। जदों असीं पूरन सिंह जी दी अखां नाल पंजाब नूं वेखदे हां ते सानूं दिसदा है कि पंजाब किद्दां ते किन्ना प्यार सीगा सारियां दे विच, आपापन सी सारियां विच। पर हुण साडे पंजाब नूं की होया? मैनू पंजाब जिहा मुल्क कोई होर ना दिसदा। वसदा ते हसदा खेड़दा मजूरी करदा प्यार दी। ते खुला खुला कोला मोला अज फकीरां वाला वो घर है। इत्थे खुला पिया वसदा। ऐ गुरुआं वाली धरती है। इत्थे सच्चा दरबार है। सातरत पई हरियावली जिथे मेरा सतगुर बैठा आए। इत्थे गुरुआं वाली धरती, इत्थे सच्चा दरबार है। इत्थे दिल पिया चुकदा है। इत्थे सिर पिया निभदा है। इत्थे प्यारा मल्लो मल्ली पैंदियां। इत्थे हुसन दी सरकार दे तंबू आण लगदे। इत्थे गोविंद सिंह प्यारा राखा साडा इत्थां सच्चे पातशाह दी। इत्थे इस प्यारे दा मिठा मिठा आसरा। इत्थे गोविंद सिंह प्यारा राखा साडा इत्थां सच्चे पातशाह दी। इत्थे उस प्यारे दा मिठा मिठा आसरा। वाहिगुरू जी का खालसा, वाहिगुरू जी की फतेह।
Thank you, Harleen Kaur ji. Our next speaker, presenter, is Professor Hardev Singh Ji Virk. And the topic that he will be speaking on is going to be Puran Singh, an amalgam of science and spirituality. Professor Virk received his master's in physics from AMU Aligarh in 1963 and a doctorate in nuclear physics from Marie Curie University, Paris in France in 1972. His research interests are manifold. So his interests also lie in nuclear and radiation physics, geochronology, earthquakes and environments, ion tracks, nanotechnology, history and philosophy of science. He has 45 years of teaching experience and has served at Punjabi University Patiala and Guru Nanak Dev University. He has published innumerable articles and research papers, over 390 papers, 39 books. He has traveled over 50 countries for these academic pursuits. I think the interesting story that when I asked Dr. Vic how he experienced Professor Puran Singh Ji is that in 1972, when he was in France, in Paris, he actually met with Harinder Singh Ji, who has written the Encyclopedia of Sikhism, and he was presented from Harinder Singh Ji the Book of 10 Masters, which is also by Professor Puran Singh Ji, and that's where his relationship began with Professor Saab. And he mentioned that anywhere he would go, he would always be quoting Professor Puran Singh Ji. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Dr. Vic to the stage.
After this brief introduction, I must say that I have been visiting California for attending conferences. UC Berkeley, my collaborator is still there, Professor Price. So 93 I made a global tour, met Dr. Jasbir Maan, and I don't know, I know many people here, but it is a great introduction. Nobody can compete. Harinder Singh's oratory, and I am surprised he is quoting Gurbani. My topic is simpler. Puran Singh, an amalgam of science and spirituality. इन्हीं कौर ने कहा भी तुसी अंग्रेजी बोलनी है. मैं क्या, I am not comfortable. Of course I write papers in English, but now I feel कि हरिंदर पंजाबी बोली जा सकती है, तो इन्हें तो मैंने डराता कि तू अंग्रेजी बोलनी है. मेरी घर वाली अच्छी अंग्रेजी बोलती है, वो कहती तुम तो अपने पोतियां तो पोतियां तो सिख तेन अंग्रेजी आती नहीं, पिंडों बंदा है खालसा स्कूल पढ़िया. तो मैं दुनिया तो सारी देखी. आई वॉज वेरी लकी टू वर्क विद नोबल लॉरिएट्स. फ्रांस में मेरी ट्रेनिंग हुई. ग्रेनोबल हैगा, तुहानू पता बहुत सोहना टूरिस्ट स्पॉट. मैं रेलवे स्टेशन ते गड्डी दी ढीक कर रहा सीगा. एक डॉक्टर कपल मिल गया, कहते की करते हो? मैं आखिया मैं साइंसदान हाँ, सैर सपाटा. फिर मैं लिखता हैगा ट्रैवल लॉग. मेरे यात्रा सफर बहुत पॉपुलर सीगे. तो उन्हें मैनू एक स्टोरी दसी. वो कहते जदों तुसी 2 दिन जाओ किसी कंट्री या शहर, तुसी नावल लिख देने. जे तुसी 1 महीना रहो तो शार्ट स्टोरी, तो जे तुसी साल तो ज़्यादा रहो फिर कुछ भी नहीं लिखते. तो मैं बड़ा, क्योंकि मैं पेरिस बारे कुछ भी नहीं लिखा, बाकी सारे कंट्री बारे, कैलीफोर्निया बारे भी. तो मैनू ये लग्या जदों इन्नी कौर ने कहा कि तुसी टॉपिक दसो, कि मैं पूरन सिंह नूं इन्ना पढ़ लिया 40 साल तो कि मैं हुण उहदे बारे कुछ बोल ही नहीं सकता. दिस इज माई सिचुएशन टुडे. कि जदों तुसी किसी नूं पूरी तरह समझ जाओ तो फिर तुसी उहदे बारे उन्होंने संभाल लेने हो, वो तुहाडे बाडी का आत्मा का हिस्सा, फिर तुसी बोलण जोगे. तो ये हिम्मत करके कोटेशनां बोलियां जिन्होंने पढ़ना होए कोटेशन या मेरे पूरन सिंह की किताब है एक ही कापी है मेरे को जसबीर मान मैं कहा सिंह ब्रदर को शायद 2-4 कापियां हैगियां यू कैन सेंड आर्डर और बड़ा अच्छा गुरसागर सिंह इसका टाइटल हैगा पूरन सिंह साइंटिस्ट पोएट एंड फिलासफर सो हरिंदर का 80% लैक्चर कोटेशन है तो मैं काफ़ी काम पहले किया ਹੁਣ मैं बहुता नहीं कर रहा दोबारा इनू रिवाइज करांगा क्योंकि हरिंदर तो मैंने इंस्पिरेशन बहुत मिली है पूरन सिंह बेसिकली ही वाज a scientist at the age of 19 he did not complete his BA he has entered DOE school or DOE college Lahore ਤਾਂ बहुत से ਜਿਹੜੇ स्टूडेंट ਜਾਂਦੇ ਸੀ ਉਹ ਰਾਜੇ ਮਹਾਰਾਜੇ ਭੇਜਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ग्वालियर के राजे ने स्कॉलरशिप से मुसलमान पर पहली ये भी एक नवी गल है सिखा सोचना चाहिए किन्ने अच्छे पहली बारी पूरन सिंह नूं जिहड़ा भेजिया हैगा रावलपिंडी के गोकुल चंद नारंग जो स्कूल के टीचर जां रिश्तेदारी उन्होंने लोगों तो पैसा इकट्ठा करके 2 बंदे भेजे दमोदर सिंह फॉर इलैक्ट्रिकल इंजीनियरिंग एंड पूरन सिंह फॉर ग्लास मेकिंग Sikhs were thinking that we should set up some industry and he was sponsored by Gopal Chand and the enlightened Sikh elite of Rawalpindi for higher studies in science technology 19 साल का मुंडा हैगा और उसनू उत्थे यानी पढ़न लई भेजिया जाता हैगा I think he told me I am not expert in using but you can control it, that is fine. ये पिक्चर ਉਹਦੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਟੋਕੀਓ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਪਹੁੰਚਣ ਵੇਲੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਨਾਲ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹ ਕੁਲਕਰਨੀ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹ ਮਹਾਰਾਜਾ ਗਵਾਲੀਅਰ ਨੇ ਭੇਜਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ ਸਿੰਧੀਆ ਫੈਮਿਲੀ ਨੇ ਨੈਕਸਟ ਪਲੀਜ਼ ਸੋ ਪਲੀਜ਼ ਸੋ ਇਫ ਯੂ ਕੈਨ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਪਿਕਚਰ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਫੋਟੋਆਂ ਮੇਰੀਆਂ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ वो किसी सैमीनार च गया वो बहुतिया ने चोरी कर लिया दिखाइया तो हरिंदर को हैगियां मैं कॉपी करा तो पूरन सिंह बुद्धिस्ट भिखू ये कोई खोज नहीं किसी ने की किसी को नहीं मिलता कि वो भिखू बनया क्यों हैगा मेरा इंप्रैशन ये हैगा कि पूरन सिंह सिख तो बाद च बनया वो हिंदू भी बन गया भिखू भी बन गया मुसलमान भी बनने लई तैयार सीगा पर इत्थे पूरन सिंह की अपनी राइटिंग चो एक लाइन एक ऐसे ऑन पास ऑफ लाइफ पढ़ो एक कई बार होंदा है इश्क मुश्क दे विच साडा इत्थे मेरी भाणजी का मुंडा हैगा वो रोडा सी रिवरसाइड यूनिवर्सिटी म्यूजिक कर रहा कोई कुड़ी मिली उन्हें कहा सिख तो बड़े अच्छे लगते हैं उन्होंने दाड़ी केस पग्गा मंगाइया ये 5-6 साल दी सिख बनाता कुड़ी ने गर्लफ्रेंड ने उस तो बाद वो कितने पुलिस ने चेक किया कुड़ी छोटी उम्र की है मुंडा वड्डा लगे वो कहती नहीं ये जोड़ी ठीक नहीं बननी दे लिव इन रिलेशनशिप इत्थे ही ने वो बाल कटाते हुण सिगरटा वो बदल गया तो इहो जिहा हुंदा मेरे मन च ये इंप्रैशन हैगा कि पूरन सिंह मेरे नाल भी होया पैरिस दीयां कुड़ियां जी मेरे नाल विआह करना मैं कहा मैं तो बच्चों वाला विआह सिख नूं तो मैं तो अपनी बुक च लिखिया मेरे को किताब है थोड़ा देंगे जीवन सफर मैं क्या मेरी घरवाली ने चिट्ठी लिखो जे वो लव करती है तो मैं थोड़े नाल प्यार कर लूँगा तो मेरे नाल होया हैगा सो सो दिस इज द स्टोरी पूरन सिंह दे अपने शब्दां इन हिज ओन वर्ड ही राइट्स ए जापानीज गर्ल फेल इन लव विद पूरन सिंह ये किसी को नहीं पता मेरे ख्याल हरिंदर में शायद हुई शी फेल इन लव विद पूरन सिंह और पूरन सिंह ने कहा मैं इन्ना इंटेंस प्यार सी मैनू ओने चेरी दे रुख दे कोल छड्ड के चली गई उन्हें कहा तेनू नेचर दे नाल ये चेरी दा रुख तेनू सांधेगा मैं नहीं तेरे प्यार नूं सांध सकती दीज आर वर्ड्स ऑफ पूरन सिंह तो इन्ना मोहित होया प्रभावित जापानी औरतों बारे उन्हें बहुत कुछ लिखा है सो इट मे बी वन one reason he was impressed by Buddhist culture of Japan, but maybe that girlfriend induced him to adopt Buddhism. Transformation ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੀ ਹੈਗਾ ਵਰਲਡ ਵਿੱਚ 4 ਇਵੈਂਟਸ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ ਇਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਮੈਨੀ ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸਰ ਦੀ ਬੁੱਕ 'ਚ ਵੀ ਹੈਗਾ ਜਾਪਾਨੀਜ਼ ਐਕਸਪੀਰੀਅੰਸ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਉਹਦੀ ਆਤਮਾ ਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਪ੍ਰਭਾਵਿਤ ਕਰਦਾ ਸੀ ਦੂਸਰਾ ਸੀ encounter with ਵਾਲਟ ਵਿਟਮਨ ਜਸਵੀਰ ਮੈਂ 1983 'ਚ ਨਿਊਯਾਰਕ ਆਇਆ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਮੁਲਕਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਕਾਨਫਰੰਸ ਸੀ ਮੈਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਵਾਸ਼ਿੰਗਟਨ DC ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ ਮੈਂ ਇੱਕ ਨੂੰ ਪੁੱਛ ਲਿਆ ਕਿ ਵਾਲਟ ਵਿਟਮਨ ਬਾਰੇ ਕੀ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਖਿਆਲ ਹੈ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਹੀ ਵਾਜ਼ ਅ ਮੈਡਮੈਨ ਤਾਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਿਆ ਕਿ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਸਿੱਖ ਮੈਡਮੈਨ ਹੀ ਕਹਿਣਗੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਬਾਰੇ 2 ਸਾਲ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਸਿੰਘ ਸਭਾ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰੇ ਲੈਕਚਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਤਾਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਤੂੰ ਬਹਿ ਜਾ ਤੂੰ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੀ ਬੇਇੱਜ਼ਤੀ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਹਰਿੰਦਰ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਕੋਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਜੇ ਇੱਕ ਵੀ ਬੋਲੋ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਗੁੱਸਾ ਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਵੀ ਸਾਡੀ ਬੇਇੱਜ਼ਤੀ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਸੋ ਪਹਿਲਾ ਉਹਦਾ ਬੁੱਧੀ ਬਣਨਾ ਦੂਜਾ ਵਾਲਟ ਵਿਟਮਨ ਸਵਾਮੀ ਰਾਮ ਤੀਰਥ ਮੈਂ ਕੰਮ ਕੇ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਫੈਮਿਲੀ ਤੇ ਇਹ ਮਰਾਰੀ ਵਾਲੇ ਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਬ੍ਰਿਲੀਅੰਟ ਸੀਗਾ ਗਰੀਬ ਸੀਗਾ MA ਮੈਥਮੈਟਿਕਸ ਕੀਤੀ ਸਾਧੂ ਬਣ ਗਿਆ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਦੇ ਕੋਲ ਆਇਆ ਤਾਂ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਸੀਗਾ he came to California via Tokyo when he stayed there Puran Singh was impressed by his radiance ਤਾਂ ਉਹ ਬੋਧੀ ਭਿਕਸ਼ੂ ਰਹਿ ਕੇ ਸੰਨਿਆਸੀ ਚੋਲਾ ਪਾ ਲਿਆ ਔਰ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ 11 ਸਾਲ ਸੰਨਿਆਸੀ ਰਿਹਾ ਹਿੰਦੂ ਸੰਨਿਆਸੀ ਵਿਦਾਂਤੀ ਵੀ ਕਹਿ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸੋ that way he became a Vedanti ਔਰ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਭਾਈ ਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੇ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਸਿੱਖੀ 'ਚ ਮੁੜ ਲਿਆਂਦਾ ਸੋ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਸਦਾ ਸੀ ਵਿਦਾਂਤੀ ਦਾ ਹੋਣ ਦਾ ਉਹਦਾ ਬਾਪ ਤਾਂ ਗੁੱਸੇ ਹੀ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਮਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਰਹਿਣ ਕੁੜੀ ਦਾ ਮਾਇਆ ਦੇਵੀ ਨੂੰ ਲੱਭਿਆ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਹੀ ਲੱਭੀ ਹੋਈ ਸੀ ਜਾਪਾਨ ਤੋਂ ਸੋ ਉਹਦੀਆਂ ਭੈਣਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਵੀ ਇਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਵਿਆਹ ਕਰੀ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਵਿਆਹ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਕੁੜੀ ਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਮਿਲਣਾ ਸੋ ਇਨ ਦੈਟ ਮੀਟਿੰਗ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਗੋਜ਼ ਇਨ ਸੰਨਿਆਸੀ ਡਰੈਸ ਭਗਵੇਂ ਕੱਪੜੇ 'ਚ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਹੁਰੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਉਹ ਤਾਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਦੁਖੀ ਸੀ ਵੀ ਇਹ ਬੰਦਾ ਸਾਧੂ ਹੈ ਕੁੜੀ ਨੂੰ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਰੋਟੀ ਖਵਾਉਗੇ ਔਰ ਕੁੜੀ ਨੂੰ ਉਹਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਵੀ ਕਿ ਤੂੰ ਝੂਠਾ ਭਰ ਕੇ ਮੰਗਣ ਨੂੰ ਤਿਆਰ ਹੈ ਫਿਰ ਵਿਆਹ ਕਰ ਕਹਿੰਦੀ ਮੈਂ ਤਿਆਰ ਸੋ ਦਿਸ ਇਜ਼ ਹਾਊ ਸ਼ੀ ਗਾਟ ਮੈਰਿਡ ਵਿਦ ਮਾਇਆ ਦੇਵੀ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਐਜ਼ ਅ ਸਾਇੰਟਿਸਟ ਦਿਸ ਇਜ਼ ਮਾਈ ਟੌਪਿਕ ਆਫ ਕੋਰਸ ਇਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਬਹੁਤ ਕੁਛ ਜਦੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਪੈਰਿਸ ਤੋਂ ਮੁੜਿਆ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਹਰਬੰਸ ਸਿੰਘ ਦੀ ਕਿਤਾਬ ਆਈ ਵਾਜ਼ ਇੰਟਰਸਟ ਕਹਾਣੀਆਂ ਤਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਸੁਣੀਆਂ ਹੋਈਆਂ ਸੀ ਮਹਿੰਦਰਾ ਕਾਲਜ 1960 ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਬਾਰੇ ਪਰ ਮੈਂ ਜਦੋਂ ਸੋਚਿਆ ਕਿ ਇਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਖੋਜ ਕੀਤੀ ਜਾਏ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ 'ਚ ਸਾਰਾ ਉਹਦਾ ਲਿਟਰੇਚਰ ਆ ਗਿਆ ਬਟ ਦੀ ਸਾਇੰਟਿਫਿਕ ਪੇਪਰਸ ਆਰ ਨਾਟ ਦੇਅਰ ਮੈਂ ਦੇਹਰਾਦੂਨ ਗਿਆ 1975 ਉੱਥੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਡਾਇਰੈਕਟਰ ਸੀ ਉਹ ਮੁਸਲਮਾਨ ਸੀਗਾ ਅਹਿਮਦਲਾਲ ਉਹਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਅੱਜ ਤੱਕ ਕੋਈ ਸਿੱਖ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਇਆ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਬਾਰੇ ਖੋਜ ਕਰਨ ਯੂ ਆਰ ਦਾ ਫਸਟ ਵਨ ਉਹ ਸਾਰੇ ਪੇਪਰ ਮੈਂ ਕਾਪੀ ਕੀਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਮੇਰਾ ਸਕਾਲਰ ਸੂਰੀ ਹੈਗਾ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਸਾਰੀ ਕਾਪੀ ਕਰਕੇ ਫਿਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਪੇਪਰ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਕਰੰਟ ਸਾਇੰਸ ਬੈਂਗਲੌਰ ਛਪਿਆ ਹੋਇਆ ਔਰ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਦਫਾ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗਿਆ ਕਿ ਹੀ ਵਾਜ਼ ਦਾ ਫਸਟ ਕੈਮਿਸਟ ਆਫ ਹਿਸ ਸਪੈਸ਼ਲ ਬ੍ਰਾਂਚ ਕੈਮਿਸਟਰੀ ਆਫ ਫੋਰੈਸਟ ਪ੍ਰੋਡਕਟਸ ਸੋ ਨੈਕਸਟ ਫਿਊ ਸਲਾਈਡਸ ਉਹਦੇ 53 ਪੇਪਰ ਹੈਗੇ ਉਹ ਅਸੈਂਸ਼ੀਅਲਾਈਜ਼ ਕਿ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਬੀਬੀਆਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਤਾਂ ਹੁਣ ਪੰਜਾਬ 'ਚ ਅਤਰ ਫਲੇਲ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਆਪਣੀ ਸੁਗੰਧੀ ਲਾਉਂਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਜਾਂ ਸੋ ਆਲ ਦਿਸ ਵਾਜ਼ ਕ੍ਰੀਏਟਡ ਬਾਈ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਿਨਾਂ 'ਚ ਉੱਥੇ ਪਰੇਟਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਜਸਵੀਰ ਮਾਨ ਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਪਤਾ ਪਿੰਡਾਂ ਸ਼ਰਾਬ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਕੱਢਦੇ ਦੇਸੀ ਸ਼ਰਾਬ ਉਹੀ ਭੱਠੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਅਸੈਂਸ਼ੀਅਲਾਈਜ਼ ਲਈ ਜਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੀ ਜੋ ਵੀ ਅਸਰ ਫਲੇਲ ਜੋ ਕੁਛ ਸੋ ਸੇਮ ਪਰੇਟਸ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਪਤੀਲੇ ਔਰ ਰਿਟਾਰਡ ਤੋਂ ਨੇ ਆਪ ਬਣਾਇਆ ਉਹ ਕਰਕੇ ਇੰਡਸਟਰੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤੀ ਉਹ ਕਾਫੀ ਅਮੀਰ ਸੀ ਉਹਦੇ ਸਹੁਰਿਆਂ 'ਚੋਂ ਬੰਦੇ ਬਟ ਦੈਨ ਹੀ ਫੈਲ ਵਿਦ ਦੈਮ ਉਹਦੀ ਨੇਚਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਪੈਸਾ ਕਮਾਉਣ ਦੀ ਸੋ ਟੋਕੀਓ ਤੋਂ ਆਫਟਰ ਹਿਸ ਟਰਨ ਹੀ ਸੈਟ ਅਪ ਅ ਡਿਸਟਿਲੇਸ਼ਨ ਯੂਨਿਟ ਅਨਾਰਕਲੀ ਬਾਜ਼ਾਰ ਲਈ the first he prepared oils from geranium citrus plants. He had no sophisticated equipment at his disposal. ਉਹੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬਰਤਨ ਕਿਹਾ ਜਿਸ ਨਾਲ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਵੀ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਪਿੰਡਾਂ 'ਚ ਲੋਕ ਦੇਸੀ ਸ਼ਰਾਬ ਕੱਢਦੇ ਨੇ, ਉਹੀ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਹਨੇ ਅਸੈਂਸ਼ੀਅਲ ਆਇਲ ਪ੍ਰੋਡਿਊਸ। ਨੈਕਸਟ ਪਲੀਜ਼। ਅਗਲੀ ਉਹਦੀਆਂ ਹਾਈਲਾਈਟਸ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ, ਸੋ ਦੇਰ ਆਰ ਲਾਟ ਆਫ ਪੇਪਰ, ਦੀਜ਼ ਆਰ ਓਰੀਜਨਲ ਪੇਪਰ। ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਵਾਂਗੂ ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਡੇ ਪੇਪਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੋਈ 3 ਪੇਜ ਦਾ ਹੈ, ਬਟ ਦੇ ਸ਼ੋ ਹਿਜ਼ ਜੀਨੀਅਸ ਕਿ ਸਾਇੰਟੀਫਿਕ ਜੋ ਉਹਦੀ ਟ੍ਰੇਨਿੰਗ ਸੀ ਉਸਨੂੰ ਉਸਨੇ ਯੂਜ਼ ਕੀਤਾ। ਆਈਸੋਲੇਸ਼ਨ ਰੈਸਟ ਦਾ ਐਸੈਂਸ਼ੀਅਲ ਹੈ ਯੂਕਲਿਪਟਸ ਗਲੋਬੂਲਸ। ਯੂਕਲਿਪਟਸ ਦੀ ਖੇਤੀ ਗਵਾਲੀਅਰ ਮਹਾਰਾਜੇ ਨੇ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਦਫਾ ਉੱਥੇ ਕਰਵਾਈ ਹੈਗੀ। ਬੈਰਨ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਲੈਂਡ ਸੀ ਗਵਾਲੀਅਰ ਦੀ ਕਿਲਰ ਵਾਲੀ, ਉਸ 'ਚ ਗਰੋ ਕੀਤਾ। ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਯੂਕਲਿਪਟਸ ਪੰਜਾਬ 'ਚ ਕਾਫੀ ਹੈਗਾ। ਕੈਂਫਰ ਆਇਲ, ਸੁੰਦਰ ਰੋਡੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਉਸ he has just improved techniques for the extraction, distillation, turpentine oil, ਇਹ ਸਾਰੇ ਬਾਇਓਲੋਜੀਕਲ ਨੇਮ ਹੈਗੇ। ਪਾਣੀ ਇੱਥੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਸੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਰੱਖਿਆ ਹੋਇਆ। ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਇੰਟਰੋਡਿਊਸ ਦੀ ਯੂਜ਼ ਆਫ ਫਰੈਸ਼ ਨਿਕਲ ਹਾਈਡਰੋਕਸਾਈਡ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ, ਉਹ ਟੈਨਨ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਸੀ ਇਹਦੇ ਤੇ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੰਮ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈਗਾ। ਸੋ ਟੈਨਨ ਇਜ਼ ਏ ਮਟੀਰੀਅਲ, ਇਹ ਬਰਾਊਨ ਪਾਊਡਰ ਹੈਗਾ, ਗੂਗਲ ਕਰਕੇ ਦੇਖ ਲੈਣਾ। ਇਹ ਦਰਖਤਾਂ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਛਿੱਲੜ ਹੈ, ਬਾਰਕ ਹੈ, ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚੋਂ ਤਿਆਰ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈਗਾ। ਔਰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹਾਈਡ ਹੈਗਾ, ਜਦੋਂ ਜਾਨਵਰ ਮਰਦਾ ਉਹਦੀ ਖੱਲ ਉਤਾਰਦੇ ਨੇ। ਹਾਈਡ ਤੋਂ ਲੈਦਰ ਬਣਾਉਣ ਲਈ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਟ੍ਰਾਂਜੀਸ਼ਨ ਹੈਗੀ, ਇਟ ਇਜ਼ ਡਨ ਬਾਈ ਡਾਈਂਗ ਵਿਦ ਦ ਟੈਨਨ ਪਾਊਡਰ। ਸੋ ਦਿਸ ਵਾਜ਼ ਟੈਕਨੀਕ ਵਿਚ ਹੀ ਡਿਵੈਲਪਡ, ਆਫਟਰਸ ਉਹਨੇ ਮੋਡੀਫਾਈ ਵੀ ਕੀਤਾ। ਦੈਨ ਡਰੱਗਸ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਉਹਦੀ ਟ੍ਰੇਨਿੰਗ ਫਾਰਮਾਸਿਊਟੀਕਲ ਕੈਮਿਸਟਰੀ ਦੀ ਸੀ, ਪਰ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਜੌਬ ਮਿਲੀ ਉਹ ਸੀ ਫਾਰੈਸਟ ਰਿਸਰਚ ਇੰਸਟੀਟਿਊਟ। ਸੋ ਸਾਈਡ ਬਾਈ ਸਾਈਡ ਉਸਨੇ ਫਿਰ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਕੰਮ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹਦੀ ਟ੍ਰੇਨਿੰਗ ਦਾ ਪਾਰਟ ਸੀ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈਗਾ। ਕਲਟੀਵੇਸ਼ਨ ਆਫ ਡਰੱਗ ਯੂਜ਼ਿੰਗ ਪਲਾਂਟਸ, ਜੋ ਕੰਮ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਬਾਬਾ ਰਾਮਦੇਵ ਪਤੰਜਲੀ ਆਸ਼ਰਮ 'ਚ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਰਿਸ਼ੀਕੇਸ਼ 'ਚ, ਇਹ ਸਾਰਾ ਕੰਮ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਦਾ ਐਕਚੁਅਲੀ ਫਾਰਮ ਸੀ ਰਿਸ਼ੀਕੇਸ਼ 'ਚ। ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਜੇ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਜਾਏ 100 ਸਾਲ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਹੀ ਇਹ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਪਲਾਂਟਸ ਤੋਂ ਡਰੱਗ ਬਣਾਉਣ ਦਾ ਕੰਮ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ। ਫਿਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਥੈਰੇਪਿਕ ਵੈਲਿਊਜ਼ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਹੀ ਸਟੱਡੀ ਅਰਥ ਈਟਿੰਗ ਹੈਬਿਟਸ, ਇਹ ਵੀ ਬੜਾ ਇੰਟਰਸਟਿੰਗ ਹੈ। ਆਈ ਹੈਵ ਰੈਡ ਦਾ ਓਰੀਜਨਲ ਪੇਪਰ, ਮੈਂ ਹੁਣੇ ਦੱਸਦਾ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ। ਇੰਡੀਅਨ ਡੀਅਰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹ ਮਿੱਟੀ ਖਾਂਦਾ ਹੈਗਾ। ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਲਾਸਟ ਪੈਰਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਜਸਵੀਰ, ਉਹ ਬੜਾ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਡਾਕਟਰਾਂ ਨੇ ਵੀ ਕੰਮ ਦੱਸਿਆ, ਇਹਦੇ ਤੇ ਰਿਸਰਚ ਕਰੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ। ਉਹ ਪਤਾ ਕੀ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਹੈ, ਅਬਾਊਟ ਦਿਸ ਟੈਂਡੈਂਸੀ ਆਫ ਇੰਡੀਅਨ ਵਿਮਨ ਡਿਊਰਿੰਗ ਦੇਅਰ ਪ੍ਰੈਗਨੈਂਸੀ। ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੀਆਂ ਕੁੜੀਆਂ, ਮੈਂ ਪਿੰਡ ਜਿਹੜਿਆਂ ਹਾਈ ਸਕੂਲ ਤੱਕ 12ਵੀਂ ਤੱਕ, ਇਹ ਮੈਂ ਵੀ ਇੱਕ ਨੂੰ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਜਨਾਨੀ ਨੂੰ, ਪ੍ਰੈਗਨੈਂਸੀ ਬੜੀ ਕੰਪਲੀਕੇਟਡ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਪਿੰਡਾਂ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਤੰਦੂਰ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਰੋਟੀ ਖਾਂਦੇ ਨੇ, ਉਹਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਮਿੱਟੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਭਰਪੂਰੀ ਉਹ ਖਾਂਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਪ੍ਰੈਗਨੈਂਟ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ। ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਹਿਰਨ ਵੀ ਖਾਂਦੇ ਨੇ। ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨੇ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੇ ਅੱਗੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਡਰਿੰਕ ਕਰਦਾ ਵੀ ਇਹ ਪ੍ਰੈਗਨੈਂਟ ਔਰਤਾਂ 'ਚ ਵੀ ਹੈ। ਸੋ ਹੀ ਨਿਊ ਕਿ ਪ੍ਰੈਗਨੈਂਸੀ ਵੇਲੇ ਕੁਝ ਚੇਂਜਸ ਹੁੰਦੀਆਂ। ਫਿਰ ਉਹ ਫਿਸ਼ ਪੋਇਜ਼ਨ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਵੀ ਉਹਦੀ ਰਿਸਰਚ ਹੈ। ਨੈਕਸਟ ਪਲੀਜ਼। ਫਿਰ ਬਰਮਾ 'ਚ ਉਹਦਾ ਟਰੈਵਲ ਵੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਕੀਤਾ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੇ। ਦੇਖੋ ਸਾਊਥ ਸਾਰਾ ਕਵਰ ਕੀਤਾ, ਜਿੱਥੇ ਸੰਗਲ ਰੋਡ ਹੈਗਾ ਮੈਸੂਰ, ਉਹਦੇ ਤੋਂ ਲੱਕੜੀ ਲਿਆਉਣੀ। ਬਰਮਾ ਵੱਲ ਪਾਰਟ ਆਫ ਇੰਡੀਆ, ਉੱਥੋਂ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਟੀਕ ਹੈਗੀ ਉਹਦੇ ਤੇ ਹੋਰ ਬਰਮਾ ਜੰਗਲਾਂ ਦੀ ਵੀ ਉਸਨੇ ਸਟੱਡੀ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈਗੀ। ਤੇ ਸ਼ੈਲਿਕ ਬਰਮੀਜ਼ ਵਾਰਨਿਸ਼ ਸਾਰਾ ਕੁਛ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪੜ੍ਹ ਲਓ। ਆਈ ਨੀਡ ਨਾਟ ਡਿਸਕਸ। ਇੰਡੀਅਨ ਵੁੱਡਸ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਨੇ, ਟਾਲੀ ਹੈਗੀ, ਕਿੱਕਰ ਹੈਗਾ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕੈਲੋਰੀਮੈਟ੍ਰਿਕ ਵੈਲਿਊ ਹੈ, ਕਿੰਨੀ ਹੀਟ ਕੰਟੈਂਟ ਹੈ, ਉਹ ਸਾਰੇ ਹੁਣ ਵੀ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ। ਔਰ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਡਾਟਾ ਕਲੈਕਟ ਕੀਤਾ, ਪਬਲਿਸ਼ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈਗਾ। ਅੱਛਾ, ਚਾਰਕੋਲ ਬ੍ਰਿਕੇਟਸ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਉਸਨੇ ਬਣਾਏ। ਪੀਰਸਨ ਸੀਗਾ ਡਾਇਰੈਕਟਰ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਜਾਣ ਸਮਝ ਲਓ ਸੀਨੀਅਰ ਸਾਇੰਟਿਸਟ। ਆਈ ਨਿਊ ਦਿੱਲੀ ਦਾ ਬੰਦਾ 85-89 ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਮਲਿਆ ਇਹ ਤਾਂ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੇ ਟੈਕਨੀਕ ਉਦੋਂ ਦੀ ਕੀਤੀ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਦੇ ਵਾਂਟ ਟੂ ਟੈਸਟ ਦਾ ਐਫੀਸ਼ੀਐਂਸੀ ਆਫ ਸ਼ੂ ਲੋਡ। ਜੋ ਕੰਮ IIT ਵਾਲਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹ ਆਲਰੇਡੀ ਪਬਲਿਸ਼ਡ ਹੈ। ਫਿਰ ਵੋਲਟਾਰ ਹੈ, ਡਿਸਟੀਲੇਸ਼ਨ, ਗੁਰਗ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ। ਔਰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਲਾਸਟ ਪਹਿਰਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਲਾਈਨ ਹੈ, ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਉਹ ਟਿਕਦਾ ਕਿਤੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ। ਹਰਿੰਦਰ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਲੋਕੀ ਤਾਂ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਭੇਜਿਆ ਸੀ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਕਮਾਊਗਾ। ਹੀ ਸੈਟ ਅਪ ਅਸੈਂਸ਼ੀਅਲ ਅਨਾਰਕਲੀ। 2 ਸਾਲ ਬਾਅਦ ਝਗੜਾ ਹੋਇਆ, वो लड़ाई हुई भांडे भन के छड़ गया। फिर वो हिंदू प्रोफैसर शायद कहते हैं हिंदू डायमंड जुबली हिंदू टैक्नीकल स्कूल का प्रिंसीपल रहा साल भर। उस तो बाद देहरादून फॉरेस्ट रिसर्च इंस्टीट्यूट उदों बने ही किसी क्या महाराजा टेढ़ी ने जब मिनिस्टर ने कहा साबन की फैक्ट्री ला, साबन की फैक्ट्री लगाती, वो वेच के या छड़ के फिर वो 8-10 साल उसने रिसर्च की हैगी, प्योर डेडिकेटेड। ख्याल है कि पोइट्री पंजाबी की उदों नहीं लिखी उसने। सिक्खी बारे भी स्टडी भाई वीर सिंह तो मिलने तो बाद नहीं हैगी। ही वाज नॉट ए सिख, ही वाज अ सन्यासी और रेवोल्यूशनरी भी सी। हरदयाल की वोटी नूं कैलीफोर्निया भेजना सीगा तो ये घर रुकी रही है। तुहानूं बहुत सारिया गल्लां नहीं पता होनियां। राश बिहारी बोस जिहड़ा जापान चला गया उत्थे विआह कराया, बड़ा वड्डा फ्रीडम फाइटर है, वो तो उत्थे क्लर्क सीगा इंस्टीट्यूट। पूरन सिंह दे बारे माया देवी ने जो लिखा राश बिहारी बोस बंगालियों के नाल रेवोल्यूशनरी बंगाली बहुत सीगे, सिखां तो तगड़े सी उदों। ਉਹਦੀ ਲੈਬੋਰਟਰੀ चो पिकनिक एसिड की बोतल लगी, वो दिती है भगत सिंह के चेलियां नूं, ते वो बंब जिहड़ा सुट्टिया गया असैंबली च वो पूरन सिंह की ਲੈਬੋਰਟਰੀ चो राश बिहारी बोस ने तेजाब लैके गया। और जो पता लगा अंग्रेज छड्डदे थोड़ा ने, उन्हें कहा जां तां काले पानी जां तैनूं नौकरी। वो एक मुसलमान सीगा उसदा फ्रेंड जिहड़ा उहदे घर, उन्हें कहा पूरन सिंह जी तुसीं माफ़ी तो मंगनी नहीं, नौकरी छड्डनी है तो दस उन्होंने पेंशन का दवाई। केस किसी ने लड़िया, नहीं तो पूरन सिंह जेल च सुटना सी उन्हें। सो ही वाज ए रेवोल्यूशनरी। प्रोज एंड पोइट्री टर्मिनोलॉजी पूरन सिंह का साइंटिफिक वर्क है, पेपर फाइल हैगी, वो जो साइंसदान ने उन्होंने होएगा थोड़ा इंटरेस्ट वो पढ़ सकते हैं। मेरा दूजा पार्ट है कि पूरन सिंह स्पिरिचुअल अमेलगम का मतलब होंगे कंपाउंड तो होंगे जो सैपरेट नहीं होंगे। वाटर H2 हाइड्रोजन अमेलगम होंगे जिम्मे कांसी के बर्तन होंगे ने कापर अलमीनियम, उन्होंने आइडेंटिटी सैपरेट रही। तो पूरन सिंह बीइंग ए साइंटिस्ट उसकी साइंटिफिक जी जीनियस है वो खत्म नहीं हुई, वो सिक्खी च भी आ गया, पोइट्री च भी आ गया। और वो मूर्ख प्रोफैसर बड़े ने उत्थे सरजीत भट्टी है पंजाबी, कहता जी वो उन्हें अपनी रचना के साइंटिफिक टर्मिनल वरती नहीं। तो मैं उन्होंने दसिया भी साइंटिफिक टर्मिनोलॉजी तो वरतना है इंग्लिश की। वट इज दी प्रोज पोइट्री पढ़ोगे सारी ये थोड़ी कोटेशन। आई एम फॉर द फिजिक्स ऑफ द सोल विच इज द फिजिक्स ऑफ द बॉडी ऑफ द बॉडी टू। ये टर्म किसी ने नहीं वरती, टैगोर पढ़ लो किसी इंडियन ने। फिजिक्स ऑफ द सोल, फिजिक्स ऑफ स्पिरिचुअलिटी भी उसने लिखा। द वेरी सॉरी यार उससे the very radium of mind has been slowly allowed to degenerate into, जिन्होंने केमिस्ट्री पढ़ी है हाई स्कूल से उन्हें पता है यूरेनियम इज रेडियोएक्टिव एंड इट डिकेज टू लेड। 8 अल्फा निकलते हैं, बीटा गैमा भी होंगे। तो 8 अल्फा तो बाद 8 अल्फा जो निकले रेडियम, मेरा तो रिसर्च है रेडियम फील्ड एनवायरमेंट से मैं काम किया है लॉरेंस बर्कले लैबोरेटरी। सो ये कोटेशन बड़ी एप्रोप्रिएट है समझने लगी कि रेडियम सिखा का यानी रेडियंसी खत्म हो जी, स्पिरिट सुरत जिमें है। तो इन्हें कोट किया अलाउड टू। तो जदों ये डिजनरेट हो जाता है यूरेनियम रेडियम तो फिर रेड च बन जाता है, वो किसी काम का नहीं रेडियोएक्टिव। Impertinent desire dim his faith and bend it beyond the limits of elasticity. हाई स्कूल वाले ने पता है कि इलास्टिक जरा हुक्स ला है स्ट्रेस इज प्रोपोर्शनल टू स्ट्रेन। जदों स्ट्रेन बढ़ जाए तो उस वेले वो ब्रेकिंग पॉइंट होता है। डिजायर तुहाडे फैमिली घर वाली होती किसी को स्ट्रेन करो तो बियॉन्ड लिमिट ऑफ इलास्टिसिटी फिर तुहाडी बर्बादी हो जाती है। तो लिमिट च रखो, हुक्स ला दे विच ही अपनी फैमिली सेपरेट करो। मेरे तो भी यही कंडीशन है। आई एम जस्ट एट द ब्रेकिंग पॉइंट, पर मैं छड्ड नहीं सकता क्योंकि मेरिया गर्लफ्रेंड हुण सारियां खत्म हो गई। So we are, in my family, they dislike that I am working on. ਉਹ ਹੁਣ ਵੀ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੀ ਸੀ ਮੇਰੇ ਮੁੰਡਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਤੇਰਾ ਪਿਓ ਕਮਲ ਹੈ, ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੀ ਕਾਨਫਰੰਸ ਫਿਰਦਾ ਹੈਗਾ। ਸੋ ਅੱਗੇ ਦੇਖੋ ਆਹ ਟਰਮ ਹਰਿੰਦਰ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ, ਇਹਨੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰਾ ਕੋਟ ਕਰਤਾ। We too, मैं छोटियां मेरी कोटेशन बुक्स है, we too if we rise not to our full marks shall soon become fossils not fixed। मैं गुरुद्वारे च कह बैठा, उत्थे तो पंगा पै गया। मैं कहा निहंग किहड़े काम है, गुरु गोबिंद सिंह वेले फौजां सी लड़दे, हुण सिर्फ गड्डी दे उत्ते मुफ्त जिहड़ा सफर करना है वो सारे पंजाब वाले निहंगां दा काम हैगा, शराबां सुक्खा पीना सब कुछ हुंदा है। तो मैं कहा जिहड़ा वो हैगा कि जिहड़ा सानू असी, मैं भी किसी अमृत छकिया होया, पर किरपान जो पूरन सिंह नूं पढ़िया लाल दी, क्योंकि पूरन सिंह का चेला बन गया। तो ये हैगा कि साडे जिन्ना चलो स्पिरिट है नहीं गुरु जी, वी आर फॉसिल। तुसीं समझ होगे फॉसिल की है। तो अजकल जोरासिक वो जिहड़ियां फिल्मां ने उन्हां दा तुहानूं पता है फॉसिल स्टडी हो रही है। पूरन सिंह दा स्पिरिचुअल मूविंग्स की सीगियां। He was a student in Tokyo as a young Sikh boy, 19 साल का। He was so much infatuated with Japanese life and culture that Buddhist बन गया। Puran Singh had an encounter with Swami Ramtirth, फिर वो वेदांती साधु बन गया। He then homecoming to Sikh, ये सानू पता हैगा। मैं लास्ट पढ़ देना कि भाई वीर सिंह का कोई जादुई असर होया, हरिंदर दी ठीक है, किसी ने मत्था टेकण वाले नहीं सी, अरब सीगा। तो भाई वीर सिंह ने उसको सिक्खी च लिया। उस भाग घड़ी गुरु जी के दर से एक महापुरुष के दीदार हुए और आपके कृपा कटाक्ष नाल पंजाबी साहित्य का सारा बहुत ख्याल की उड़ारी आई। कविता भी मेरी तो उसी मेहर की नजर में, उसी मिठे साल वचन में मैनू पंजाबी बोली आप मुहारी आई। सो दिस इज हिज ट्रिब्यूट टू भाई पूरन सिंह ने पंजाबी ऊड़ा एड़ा नहीं सी आउंदा। Within a week or within a month he started writing, और 2 दिन के लगातार मायादेव ने लिखे है कि मोया की जाग रिस्ट्रक्शन, टॉलस्टॉय की किताब ट्रांसलेट की, कविता लिखी और ऑलमोस्ट नोबल प्राइज विनर से उसका नाम ही भेजा। कमले सिंह सिखा भी भाई वीर सिंह का जोड़ा काम ट्रांसलेट पूरन सिंह ने किया वो भेजता, उन्होंने नहीं मिलिया। पर पूरन सिंह की जी रचना है वो ओरिएंटल पोएट्री, यू नो, वो कली किताब ही नोबल प्राइज दे वर्थ हैगी। नेक्स्ट प्लीज। मैं तो फोटो तो बचाता था, मैं मेरी घर वाली ना देख ले कितने। आइडिया ऑफ स्पिरिचुअलिटी देखो, पूरन सिंह बारे ਉਹਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ स्पिरिचुअलिटी है ਉਹਨੂੰ देखो, उन्हें पग भी नहीं बंदी। मैनू बहुत सारे पुछते हैं, हमादरी बैनर जी जसवीर वो सिक्खी बारे लिखता, वो कहता अज ही देखी कि फोटो पूरन सिंह खुले वाल, मैं भी उसकी नकल च पैरिस ग्रेनोबल जाना कानफ्रेंस च खुले वाल खुली दाढ़ी, खालसा बन जाना कई बारी, क्योंकि वो मस्ती का होंदा हैगा जवानी वेले। पूरन सिंह की आ जी हैगी खुले मैदान की, वो तुसी कोटेशन हैगी कि वह गुरुआं नाल सीधा रस्ता सी, अमृत नहीं छकिया, पाठ करता या नहीं करता, मैनू ये बारे कोई नहीं, मेरा ख्याल नहीं सी करता। वो कहता मैं वो किसी साधु ने पूछ लिया हरिंदर कि किन्ना जप तप करते हो, कहता कमलिया मैं तो वो गोद च खेडदा, मैं कहता जप तप करना है। बड़े सन्यासी आते थे उहदे कोल, आवी तू रब्बा मेरिया, आवी तू रब्बा मेरिया, वेला वेला आवी तावला तावला, तो सट्टी परे हाथ मेरे विचों खो के ये घंटियां टलियां जेड़ियां मैं हाथ विच फड़ियां तेरी पूजा लई, ते आवी बजावी आप तू अपने हाथ नाल ये दीवे थाल विच पाए मैं तेरी आरती करन। There is an echo of आरती of Guru Nanak which he quotes in Puri। पुरी के मंदिर जो आरती हो रही है तो गुरु साहब का जोड़ा शब्द है थाल हरिंदर, गगन में थाल रवचंद दीपक बने, द सेम इसेंस वो जोड़ा गुरु नानक का, क्योंकि जहन में बाणी हमेशा ही रही है। तो ਉਹ ਕਵਿਤਾ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਉਹਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਰੱਬ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾਂ ਰਿਲੀਜੀਅਸ, ਹੀ ਵਾਸ ਬਿਯੋਂਡ ਰਿਲੀਜੀਅਸਿਟੀ, ਮੈਡੀਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਔਨ ਸਿੱਖ ਸਪਿਰਿਚੁਅਲ ਐਂਡ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਟਰਾਈ ਟੂ ਐਕਸਪਲੇਨ ਸਿੱਖ ਆਈਡੀਅਲ। ਇਹ ਉਹਦੇ ਵੋਲਿਊਮ ਹੈਗੇ, ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਪਟਿਆਲਾ ਨੇ ਛਾਪੇ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ, ਮੈਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਪੜ੍ਹੇ, ਪਰ ਉਹਨੇ ਸਾਰੀ ਬਾਣੀਆਂ ਦਾ ਟ੍ਰਾਂਸਲੇਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤਾ। ਆਸਾ ਕੀ ਵਾਰ, ਸੁਖਮਨੀ, ਸਿੱਧ ਗੋਸ਼ਟ ਐਂਡ ਸ਼ਲੋਕਾਸ ਆਫ ਗੁਰੂ ਤੇਗ ਬਹਾਦਰ, ਭਗਤ ਕਬੀਰ ਦੇ ਸ਼ਲੋਕ ਵੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਸਟਾਈਲ। ਉਹ ਟਾਈਟਲ ਹੈਗਾ ਰੀਡਿੰਗ ਫਰੋਮ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ। The beauty of its translation is unmatched, and that is the called the seeker of spiritual truth. जपजी का मैं एक स्टैंजा लिया, जपजी के 2 फुल ट्रांसलेशन और एक पार्शल ट्रांस, 3 वारी जपजी ट्रांस, 3 वारी लग है। हुण देखो आप कहते हैं एक ओंकार सतनाम करता पुरख निरभउ निर्वैर अकाल मूरत अजूनी। पूरन सिंह की यह ट्रांसलेशन है जी पहले स्टैंजे की, मूल मंत्र की। उन्हें एक ओंकार नहीं, वो beloved, thy name is truth, thou art the person who creates, thou art the humanity that has no fear, no enmity, thy shining spiritual form is above time and space, thou art immortality, self-radiant, thou O love, whom no birth can envy say and no death can remove. O beloved, sacred seed, secret is thy name, and it opens like the flower of life in the kindness of Gurprasad ਦਾ ਆ ਮਤਲਬ ਹੈਗਾ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਦੇ ਲਈ। It opens like the flower of life in the kindness of the Guru. Next, Sikh spiritual consciousness ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਹੈ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਨਿਹੰਗ ਬਣੋ, ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤ ਛਕੋ, ਕੁਛ ਸਿੰਬਲ ਰੱਖੋ, totally useless if you have not the surta। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਫੌਸਲ ਹੈਗੇ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੇ 500 ਸਾਲ ਜਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਗੋਬਿੰਦ ਸਿੰਘ ਦੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਸਿੰਘ ਕਾਇਮ ਕੀਤੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਹੁਣ ਫੌਸਲ ਦੁਨੀਆ 'ਚ ਫੈਲੇ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ। ਰੀਅਲ ਸਿੱਖ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨੇ ਸੁਰਤ ਵਾਲੇ, ਉਹ ਵਿਰਲਾਟਾਵਾਂ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ ਹੋਏ, ਤਾਂ ਹੀ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਬਚੀ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ। ਆਈ ਫਾਈਂਡ ਏ subliminal theme running in the poetry of Puran Singh, Sikh spiritual consciousness। ਉਹਦੇ ਐਸੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼ 'ਚ, ਫਿਰ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ 'ਚ ਨੇ ਜੋ ਹਰਿੰਦਰ ਨੇ ਵੀ ਕੋਟ ਕੀਤੇ। ਸਪਿਰਿਟ ਬਾਰਨ ਪੀਪਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਉਹਨੇ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਵੀ, ਇਹ ਕਿਤਾਬ ਮੈਂ ਲਿਖ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਹੈ। ਉਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਉਹ ਜੜ੍ਹਾਂ ਵਾਲੇ ਸੀਗਾ ਨਨਕਾਣਾ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੇ ਕੋਲ ਰੋਸ਼ਾ ਫਾਰਮ ਤੇ। ਉਹਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਇਹ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਛਪਣੇ ਨੇ, ਪਰ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੀ ਜਵਾਨੀ, ਦੀ ਯੂਥ ਆਫ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਵਿਲ ਸਟੱਡੀ। ਇਹ ਕਈ ਸੌ ਜਾਂ ਸਾਲਾਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਉਹ ਹੁਣ ਛਪ ਗਈ। ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੇ ਸੁਰਤਾ ਦਾ ਕੰਸੈਪਟ ਖੁੱਲ੍ਹੇ ਕੁੰਡ 'ਚ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੈ। ਸੁਰਤ ਅਤੇ ਹੰਕਾਰ ਗੁਰੂ ਅਵਤਾਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ। ਸੁਰਤਾ ਬਾਰੇ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ, ਸੁਰਤਾ determines the state of mind and consciousness, and it has to be kept tuned to the Guru's shouts. According to him, the Sikh history is a mere reflection of Sikh surta. The Sikhs will become fossil. ਇਹ term ਜਿਓਲੋਜੀ ਵਾਲਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ, ਸਾਇੰਟਿਸਟਾਂ ਨੂੰ, ਕਿ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਫੌਸਲ ਬਣ ਜਾਓਗੇ, ਪਸਰਾਏ ਹੋਏ। ਜਿਵੇਂ ਪੁਰਾਣੇ ਜੀਵ ਜੰਤੂਆਂ ਦੇ ਫੌਸਲ ਮਿਲਦੇ ਨੇ ਪਹਾੜਾਂ 'ਚ, ਇੱਥੇ ਵੀ ਹੈਗੇ। ਉਹ ਸਿੱਖ ਉਸ ਹਾਲਤ ਵਿੱਚ ਨੇ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ। The Sikhs will become fossil if the surta is dead. So ਸੁਰਤ ਨੂੰ ਕਾਇਮ ਰੱਖਣਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ। Puran Singh views on the Sikh Gurus, ਇਹ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਗੁਰੂਆਂ ਨੇ, ਮੇਰੀ ਹੁਣ ਸਮੱਸਿਆ ਬਣ ਗਈ, ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਦੇਵ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ 'ਚ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਵੀਸੀਸ਼ਿਪ ਤਾਂ ਨਾ ਦਿੱਤੀ। ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜੀ ਇਹ ਖਾਲਿਸਤਾਨੀਆਂ ਦਾ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਹੈਗਾ। ਹਰਿੰਦਰ ਉੱਥੇ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ, ਸਟੂਡੈਂਟਸ ਨੂੰ ਬਚਾਉਣਾ, ਜੇਲ੍ਹਾਂ 'ਚੋਂ ਛਡਾਉਣਾ। ਆਈ ਵਾਸ ਡੀਨ ਆਫ ਦ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ। ਤੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਤਰਲੋਚਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਦਾ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਵੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਹਿੰਦੂਆਂ ਨਾਲ ਕਿਉਂ ਲੜੀਏ, ਅਸੀਂ ਹਿੰਦੂਆਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ। ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਵੀ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਸਾਡੀ ਕਲਚਰ ਹਿੰਦੂਆਂ ਵਾਲੀ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹ ਇੱਕ ਨਵੀਂ ਨੇਸ਼ਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੇ। ਤਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਸਟੱਡੀ ਕੀਤਾ ਤੇ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਕੀਤਾ ਆਪਣਾ। ਮੈਂ ਹੁਣ ਰਿਟਾਇਰ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਰੀਸੈਂਟਲੀ ਮੈਂ ਕਾਫੀ ਬਦਲਿਆ ਹੈਗਾ, ਨਾ ਖਾਲਿਸਤਾਨੀ ਨਾ ਟੈਰਰਿਸਟ, ਕੁਛ ਨਹੀਂ, ਰੀਅਲ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਨੂੰ ਸਮਝਣ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ। ਸੋ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਵੀ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੀਆਂ ਰੂਟਸ ਹਿੰਦੂਇਜ਼ਮ। ਸੋ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਮੇਰੀ ਕਿਤਾਬ ਆਈ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੁਣ ਛਪ ਚੁੱਕੀ ਹੈ, ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਦੀ ਸਰਲ ਵਿਆਖਿਆ। ਆਈ ਫਾਈਂਡ ਸਾਡੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਕੰਸੈਪਟ ਹਿੰਦੂ ਧਰਮ ਚੋਂ ਆਏ ਨੇ। ਮਾਇਆ, ਤੁਰੀ ਅਵਸਥਾ, 10ਵੇਂ ਦਵਾਰ, 84 ਲੱਖ, ਕੋਈ ਗੱਲ ਕਰੋ, ਸਾਰੇ ਹਿੰਦੂ ਧਰਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਆਏ। ਗੁਰੂਆਂ ਨੇ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਮੋਡੀਫਾਈ ਕੀਤਾ, ਟਰਾਂਸਫਾਰਮ ਕੀਤਾ, ਟਰਾਂਸਮਿਊਟ ਕੀਤਾ, ਉਹ ਅਲੱਗ ਗੱਲ ਹੈ। ਪਰ ਬੇਸਿਕਲੀ ਵੀ ਆਰ ਪਾਰਟ ਆਫ ਦਾ ਹਿੰਦੂ ਕਲਚਰ। ਉਹਦਾ ਵੀ ਧਿਆਨ ਇਹ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਗੁਰੂਆਂ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਹੈ क्योंकि जब असीं कहने मतलोड है होर क्रिटिसिज्म कि गुरु नानक भगती लहर का है प्रोडक्ट है, कबीर का चेला है, जां सो असीं किंतु परंतु करते हैं। वो कारण यह है कि गुरुआं की शब्दावली सारी की सारी हिंदू ब्राह्मणिकल वेदांतिक वेदांत वाली शब्दावली हैगी, और उस करके भुलेखा पैंदा बाहर लिया, इंक्लूडिंग मैक्लियोड एंड अदर हिंदूस का। पर गुरु ग्रंथ ऑफ द सिक्स इज द most authentic account of the Guru soul. It is a pity that some Sikh half-baked scholars are perverted by the thought of lying. ਉਹਦੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਚੇਅਰ ਦੇ ਜਸਵੀਰ ਨੂੰ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਇਹ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਸੁਰਤ ਹਾਲ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਲੈਂਦਾ ਵੀ ਰਹਿੰਦਾ ਨਿਕਲਦਾ। ਤਾਂ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਕਾਲਰ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਇੰਟਰਪ੍ਰੇਟ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹ ਭੁਲੇਖੇ ਚ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ। ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਵਿਊਜ਼ ਆਨ ਦਾ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ देखो रविंद्र नाथ टैगोर ਨੂੰ नोबल प्राइज मिले, बंगाली पढ़े लिखे सी, सिख बेचारे अनपढ़ हाँ ठीक है, शहीद बहुत पैदा किए ने, पर अकैडमिक पद्धर से अज भी पिछे ने। तो बंगालियां दे टैगोर ਨੂੰ नोबल प्राइज मिले, पर टैगोर के नालों ज़्यादा किताबां 4-5 किताबां पूरन सिंह दियां इंग्लैंड छपियां। ਉਹਦੀ इंट्रोडक्शन आयरिश पादरी ने लिखी, ਉਹਦਾ नाम हैगा अर्नेस्ट एंड ग्रेस राइस, 15ਵੀਂ पेज दी है। तो ये अनफॉर्चुनेट हैगा कि वो किताब सिस्टर्स ऑफ द स्पिनिंग व्हील, तरियन दियां भैणां या कुड़ियां कह लो, पंजाबी च ट्रांसलेट हो गया। वो सिक्खी दियां किताबां पोइम्स फ्रॉम द लैंड ऑफ फाइव रिवर, इंग्लिश पोइम्स ऑफ ए सिख, पोइम्स ऑफ सिमरन एंड रीडिंग्स फ्रॉम गुरु ग्रंथ। तो गुरु ग्रंथ दियां कुछ बाणियां आस्था की वार जी 4-5 वो इस किताब च ने। नेक्स्ट A poet of Sikh spiritual consciousness, I have to sum up now. सुरत के बारे इंग्लिश भी लिखा उसने, ऐसे है स्पिरिट बॉर्न पीपल, और पंजाबी भी है सुरत का। तो ये सारा जोड़ा है 3 किताबां ने हरिंदर जी, खुले मैदान खुले कुंड खुले समानी राम। पंजाब की पोइट्री और पंजाब के नावल वो अगे आउणगियां। पूरन सिंह वाज द फर्स्ट ऑथर टू इंट्रोड्यूस free verse and many other things in Punjabi literature. So सुरत बारे वाली गल हैगी है, हरिंदर ने भी वो कोट किया सी। मैं सुरत की चीज हैगी, मुंबई का डॉक्टर को पता होना चाहिए। मैं हुणे बॉम्बे पेपर पढ़ के आया सीगा, सिक्खी दे विच की कहंदा आत्मा जिहड़ी हैगी, वो हुण न्यूरो साइंटिस्ट कहंदे ने कि आत्मा जिहड़ी है इट इज कॉन्शियसनेस, नथिंग मोर। तो सोल नू कंशियसनैस कह रहे हैं साइंसदान, और सोल नू कंशियसनैस जी सुरत कह रहे हैं पूरन सिंह। तो ये समझने की लोड़ हैगी। हुण सुरत अंदरली शोर नाल जागी उच्चान है, जो हंकार तो बची। सुरत का कारण अमल विच जग दे दीवे वांग है, तो होर दीवे जगाना अपना मनोरथ समझदा है। सुरता जगत विच कामकार करदा, जी दान दिंदा, झूठी उच्चान है गिलमा। सुरता दुनिया में विचरदा भी एक त्यागी मनुख है, पर त्याग भारती परम। तो इत्थे पूरन सिंह सैपरेट भी कर रहा सिक्खी नूं, भारती परम वखरी मामला पैन से सुरता जंग तक कपड़ जाता। निरहंकारी सूरमा आदर्शिक सूरमा नहीं है। तो ही हैज एक्सप्लेन्ड इन इंग्लिश एंड पंजाबी व्हाट इज कंशियस सुरत, सुरता है कौन है। नेक्स्ट प्लीज। पूरन सिंह ये पढ़ लो तुसीं ध्यान नाल, जिहड़े खालिस्तानी हैगे, मैं हैरान हुन्ना, ये पता नहीं जैसी हैगी। हर एक बंदा समझदा भी मैं टॉप दा इंटैलेक्चुअल हाँ। बुरा ना मनना, कपूर सिंह जी भी ये औगण सी, जसवीर सिंह आलूवालिया जी हैगा, गुरभगत मर गया स्कॉलर अच्छा सी, सेंटा क्रूज पढ़िया उस। मैं उन्होंने जसवीर का सीधा ही मैं अपनी किताब चैलेंज किया कि तुसी कहने हो सॉवरेंटी ऑफ सिख। ये गल तो पूरन सिंह ने की है कि 100 साल कोट नहीं। पूरन सिंह के बारे ये तीनों जो स्कॉलर ने कभी नहीं कोट करते, पर इत्थे पढ़ो खालसा स्टेट एंड डेमोक्रेसी की हैगा। इफ यू हैव रेड आई कैन स्टार्ट। जिहड़ी फ्यूचर इंटरनेशनल स्टेट है, जिहड़ी बनेगी पूरन सिंह के ख्यालों, इट इज एन एब्सोल्यूट मोनार्की ऑफ द किंगडम ऑफ हेवन फॉर ईच एंड एवरी मैन। दी एब्सोल्यूट पूरन सिंह देखो सैकुलरिज्म स्वराज दे उल्ट जो चिट्ठी लिखी सानू क्वेश्चन, डेमोक्रेसी दे उल्ट सी, होर बड़ियां गल्लां सी उहदे। पर वो तो जिहड़ी हैगी है कि खालसा डेमोक्रेसी, ਉਹਦਾ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन की हैगा, वो आ एक पैरा मैं लिया हैगा It is a democracy of feeling all on this physical plane of life where most misery is due to man's callousness to man. It is brotherhood of the souls where intensity of feeling burns out all different. If the Guru's ideal state or even an approach to it is ever made by man, no one will thenceforward die of hunger. So ਇਹ ਸਾਰੇ concept ਉਹਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਇਹ ਵਰਕ ਛਪ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਨੇ ਕਾਪੀਆਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਪਟਿਆਲਾ ਜਾਓ ਉੱਥੋਂ ਖਰੀਦੋ ਜਾਂ ਭਾਈ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ ਸਿੰਘ ਬ੍ਰਦਰ ਕੋਲੇ ਵੀ ਹੋਣਗੀਆਂ ਸਪਿਰਿਟ ਆਫ ਇਹ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਚ ਉਹਦੀਆਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ ਟੋਟਲ 22 ਸਵਾਮੀ ਰਾਮ ਤੀਰਥ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹੈਰਾਨ ਹੋਗੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਨੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਕਿ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਦੀ ਖੋਜ ਕੀ ਹੋਈ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਇੱਥੋਂ LA ਦੀ ਇੱਕ ਅਮਰੀਕਨ ਬੀਬੀ ਨੇ ਚਿੱਠੀ ਲਿਖੀ ਕਿ ਤੂੰ ਸਵਾਮੀ ਆਪਣਾ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਤੇ ਕੁਝ ਲਿਖਦਾ ਮੈਂ ਸਵਾਮੀ ਰਾਮ ਤੀਰਥ ਦੀ ਚੇਲੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਜਾਪਾਨ ਚੋਂ ਥੰਡਰਿੰਗ ਨਾਮ ਦੀ ਕਾਪੀ ਭੇਜੋ 3 ਵਾਰੀ ਗਿਆ ਮੈਂ ਟੋਕੀਓ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਕਾਨਫਰੰਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ PhD ਰਜਿਸਟਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਉਹਦਾ ਰਿਕਾਰਡ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਉਹਦਾ ਡਿਪਲੋਮਾ ਹੋਲਡਰ ਔਰ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਉਹ ਰਹਿੰਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਉਹ ਵਰਲਡ ਵਾਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਹੀ ਸਾਰੀ ਉੱਡ ਗਈ ਉੱਥੇ ਹੁਣ ਮੈਟਰੋ ਸਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਬਣਿਆ ਹੋਇਆ ਸੋ ਆਈ ਕੁਡ ਨਾਟ ਫਾਈਂਡ ਐਨੀ ਟ੍ਰੇਸ ਦਾ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਇਨ ਟੋਕੀਓ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਪਰ ਲੋਕੀ ਅਜੇ ਵੀ ਸਵਾਮੀ ਰਾਮ ਤੀਰਥ ਦੇ ਚੇਲੇ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਹਰਿੰਦਰ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਇੱਕੋ ਹੀ ਲੇਖ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹ ਆਪਣਾ ਕਿਤਾਬ ਹੈਗੀ ਜਾਪਾਨੀਜ਼ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼ ਔਰ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੂੰ ਜਰਮਨ ਵੀ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਸੀ ਜਾਪਾਨੀਜ਼ ਵੀ ਹੁਣ ਤਾਂ ਮੀਡੀਅਮ ਇੰਸਟਰਕਸ਼ਨ ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਜਰਮਨ ਸੀ ਔਰ ਜਾਪਾਨੀਜ਼ ਪੜ੍ਹਨੀ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਸੀ ਤਾਂ ਇਹਦੀ ਕੋਈ ਕਾਪੀ ਅਵੇਲੇਬਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੀ ਦਿਸ ਇਜ਼ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਜੋ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਕਿਤਾਬਾਂ ਮਿਲਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਹੀ ਵਾਜ਼ ਅ ਗ੍ਰੇਟ ਵਿਜ਼ਨਰੀ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਕੱਲਾ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਬਾਰੇ ਕੰਤੂ ਪ੍ਰੰਤੂ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦਾ ਜਾਂ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਦੀ ਸੇਧ ਨਹੀਂ ਉਹ ਵਿਜ਼ਨਰੀ ਹੈਗਾ ਐਨੀ ਫੀਲਡ ਇਹ ਸਾਇੰਸਦਾਨ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਵੀ ਨੋਬਲ ਪ੍ਰਾਈਜ਼ ਲਿਟਰੇਚਰ 'ਚ ਵੀ ਮਿਲ ਸਕਦਾ ਸੀ ਪਰ ਅਨਫੋਰਚੂਨੇਟਲੀ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੇ ਉਸਦਾ ਨਾਂ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਭੇਜਿਆ ਉਹਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹਨੇ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹਦੀ ਕਿਤਾਬ 'ਚ ਉਹ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਜ਼ਮ ਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਸੀ ਇਹ ਚੱਲਣੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਇਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਡਿਵਿਨਿਟੀ ਸਪਿਰਿਚੁਅਲਿਟੀ ਦਾ ਕਨਸੈਪਟ ਵੀ ਉਹਨੇ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਫਾਰਚੂਨੇਟਲੀ ਮੈਂ ਵਰਲਡ ਸਾਰਾ ਘੁੰਮਦਾ ਰਹਿਣਾ ਹੁਣ ਵੀ ਸ਼ੌਕ ਹੈ ਮੈਂ ਮਾਸਕੋ ਸਟੇਟ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਠਹਿਰਿਆ ਸਮੁੰਦਰੀ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦਾ ਲੜਕਾ ਉੱਥੇ ਉਦੋਂ ਸੈਕਟਰੀ ਸੀਗਾ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਮੇਰੇ ਘਰ ਆਉਂ ਤਾਂ ਉਹ ਟਾਈਮ ਸੀਗਾ ਜਦੋਂ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬੁਲਗਾਰੀਅਨ ਜਾਂ ਦੂਜੇ ਛੱਡ ਕੇ ਫਿਰ ਇੱਕ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਗਏ ਉਹ ਸਟੇਟ ਕਰੰਬਲ ਕਰ ਗਈ ਔਰ ਵਾਕਈ ਪਾਰਕ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਲੈਨਨ ਦੇ ਬੁੱਤ ਨੂੰ ਜੁੱਤੀਆਂ ਮਾਰਦੇ ਸੀ ਰਸ਼ੀਅਨ ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੇ ਪ੍ਰੈਡਿਕਟ ਨਹੀਂ his writing ਹੈ much relevant to Soviet Union ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਫਾਲ ਹੈ ਉਸਨੇ ਪ੍ਰੈਡਿਕਟ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਮਸਟ ਬੀ ਅ ਰੋਲ ਮਾਡਲ ਆਫ ਸਿੱਖ ਯੂਥ ਮੇਰਾ ਖਿਆਲ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਕਾਨਫਰੰਸ ਦਾ ਪਰਪਸ ਹਰਿੰਦਰ ਇਹ ਹੋਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਯੂਥ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਸਕੂਲ ਕਾਲਜ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਪੁਰਾਣੇ ਫਾਸਲ ਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਛੱਡ ਦਿਓ ਠੀਕ ਹੈ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰੇ ਦੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਅਗਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਰੋਲ ਮਾਡਲ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਬਣਾ ਦਈਏ then I hope this conference will be a great success. I think this my publication are note ਕਰ ਲਓ ResearchGate ਤੇ ਮੇਰਾ ਨਾਮ ਲਿਖ ਦਿਓ ਪੂਰਾ ਹਰਦੇਵ you will find all my publication ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ now the score has reached 675 Google Scholar ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਪੁੱਛੋਗੇ ਉਹ ਜਾਂ ਮੇਰੀ ਹੈਗਾ ਜੋ ਵੀ ਪਬਲੀਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਲਿਖ ਜਾਏਗੀ I think I should end now. It is about 35 minutes already. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vedji. Once again, a round of applause for Dr. Vedji. I think everyone is entitled to their opinion, and we respect that. But at the same time, we should keep in mind that the man that we're celebrating today, I think Veer Harinder Singh ji made a good point with several quotations, that he neither promoted any one culture or one religion, right? He was a man that was a man of all. And he was looking at Guru Nanak for inspiration, Guru Gobind for inspiration, his history for inspiration. So let me read a quick quote that I think Harinder Ji also had up on there. Guru Nanak fascinated Mardana. Mardana, never after seeing him, called himself a Muhammadan. Bhai Nand Lal, after seeing Guru Gobind Singh, never called himself a Hindu. Whosoever met the Guru in his soul said, he was no other but a man. There's one sky over Mohammedan, a Hindu, and a Christian's head. The same winds blow for every man. For every man, the same waters flow. When the river has no such labels, it is gross ignorance to call ourselves Hindus, Mohammedans, Sikhs, Christians, and there are many others. Names which divide rather than knit us together. Of what use is our going to the prophets and saying we are their followers if we are a disgrace to their geniuses? Genius which exhausted by making the human wolves flock together as lambs under the protection of one shepherd. So I think, as I said, to no disrespect with any opinion, but the concepts of Professor Puran Singh Ji presented in several of his writings are of oneness and not of division. Having said that, I'd like to present our next speaker, which is Maya Batra. So to give you a little bit of an intro on to Maya, Maya is actually a songwriter, a music producer, and she recently came back from Australia, where she received her BA in music production and composition. And I've had a chat with her a couple of times due to this event. And she is a fascinating person who is, I think, is kind of our next rising star in the music world. In 2016, her first cuts as songwriters were released in France and the US. Maya currently is the executive director of Vocalize You. Another interesting fact, which apparently matches all of our performance today, that all of our performers love to cook. So I'd like to invite Maya. Maya, please come up and present us with your music.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Today I am going to be reading two excerpts from one of Professor Puran Singh's poems, The Bride of the Sky. And I will be reciting this to music that I composed. So we could start with the first track. The rain clouds run to hold an umbrella over my head. When I go tramping in the burning sun, tired of the emptiness of my living, and the sky is clear. The sun shines warm and kind, when for days the rain has made me sick. Who throws this flood of light? I was restless, impatient as a fish out of water. I was angry with life, love, God, and all. And suddenly, I was soothed. My head rested on my left palm on the elbow bone. My breath became soft and slow and rhythmical. My heart filled with silence deep of death, and in silence I was soothed like a weeping child by a familiar sound. I wonder what it is. Am I? That's this one, first excerpt. And the next one is right here. The next one, please. The earth is full of jealousies, and heaven is no less. There are too many eyes that love beauty, and beauty is truth only when it is she. But those that love best are blinded by the other's curse. Love is more than eyes, more than light, and love can suffer most and endure more. What is life without her breath and mine? Without her face, what is mind itself? What soul? Without her, what is vacant vault of the sky that mocks me with the echo of a cry? And she used to say, someone lives in the sky. And she used to say, someone lives in the sky. Vaiguru ka Khalsa, Vaiguru ki Fateh.
That was wonderful. One more time, please. Round of applause. That was great. I think this is the first time ever that I've heard Puran Singh ji's poetry in a musical format. So definitely, it's great to see that the ideas of Professor Saab actually continue to live on and will live on even in our younger generation. So thank you once again. Just to give you a little bit of background, I actually forgot about this. The Bride of the Sky is actually a ballad. And it was written in 1924 by Professor Puran Singh ji. It was published almost 52 years later in 1976. Overall, the ballad is about a nymph, which is a sprite. And it's basically looking at the vast dimensions of pyar, ya love, where the nymph is flying about in the earthly air when a young man sees her. And also, all of a sudden, he falls in love instantly with her. The nymph responds to his love, comes down to the earth, and stays with him for a day and a moonlit night, and then flies back to heaven. The young man goes mad with the ecstasy and pain of love, but his madness is heightened by a mystic silence, which makes the people around him hail him as a saint. Idealistic romantic is how I think this poem or this ballad could be categorized, and I think you did a wonderful job in the way that you presented it with the ocean sound as well. Thank you very much once again. Our last speaker, once again, I think everybody knows Inni Kaurji. The title of her topic is Rebel and Radical, My Pitaji's Protege. Inni Kaurji serves as the CEO of Sikh Research Institute with a mission to connect people with the influential and inspiring teachings of Sikhi. Inni Kaurji is also an esteemed and passionate author, poet, and painter. She broadened her creative artistry into publishing children's books series called The Journey with the Gurus. And we actually love that because Makheed Singh and Mukanta Singh did grow up reading those books, so thank you for that. To give you a little bit of a perspective into Inni Kaurji, in a recent interview that I read of her, when she was asked, it's interesting, when she was asked, and immediately when I was reading the response, Siddh Ghosh came to my mind, that how Shabad influenced her. Her response was akin to Guru Nanak responding, कि शब्द गुरु सुरत तुन चेला, जब उन्होंने पूछा जाता है तेरा कवन गुरु किसका तू चेला. Her response, I think, as applicable to date for anybody is, the Shabad has chiseled me and changed me inside out. Shabad for me is Guru, and it's to the Shabad that I bow. I think it's fascinating, and as you will hear in her demeanor, her gracefulness, humility, and poetic presence, I welcome Inni Kaurji.
Vaiguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaiguru Ji Ki Fateh. It's quite intimidating to stand here after Harinder Singh and beautiful poetry, and then Professor Burke had us up in arms with all his stories and the way he told us everything about Puran Singh, made you come alive. You know, you have that knack of doing that. So here I am standing before you to talk to you about a man, an incredible man, a man who I allowed to enter my consciousness. You know, when I was in my early 20s, you know, you're very cocky at your early 20s. You have this thing you can do, you know, you have a little bit of knowledge and you think you have a whole lot. So I met this wonderful fakir and I asked him, I said, you know, I want to be on this path and what do I need to do and all that. And, you know, jabber, jabber, jabber. And he was just very silent. And I said, well, tell me. And he asked me, he said, what is the one thing that is yours? And of course, you know, I rattled on my daughter, my husband, my family, the whole enchilada. And he said, no. And so I went on and he said, no. And I said, well, what is it then? And he said, your consciousness, your surat is yours. That's the only thing that is yours. And he says, until the time you don't own it, you will never get anywhere. He said, right now, you are a slave. Very powerful words, he said. He said, you're a slave. And I said, how so? And he said, because when someone says that you've done well, you're very proud and you're happy. And at the same time, if someone says you haven't done well, you're sad, you're upset. So who actually controls you? So this fakir, at the age of 23 or 24, had a profound effect on me. He just said, control your consciousness. Be a star. Own that. Don't allow anyone to enter it. So here I am, standing in front of you to tell you the consciousness that I protected ever so carefully. Literally training my mind, training this, whatever you can say. And this was much before Sikhi entered my life. I say to you that Puran Singh was the first man that I allowed to enter my consciousness. So what is it about this man that I really like, adore? I don't want to call revere because I don't revere him. He's my companion, he's my friend. He's also a person I battle with. But he is something very special. So at the age of 20, Puran Singh was given a book on world commitment. And this book changed his life. To a moment, it was a profound moment. It was one of those moment of moments that when something comes to you, that you know, this is going to change me. Well, somewhere in my 30s, in Dehradun, I was given a book. And that book was of Professor Puran Singh's. And it was Bride of the Sky, which Maya sang so beautifully. Well, that book, I want it captured me right from the first verse. And I want to share the first verse with you. Lightning flushes, clouds fly. I feel it is a woman passing in the sky. I toss my arm, I sigh. I try to kiss those bridal ribbons, burning in someone's hair. But the rain strikes me, and the skies shake their locks and laugh, and thunder passes mockingly. How insane is earth's desire for the beauty of the sky. Who writes like this? Obviously, Puran Singh. So the poet in me craved for more. I wanted more. And I wanted to get to know this man who could write like this, who could move me like this. He intrigued me. And the more I read him, it was like I could literally sense his yearning, his searching, that he was searching and longing for that elusive thing. And he knows it's there. He knows there's something that is there, but he can't quite grasp it. So when he encounters the beauty and silence in Japan, he rebels. And he turns his back on his faith, the faith that he was born in, and embraces the beauty and silence around him. And I really don't want to say that he became a big, he embraced the Buddhist faith, because that's not that. To me, that's not what he did. What he did was he embraced that sensitivity around him. And I say that because he describes a particular scene so vividly that I want to share that scene with you. And he's sitting in the Buddhist retreat. He's in meditation, and he looks out of this lovely large window, and the sky is overcast. The rain is gently falling into the lily pad. There's just a hint of light. And he experiences something. The light, the rain, everything becomes one for him. And the silence that is within him rejoices. And he describes the scene so vividly that years later, when I begin to paint, I paint the scene in watercolors, and I call this painting Puran Singh. Of course, no one can understand why I have named it Puran Singh, because there's no Puran Singh in the painting. But this was the scene that he evoked in me, and therefore I titled it Puran Singh as a tribute to him. But as much as the beauty and silence was wonderful, it was not enough for him. He was yearning and searching for something more. For people who know that they want something, there's no rest. There's the restlessness inside you that kuch hai. There's something there. I know it's there, but I just can't get to it. So when he meets Swami Ram Tirath, he's drawn to him. And I want to share with you what Puran Singh writes about Swami Ram Tirath. He says, Swami Ram Tirath, as the poet monk of Punjab, who stood like a flower amongst men, who won enemies by a song of love. He was poetry and music. His body was a lake that trembled, seeing the sun entering into its depths. These are Puran Singh's words, not mine. So what a profound effect Swami Ram Tirath had on him. It was that he met him, he saw something, he wanted that. And I could relate, because when I met that fakir, I saw something, I wanted it. So it was, an uncanny moment for me. So in the company of Ram Tirath, Swami Ram Tirath, he leaves Japan and he comes to India in orange robes and a shaved head. But destiny has a different calling for him. And family ties are very hard to break. So he gets married at the age of 23 to Maya Devi. I know Professor Burke has mentioned this, but I want you to just focus on a minute this mind of Professor Puran Singh at 23. Imagine yourselves at 23. And he tells his mother that I want to meet Maya Devi alone. Otherwise there's going to be no wedding. And the mother is like, finally he's agreed and I want this wedding to take place. So she arranges the meeting without the knowledge of Maya Devi's brother. So when Puran Singh meets Maya Devi, he tells her this, he tells her, I'm recluse, marry me only if you're prepared to be penniless. And at times, you may even have to beg for food. And you know what she says? I'm ready to do anything for you. I don't need anything but you. She was engaged to him at the age of 10. Think about it. Yeah. She was engaged to him since she was 10 years old. Their 27-year marriage is quite a story. But I just don't want to go there yet. I'll share a little bit with you. But incredible, Maya Devi in herself is quite incredible. So in 1906, age of 33, Swami Ramtirat passes away, leaves this world. Of course, Puran Singh is distraught. And there's great pressure from Swami Ramtirat's disciples that he should become their leader. Because Swami Ramtirat has over and over said that Puran Singh is another form of him. So obviously, they want him as a disciple. Think about it. Imagine you have all these chelas and you are being blessed by the Swami itself. And yet, Puran Singh says, no, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to be that. But his home stayed open to them all his life. The disciples came and went. But Puran Singh never became their leader. So, that was in 1906. Come now to 1912. So what happens in 1912? He's invited to speak at the Sikh Educational Conference in Sialkot on agriculture. And this is where he meets Bhai Bir Singh. A 3-hour private conversation follows this meeting. You know, I can only imagine what this conversation was like, meeting two thought giants. I mean, Puran Singh is pretty powerful with his, intellect, and Pidaji, who I refer as Pidaji Bhai Bir Singh, is in a league of its own. And at the end of the meeting, so as I have been told, and it's also been written, that Bhai Bir Singh touches his head and says, how can these soft curls bear the harshness of iron? So when Puran Singh returns home, Maya Devi notices a change in him. He has quietened. He tells her, he shares with her what happened at the meeting. And then he says, the saintly hand that has touched these hair will never again touch the scissors. Maya Devi is worried when he says this, because here we go again. The Buddhist, the sannyasi, and now what?
Yeah.
Think about it, what she's going through herself. She's heard a lot of grief. She's been through a lot of grief because everyone's been telling her that he is, a sannyasi. Interesting thing I want to share. Maya Devi calls him Swami. Throughout her entire life, she addressed him as Swami. Little tidbit. So anyway, long letters were exchanged between Bhai Bir Singh Ji and Professor Puran Singh. And then Puran Singh, the monk, the Vedantist, reclaimed his Sikhi. So in 1913, a year later, when he is invited again to the Sikh Educational Conference, he is on stage, as I am, and a person from the audience questions him. Who are you? Last year you stood before us in orange robes and a shaved head, and here you are, a year later, in a dastar and with beard. Who are you? It's a very valid question. And at that moment, a rubai, a short verse of Sultan Bahus flows from him, and I paraphrase. The jasmine seed of Vaheguru's Naam got planted in me in the sangat of a Gurmukh. From the skies nectar descended, the seed got nourished down to its core. Mysterious buds unfolded into blossoms of revelation. My entire being was filled with fragrance. Long live the Gurmukh that planted this seed. And the entire time, as he was reciting this rubai, he looked at Bhai Bir Singh. That this was the man who had changed his life. And from then on, what flowed from Puran Singh's pen was radical. No one has ever written anything like what he wrote on Sikhi, and I can tell you that even today, no one writes like him. And this, I want to share this because this is what he writes about the Guru Granth. The whole of the Guru Granth is the voice of a wedded woman pining in love for the beautiful. Her nobleness in the Guru Granth is infinite. Her freedom is the highest. Both men and women as sexes are forgotten in her voice. You know, his words silenced me. Up until then, there was no desire in me to read the Guru Granth. And he put that in. And I began with the translations of Manmohan Singh. I got the 4 volumes and I wanted to experience what Puran Singh was talking about. You know, I became, and I'm still addicted to his writings because I truly feel he writes from a place of experience. It is as if he has tasted the nectar. He has tasted the sweetness. Because only then, when you have tasted that, can you write that the Guru Granth is the deathless song of the pilgrims. The song is unending because the path that goes to the temple of love is also unending. Every page of creation is new life and new inspiration. So is the Guru Granth. Yes, every word is new life, new inspiration. It is always fresh. There's always something new there. I say that too, because that's been my experience with the Guru Granth Sahib. I'm always learning. You know, he excited my mind. Man chav pya. And he still continues to excite my mind. And you know, you could say that he's an intellectual and he's a theologian. And then, yes, of course, it's right. But that, I know, is not what he wants to be labeled as. Because this is what he writes. He says, I would also run away from the theologian and that quaint species of man in Eastern countries who sit in caves and meditate on nothing. Their limbs and bodies never becoming fluid like the river, water, never flowing with his song, never experiencing the tenderness of love and the union of love, never experiencing the tenderness of love and the union of love. So I asked Puran Singh, tell me about this love. Tell me about this union. And he says, love cannot be coaxed by vows. Love is an unceasing remembrance. The touch of love gives an eternal memory of delight to the blind flesh of man. The bones feel the relish of a kiss. I listen. I absorb. And then I ask him, tell me, what is Simran? And he says, Simran is the aching, continuous remembrance, not only in the memory. This delightful memory must be given to every pore of the human body. This is what the Guru calls love. And it has its degrees of intensity, amplifications, and subtle elevations. All human loves are Simran. I want to pause here. All human loves are Simran. The continuous aching, the continuous inarticulate remembrance of one we love is Simran. But Simran has a transmuting quality. Selfishness spontaneously becomes unselfishness. Self-sacrifice happens on an unlimited scale. And he continues. He says, we are driven to be religious, but this is not that. This is not that. This aching remembrance is spontaneous in the inspired ones when they are away from Him. The moments of union are rare. So love, according to the Gurus, is but an aching remembrance. This is love. This is union in Simran, with Simran, through Simran. I have never heard that before. To love someone in Simran is a foreign concept, but it's so real. Because that's what happens when you see the divinity in the one you love. It becomes your Simran. This is what I hear from Puran Singh. This is what I learn from Puran Singh. And this is what drives me to dig deeper into Barney. Because I too want to experience what he is experiencing. I too want to feel what he is feeling. So Puran Singh was ignited by Bhai Singh. And I too wanted to get to know Bhai Singh. But that would happen at a much later stage in my life. Because I, at that stage, could not read Punjabi. And the translations of Bhai Singh's work left me cold. But I knew deep down that for my growth, I needed to read his works. And sure enough, when I read Bhai Singh's work, there was something that ignited in me. And today, I too say, my entire being was filled with fragrance. Long live the Gurmukh that planted that seed. It was Puran Singh who took me to Bhai Singh, to that Gurmukh. And that Gurmukh, Bhai Singh Ji, who I now call Pitaji, made me feel Guru. For me, Guru is no longer an intellectual concept or a perception or a thought. Guru is very real. He made it possible. Actually, Guru is so real. Guru is more real than you all sitting in front of me. That's how real it is. That's how I feel. So Puran Singh's words, Pitaji's words are always with me. They are the ones that shape me. So I remember, when I was looking at Sikh art, and here I'm looking at it and I'm saying, what am I seeing? And I hear Puran Singh's words thunder in me. He said, the ones who don't know how to adorn themselves with a pearl necklace, how can they paint the beautiful? So true. The uninspired, we the uninspired are painting inspiration. How can we even capture that? So now think what we are doing to the paintings of the Gurus. We, uninspired, are painting inspiration. Sikh art is at its infancy. There is very, very little work happening in there because Shabad is not in there. Puran Singh knew you cannot bring Shabad out. You've got to feel it. You've got to see it. It's different eyes that do that. So in 2015, I went through an accident, and so I was, I had a concussion, and I couldn't really, I had to be in a dark room. So the Bani, the poetry, the ghazals of Bhai Nandlal, I got introduced to them through the Bar Sahib, and I was fascinated. And I began to read all his ghazals, and I enjoyed them. And of course, then I want to know what Puran Singh has written about Dasmi Pacha. And I'd never read that part of it. So my first reading into the writings of Guru Gobind Singh Sahib, and once again, Puran Singh's words unlocked so much in me. They even managed to thaw out my coldness. And this is what he says. Riding his blue horse, clad in the robe of the whole starry heaven, followed by his 5 horsemen, he goes riding by the doors of his lowly disciples. Guru Gobind Singh is the inner dweller of souls. Woe be for the day when the disciples of this glorious Guru would turn their back on him. That was me. Once before in history, they did so. The disciples left him at Anandpur, but they had no place to go. Wives denied their husbands, brothers, sisters denied their brothers. Sons were abandoned, for the Punjabi Sikh woman truly saw there is no life but him. What is the world without him? So they died, so they lived. You know, I pause here because there's much to absorb. But what he says next is amazing. He says, but the Guru does not show himself to those who have not entered the shrine of acceptance, who have not understood reverence, who have no wonder in their eyes, who love not the spiritual beauty which transmutes man into angels in an instant. Perfection is in his glance. How can I remain untouched by this? I yearn to see what he sees. I yearn to feel what Puran Singh feels. And yes, I yearn to write what Puran Singh, or like what Puran Singh writes. And you know, he knows I struggle to understand, as Professor Burke has said, what is Khalsa. And I have struggled, but now I understand it because of him, because of this man. And this is how he guides me. He says, it is the brotherhood of the soul, where the intensity of feeling burns out all differences. So the Khalsa has no difference. There's no difference in the heart. The Guru Khalsa state is based on the essential goodness of humanity, which longs to share the mystery of the Creator and longs to love the beautiful, living in his creation. The Khalsa state is an ideal. Sikhs may die. It doesn't. It is immortal. So the Khalsa state is immortal. I had never heard that before. Puran Singh does this for me over and over again. You know, I thought I had read a lot of his writings. You know, you're still very, think, oh, I know Puran Singh and I've read a lot of his works. So wrong, so wrong. I have barely touched the tip of this iceberg. For this celebration, the Institute, we at the Sikh Research Institute decided that we wanted to put out a publication. So I put together a list of some of his essays, some of his verses, which I wanted to include in the publication. And then Harinder Singh says to me, I think we should include some of his political essays. What? Yeah. So he sends me his political essays, which needed to be included. Of course, I read them. And as I'm reading them, the word that comes out of my mouth is genius. The man is a genius. And that word shook me, genius. Because when I was typing that word genius for him in a previous quote, I hesitated. Because genius is a very, very strong word. And I use my words very carefully. So I'm saying, really, do we call him a genius? I can't call him something else, but it's a quote, and I can't change the quote. And here I was. My lips were uttering the word, the man is a genius. He's brilliant. What my fingers were hesitating to type, my lips had said it. So his knowledge, and as I read these three, particularly these political essays of his knowledge of European and American literature, of European and American history, and his astute understanding of the British Empire is astounding. I mean, it's clearly evident in these essays, the way he weaves literature, art, poetry is beyond astounding. I truly am in awe of this brilliance. Remember, these are the days before the internet. So the man must have this knowledge. And you know, when Maya Devi has written, she said when he was writing, he never consulted a dictionary. He never consulted any books. He just wrote. It would be a 3-day frenzy, 5-day frenzy, all night. He just wrote. So this man was incredible. So these essays of him, what do they contain? These essays, I think, need to be read by every Sikh. I mean, everything of his, but these particular essays, you know, he is answering back the so-called movers and shakers, the so-called thinkers, the so-called intellectuals of his time. He's replying to them in their own language. And he's not mincing any words. With wit, sarcasm, humor, and brilliance, he answers all of them in their language. And that's why I say this man is a genius. And then, of course, you've heard a little bit of his poetry, but his poetry, his verses are not just mere poetry. This is what I hear in them. These are his reflections. These are his meditations. For in them, they contain the music he hears as the winds rustle through the pines, with their breath touching the sun and the moon. His inner ecstasy flows, and he writes from that. There are no veils, no barriers. He just lets everything down, and he just writes. These are not his verses. These actually are his songs of worship. This is how he worships. Yes, Puran Singh straight from Sikhi. But boy, did he return with vigor and conviction. His prose and his poetry is Gurbani immersed, and it acquired fresh dimensions and vast horizons. Puran Singh, the poet of Guru consciousness and of peasant Punjab, had finally arrived home. He lived with that conviction for 19 years. He could speak to the intellectual. He could answer Sir John Simon, and he could speak to that peasant in Punjab, sitting on that manji, in that thatched hut. He was as reverent, and he could connect with them at that level. That's the genius of the man. To be able to be sitting at the table, dining with wine, and dining with crystal and china and everything, and to be equally comfortable sitting on that manji. I mean, when I read him, like, how did you do this? I mean, I have trouble. But this man was so vast. It made no difference to him. Maya Devi writes, he was hugging trees and animals. He saw divine in everything. Everything was part of nature. In fact, he would say, forget about these paintings. Look at the calf being delivered. Look at the woman milking the cow. That is a painting. This is Puran Singh. He saw beauty. He saw divinity in everything. And you know, the chief Khalsa Diwan asked for his advice. He says, tell us, what should we do? What should we do, he said, to reduce the religious ignorance of the Sikhs and of the youth? Tell us what we need to do. And this is what he said. He said, I would say only one thing. If you can do anything, produce great men like Bhai Bir Singh, who can turn an atheist like myself into a believer. This is Bhai Bir Singh. This is the person I call now Pitaji. So these two men ebb and flow in my consciousness. So in today's presentation, I have intentionally used Puran Singh's words because I wanted you to get a flavor of this man. I wanted you to get a glimpse of what he writes, how he writes, so that maybe you too will be able to pick up his book and read and see how this brilliant mind, whose knowledge of world art, history, literature, poetry is astounding. And the languages he writes in, and you've heard from Harinder Singh, he wrote in Hindi. You've heard from Professor Burke, I didn't know he wrote in Japanese. Of course in English, and of course in Punjabi. So this, now you know the man. You know how brilliant he is. Now this brilliant man was married to Maya Devi. I want to be careful here how I say the next thing. And she was illiterate. These are her words, not mine. So this brilliant man is married to an illiterate woman. And Maya Devi writes, she says, you know, my father passed away when I was 10 years old, and my brother did not want me to be educated. This is what her brother said. An uneducated woman can challenge a man, but a literate woman can even challenge God. Think about how powerful that is. And that's why he never educated her. And yet, Puran Singh read to her every poem of his. And when she didn't understand something, he crossed it out. And he said, it doesn't cost me anything to cross it out. I beg to disagree with Puran Singh on this, because I know what it means to cross out something for another person. Puran Singh placed her above himself. Think about the man. Think about this genius, brilliant man. What he must have seen in Maya Devi. And you know what he says about Maya Devi? She is my experience. She is my inspiration. What more can any woman want? To be someone's inspiration and experience. And Maya Devi writes, she said he didn't want to talk to her about the mundane things about life. Ki kar ki ho raha hai, ki karna hai, kisnu ki dena hai. Nope. He just wanted to talk to her only about things that would uplift the two of them so that they could experience oneness. And when I read that, the fourth line thundered in my mind. This is what Puran Singh was going after. This is what he wanted to experience with her. So the man who did not want to get married, what happens now is he can't bear to be without her. So whenever she has to go to her family, he has to send a telegram of her safe arrival, and she has to write to him every day. That was the pattern. That was something they had established between themselves. So once what happens is her brother forgets to send the safe telegram, and Puran Singh is distraught. He is convinced, fully convinced, that she's dead, and her family, I mean, he has some choice words over there, but I'm not going to say those, has done the last rites, and that's it. So he hops onto the train and arrives 3 days later, only to see her sitting at dinner with her family. And everybody looks at him, like, what happened? So you didn't send the telegram, I thought you were dead. And you know, when I read that scene, what came to my mind was Ranja. Was when his message came that she was dead and the family had buried her, and how distraught Ranja was. I mean, to me it was Ranja and Puran Singh together. It was kind of eerie, the way that whole thing played out for me. So it's interesting, their love story. So Maya Devi was probably, you know, we've heard about his raging temper, and he had he would throw things, break things. And as much as we talk about the literature that he wrote, there was quite a lot he burnt as well, because he wasn't happy with it, or somebody said something and he tore it up, and a lot got lost as well. So I wonder, and there's one thing which, because Maya Devi writes about that quite a bit. You know, she writes that for 2 weeks he had written a poem, and I was talking to Professor Burke about it last night, I said, what is this genre of Lachi? I said, because Maya Devi writes about it repeatedly. Because Puran Singh wrote 20 pages introduction to his poem. So obviously when a man of that caliber is writing a 20-page introduction to a poem, I want to read it. But he burnt it, that's another story. But what is this? And then Maya Devi says, it was an incredible piece. She remembers a few passages of it. And he broke it down and he tore it. And she said that what he told her was the rest of his life he was looking for his Lachi. I don't know what that was, but it was something quite powerful. She was the only one who understood his raging temper. And this is what she writes. She says, but his soul was sensitive and things affected him deeply. His heart was like a crystal gem which could not avoid the reflections of others. There is not another human being like him in this entire world. What a tribute she paid to him. If he said she was his inspiration, she is saying there's another man, not another human being like him. And so when he gets ill, she writes, his body was melting, but his mind was still saturated with the spirit of unity and love. And the disease progressed. He had tuberculosis. And he would say, Maya, don't come near me. You too will get sick. And you know what she said? She said, I cannot waste these invaluable moments for the sake of this perishable body. To be with you is tonic for me, so you are not to worry. And then she writes, and every night I continued to love him as I had done throughout our marriage. So the past 3 to 4 months, I've been immersed in the writings of Puran Singh to prepare for this celebration, for this publication. Puran Singh has appeared in my paintings, and I was surprised that he has now also appeared in my verses. A friend of mine recently sent me 4 lines of her Punjabi poetry, and she said, Inni, translate it. And I'm like, okay, I struggle. And I tried, but then as I finished her translation, I said, this doesn't fit, it's not right. To me, it was not right. I needed to add something to it. So this I'm sharing with you what flowed. The first part is my friend's. She says, my love, the only thing I had was worrying about you, but you even asked for that back. What could I do? I had no choice but to return it to you. Do you not know that your well-being is all that I pray for? It is the breath of my life. Puran Singh says, Simran is the constant, aching remembrance. My love, you are my Simran. You are my prayer. You are my ardas. It's been an incredible privilege for me to stand before you and share with you my Puran Singh, the man who rebelled like I did. I'm not sure if I can say I'm the radical, but he was the radical. And he was my Pitaji's protege. It's been an incredible honor. Thank you so much for having me here. With love and gratitude, I leave you. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
I think they're on this side. Thank you once again. A round of applause for Inni Gorji. That was just simply beautiful. As we're setting up for our panelist QA, I'd like to kind of give a little bit of the rules, because us as a Punjabi community, once we get the mic, we all have a tendency to just go on, and we're trying to keep this in a very time-condensed manner. So we'll have our Q&A, but we'd like to limit the questions to no more than 30 seconds to a minute, and the responses respectively will also be between 1 to 2 minutes, so that we can get as many questions from the audience. So I'd like to ask up on stage now Harinder Virji, Inni Ji, Dr. Virji, Maya, and Jenny. Can you guys come up on stage, please? Dr. Sab? Jasdeep Singh ji, can I ask for a favor?
Yeah,
okay. So we have 2 mics up here. We'll have 1 mic for the audience. Jasdeep, I want to hand that to you, please.
Questions?
So I'll start with a couple of questions to get the blood going and the tempo set for this. So my first question is for Maya. I think you're the youngest panelist here, right? Us old folks have talked about Professor Puran Singh ji. I'd like to get an understanding, because that poem was just beautiful. And, you know, even in my introduction, I also feel, and I think everybody's in some way mentioned it, that he's a person that is of all ages, right? For all ages. So, as you looked at that poem, the section of The Bride of the Sky, how did you connect with that poem and produce that music that you did? What did you feel? What did you go about? What was that process like in experiencing Professor Puran Singh ji?
There we go. Yeah, I actually, NEDD sent me several texts of Puran Singh, and this one was the one that I just connected to most. I think that the topic is love, right? And talking about how love can overcome anything, essentially. So I just liked the imagery, and it just inspired me to create the music underneath it. And then, like you heard the ocean, and it was talking about rain and how the clouds were coming to protect. The way I interpreted it was the clouds are coming to protect him, when he used to just think that that was something that was like attacking him almost. Not attacking, but like that caused discomfort, and now it was something that was comfortable. So that was my interpretation.
Great. I think similar question for Inikoji. How do you feel Professor G is as relevant today as he was in the times that he was actually living?
You know, he changed my life. So if somebody is seeking and wants to experience something, I think Puran Singh is the person to read. Because I think for me, because I didn't have Punjabis, I couldn't read that, but he made me taste and feel what nectar, what amrit was. I mean, for the first time, it made it real that it is possible. It's not a concept. This is someone who lived it, and then he wrote about it. So these are his words, and you know, when you write from experience, that never changes. There's always that freshness in it. And for the person who's seeking, it's only for the person who's seeking. They see it. They see it through the lines, that what he is saying, because sometimes you really can't convey what it is. I mean, I know that many times I have just torn things up because this is not it, this is not what I'm experiencing. And that's probably what he did. So Puran Singh is very relevant today. I mean, you've heard from Harinder Singh when, you know, when he went through his presentations, how those ideals are very much there. So it's, read.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes, we have one up here.
Everybody presented different, I won't say facets of him, but he reminded me something like Banda Singh Bahadur, you know, a man, how he was transformed. And Inigorji, you mentioned about his wife and his relationship, but I haven't read much about him. Can anybody, any one of you answer? I think he has written something about his mother.
Can we give that one to Professor Sab?
You are right. Puran Singh's father was a revenue official, quite powerful, even now in Punjab, Patwari and Kanu, everything, you know. But he was against his son, you know. His mother, again illiterate, she was a great sport for Puran Singh. It is written by Mayavati. He returned from Tokyo on a ship and he had no money. This is also interesting. He had no money to pay when, you know, the ship docks at China, some airport or some seaport, Shanghai perhaps. And the man who took him to the ship, he pulls the stair because Puran Singh did not pay. He had to just, rush through to get a seat in the ship. And he could have died, you know. The boatman was angry. So he comes to Calcutta without informing his family. It was his mother who took courage. You know, there was a connection between Calcutta by train from Lahore. But this is again something very strange and fantastic, that they never knew where he is staying. After maybe 3 days, 4 days, Puran Singh's mother, of course father was there, they found him sitting or lying with some sadhu or I don't know, some Bengali family. And then, you know, he was a total committed sannyasi at that time. Not going to marry, not going to see his family, but it was his mother who prevailed upon Puran Singh that on whatever condition, your own terms and conditions, you come to Punjab. And the day he reaches his village, his sister was almost dying. So she got a promise that you should marry with Maya Devi, the girl which has been waiting for 10, 15 years. So that is how he gave a commitment to the sister, and then you know the whole story. So mother was a great sport, but not father. So I think it is Mayavati who writes about his mother and the love of Puran Singh. But Puran Singh, maybe on paths of life, he writes briefly about his mother's contribution.
Thank you. Other questions? Okay.
First of all, I really appreciate Dr. Harinder. This was fantastic. I've been listening in the audience and tears coming out of my eyes listening to these philosophical and such a nice, very depth speakers and talking about it. The question came to my mind, which I read, was And after coming back from Japan, Professor Puran Singh, he attended he was supposed to talk on a lecture on agriculture, and he was there, and Bhai Singh was there, and I heard somebody, Hira Singh, was reciting a kirtan. And what happened, exactly I want to know, if there is any research, what happened during that seminar or in the Sangat he was sitting, that changed him totally, and now he became Gursik after that. Hira Singh, Ragi Singh and Bhai Singh, what did they do to him at that time, or what he heard? Is there any research or backup historical data to confirm exactly what happened at that time?
Harinder, do you want to try that one? No?
So, you know, for Professor Puran Singh, I mean, if you just go by his words, and here I want to go by his words, that the Rubai he said was, this Gurmukh planted the seed in me. It's a very private conversation which they had, but there were a lot of letters that were exchanged. There were long letters exchanged between Pidaji and and Puran Singh. So, you know, when you're seeking and you've become a Buddhist and you're a sannyasi, there are a lot of questions you need answered. So those questions were probably, I don't know what they were, but if you look at the writings of Puran Singh, what flowed, I think the answers are in those questions about what is Simran, what is Khalsa, what is Naam. There's a lot of, when I read both these men, ideas are very similar. And then, you know, as I'm getting more, as I'm getting to translate or transcreate or Noshak, it's all flowing from there. It's the same ideas. That's what I wanted to say.
So I'll ask one question before we go to the audience.
Can I just add?
Yeah, please.
So what we do know is that I tried to do that in sort of sticking to one of his writings. Those are his questions, what he's answering. Remember, he's talking about the thinking mind, the intellectual mind, the spiritualist mind, but they're all boxes and labels. So they're in the context of what a modern man asks. Modernity, the idea of modernity in 1920s. And this is, so the modernity confrontation is happening. There's a larger, what is generally called the Hindu culture, but today that word has a different connotation. Today Hindu means a political identity. What Professor Wirt was earlier saying, so what the South Asia had produced, that was confronting with the colonial ideas, and that created its own disruption, and Puran Singh is a product of that disruption, who's a thinking mind, who values the ideas of South Asia, indigenous ideologies, but who is not able to figure out the contradictions. So in his writings, he's actually answering those things. So those are the kind of questions you can imagine, or the conversations they were having, among other things.
Professor Saab, do you want to add anything to that?
You are very right. ਭਾਈ ਹੀਰਾ ਸਿੰਘ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਕੀਰਤਨ ਕਰਿਆ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਹੀ ਸਿੱਖ ਐਜੂਕੇਸ਼ਨਲ ਕਾਨਫਰੰਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਦਾ ਵੀ ਇਨਫਲੂਐਂਸ ਹੋਇਆ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਤੇ ਬਟ I have not read that he was giving a lecture on agriculture. I think it must be in context of education, Sikh education, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਕਾਨਫਰੰਸ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸੀ ਉਹ ਐਜੂਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਪਰਪਸ ਲਈ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਸੀ ਚੀਫ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਦੀਵਾਨ ਦੀ, ਤੇ ਉਹਦਾ ਐਕਸਪੀਰੀਅੰਸ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸੀ ਜਾਪਾਨ ਦੇ ਜਾਂ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਬਾਰੇ ਉਹ ਐਜੂਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਬਾਰੇ ਬੋਲਿਆ, ਐਗਰੀਕਲਚਰ ਬਾਰੇ ਨਹੀਂ. I have not read it, that it was a lecture on agriculture.
Okay. I think we need to give a context. Those education conferences were held by Chief Khalsa Diwan. This was a revival movement at the time. And in those conferences, what we need to understand is, here's a guy who's speaking in front of very proud Sikhs who does not look like them. And the reason he was allowed to speak even after objection, Bhai Singh had to do with it. So I think we have lessons here that look at the value of the individual, what is being offered, rather than particular looks you might expect in a particular style.
Questions? Thank you. That's right. What are the responses?
I have a quick question for the panel. So I was Googling before this conference started on Puran Singh on Amazon. And except for Spirit-Born People and the Sisters of the Spinning Wheel, there's nothing else out there. Everything else says unavailable. So where are the resources or the republications of some of his works?
So simple, this answer I can give you. I've been working on this for 20 years to make it available in whatever capacity I can find anywhere. Firstly, you can go to at least 3 websites where you will find 17 of his ebooks. Sikh Book Club is one of them. Vidya.com is another. If you still can't find them, Google it, send me an email and I'll give it to you. And you can float it on the web. But the largest available publications to date have been done by Punjabi University Patiala. And they have done multiple reprints. Singh brothers have also done few reprints. What is interesting is, which hasn't been referenced, so he has actually written a novel as well. It's called Prakashana, a Buddhist Princess. And even within there, if you read the foreword, he gives you ideas of what we discussed today. What's the difference between history and legend, for example. Another publication I want to mention, because it was started by Guru Bhagat Singh. I think you were a little bit too unkind to him. Professor Puran Singh Studies was a journal he started at Punjabi University Patiala after 80s. Just imagine the time. You know, 80s which kuch nahi, Punjabi University Patiala jab nahi pata, ek Khalistan movement da gad bhi bandi jandi si, intellectually speaking bhi. क्योंकि उतो कई प्रोफेसर उस मूवमेंट के हक च बोलते सी उस कॉन्टेक्स्ट ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਬਰਕਲੀ ਦਾ ਪੜਿਆ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸਰ ਇਥੋਂ comparative literature ਦਾ professor, he started a journal called Professor Puran Singh Studies. I have all e-copies of those or retyped copies. This is where I discovered a lot of his political things which they published and critiques of those and vice versa. So there is stuff available. There is no compendium or the collected works available, unfortunately. There are several unpublished writings which are still floating. Recently, a 20-page manuscript was discovered, which actually is being resurrected. Hopefully, it will become available soon as well. My point is, start with the 17 books which are publicly available, their PDF and e-copies, and then we can go on from there.
Other questions? So I have one then. Anybody on the panel, actually. You know, his journey, as we've learned today, is filled with what I would call, I don't like to say different religions, but different states of consciousness. He's gone through a different state in each period of his 4 periods that I think Professor Virik pointed out. How did that experience of going through those different states mold his thinking and mold his writing that you guys have looked at? We see a lot coming out. Harinder, maybe you can start.
I have a particular response to that in context of maybe college which I discover kita. I have my own journey, as we all have our own journeys of what I will call romance. And romance is with people and also with religions and ideologies also, and revolutions. So मैं उन्हें undermine नहीं करना चाहता, मैं वो भी देखा ते ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਫਿਰ human love ਦਾ romance भी ਹੈਗਾ, है ना? ਉਹਨਾਂ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਨਿਕਲ ਕੇ what I see, Puran Singh himself is very clear. In fact, this if it got missed out, I want to emphasize this. His Sikh writings come much later. Sikh writings come in because what he's writing, he's not going to disavow himself. ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਜਦ ਮੈਂ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਨਾ, ਉਹ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ, the one who sees him should talk about him. So ਜਿਹੜੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਪਿਕਚਰ ਹੈ ਨਹੀਂ, ਲਾਸਟ ਸਲਾਈਡ ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਪਿਕਚਰ ਦਿਖਾਈ ਹੈ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੇ ਪੇਂਟਿੰਗਸ ਬਣੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਜਿਹ ਪੱਗ ਬੰਨੀ ਹੋਈ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ, ਉਹ ਪਿਕਚਰ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਐਕਚੁਅਲੀ. So the point is, at some point in his life, and this by the way is the Gurbani's thesis, ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਦੇ ਘਰ ਜਨਮ ਲੈ ਲੈਂਦਾ ਨਾ, ਉਹ ਸਿੱਖ ਬਣਦਾ. ਜਿਹੜਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਬਾਇਓਲੋਜੀਕਲ ਬਰਥ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਆ, ਉਹ ਇੱਕ ਕਲਚਰਲ ਲੈਵਲ ਤੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਹੈਗੇ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਆਪਾਂ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ. And it's very clear. He says now, and he identifies with Sikhi and Guru all the time then. His work is still the best available, the most authoritative biography on Swami Ram Tirath is still his. He never disowned it. But he says कि मैं हुण घर आ गया. फर्क है दो चीज़ां च. घर आ गया, अपने लैंग्वेज बोल रहे ने, पंजाबी विच भी इदां दी गल्लां करदे ने. So he's still not saying कि मैं होर चीज़ां नूं कंडेम कर रहा. देखो, एक बंदे की ग्रोथ है. गुरबाणी में वोकैबलरी बड़ी यूज होती है कि असीं पहलां कच्चे हाँ सारे, जब गुरु साडी लाइफ च आउंदा असीं पक जाते हैं. सतगुरु बिना होर कच्ची है बाणी, वो बाणी साडे विचों भी आउंदी, असीं भी कच्चे हाँ, असीं साडी डेवलपमेंट. सो आई सी हिम एज बीइंग somebody who is going through multiple journeys of life, just like you and me. living in the contradictions and emotions and other things, and who then becomes a Sikh because of particular conviction. And his politics also is very, very real. Some may choose to take off their kirpan. I adore my kirpan and other things because of how Puran Singh presented it also. He also adored his turban. He also was, as you heard, revolutionary as well. He did not, if you read carefully his letter to Sir John Simon, ਉਹਦੇ ਚ ਉਹਨੇ ਨਾ ਬੜੇ ਚੰਗੇ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਤੇ ਬੜੇ direct ਤਰੀਕੇ, candidly, he's talked about what is a Hindu and what is a Muslim and what is a Sikh and their character in India at the time. So distinctness of Sikhs deserving their own space within Punjab. So I interpret all that as being simply that whether it is about nationalism of the time or whether Khalistan movement gets applied to it, it's very clear in Gurbani's thesis that the statehood is not an end goal of a Sikh. It definitely is a milestone to political power capture. You get to change the governance policies. He never denied from that either. But he's saying Sikhs must not get stuck there. That is not our goal, it's a milestone.
I'm breaking my own rule, but that's because I love listening to Harinder ji, so you guys have to come up with questions. Otherwise, I'll keep on asking and we'll keep on listening. Yes?
Could you give a small slice of what his political views were or his political writings that you've come across?
Let's give that to Professor Virk first. The question is, on the political writings, can you give us a slice of the political writings?
Just on the Simon Commission letter, it is a long letter, about 25 pages. ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਮਾਨ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਹੋਣਾ ਇੱਥੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸਰ ਕੋਈ ਕੈਮਿਸਟਰੀ ਦੇ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਬਲਦੇਵ ਸਿੰਘ ਸੀ ਹੈਗੇ ਮਾਨ ਸੀ ਲਿਖਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਚਿੱਠੀ ਕੋਈ 20 ਸਾਲ ਭੇਜੀ ਤਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਉਹ ਲੱਭਦੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਫਾਈਲ 'ਚ ਮਿਲ ਗਈ ਸੋ ਆਈ ਹੈਵ ਰਿਟਨ ਲਾਸਟ ਮੰਥ ਐਨ ਆਰਟੀਕਲ ਐਕਸਰਟ ਉਹਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਰੰਸ਼ ਹੈਗੇ ਸਮਰੀ ਆਫ ਲੈਟਰ ਆਫ ਪੁਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਮੁਸਲਮਾਨਾਂ ਬਾਰੇ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਕਿ ਦਿਸ ਨੇਸ਼ਨ ਇਹ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਅੱਗੋਂ ਬੱਚੇ ਵੀ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਦਾ ਕੀ ਸਾਊਥ ਏਸ਼ੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਰੂਲ ਕਰਨਗੇ ਜਾਂ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ ਇਹ ਚਾਹਵਾਨ ਹੈਗੇ ਹਿੰਦੂਆਂ ਬਾਰੇ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਇਹ ਬੜੇ ਡਰਪੋਕ ਹੈਗੇ ਮੁਸਲਮਾਨ ਤੋਂ ਇਹ ਬੜੇ ਚਿੜੇ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ ਜੇ ਹੱਥ ਵੀ ਲੱਗ ਜੇ ਪਿੱਟੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਸਾਰੀ ਸਟੋਰੀ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਬਾਰੇ ਜੋ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਹਰਿੰਦਰ ਦੱਸ ਰਿਹਾ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਦਾ ਇਹ ਆਈਡੀਆ ਪੋਲੀਟੀਕਲ ਇਹ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿ ਸਿੱਖ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸੀ ਮਹਾਰਾਜਾ ਰਣਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਵੇਲੇ ਆਬਾਦੀ 5% 10% ਹੋਣੀ ਹੈਗੇ ਤਾਂ ਮੁਸਲਮਾਨ ਸੀਗੇ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਡੋਮੀਨੈਂਟ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਪਾਪੂਲੇਸ਼ਨ ਸੀ ਸਟਿਲ ਇਟ ਵਾਜ਼ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਰਾਜ ਜਿਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਸਾਰੇ ਮੁਸਲਮਾਨ ਬ੍ਰਾਹਮਣ ਸਾਰੇ ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮਾਡਲ ਹੈਗਾ ਬ੍ਰਿਟਿਸ਼ ਮਾਡਲ ਆਫ ਪਾਰਲੀਮੈਂਟ ਡੈਮੋਕ੍ਰੇਸੀ ਇਫ ਇਟ ਇਜ਼ ਅਪਲਾਈਡ ਟੂ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਸਾਈਮਨ ਕਮਿਸ਼ਨ ਨੇ ਜੋ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਸਿੱਖਸ ਵਿਲ ਨੈਵਰ ਗੈਟ ਖਾਲਿਸਤਾਨ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਟੇਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿ ਜੇਕਰ ਮਹਾਰਾਜਾ ਰਣਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਵੇਲੇ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੀ ਆਟੇ 'ਚ ਲੂਣ ਬਰਾਬਰ ਗਿਣਤੀ ਸੀ ਬੜਾ ਅੱਛਾ ਰਾਜ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਨੇ ਤਾਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸੋਚਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸੈਂਟਰਲ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਹੈਗਾ ਮਾਝਾ ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਇੱਕ ਸਟੇਟ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੀ ਹੋਣੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਹੈ ਇਟ ਵਾਜ਼ ਹਿਜ਼ ਐਡਵੋਕੇਸੀ ਇਹ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਮਿਲਦਾ ਹੈ ਹੂਬਹੂ ਪਰ ਜੇਕਰ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਦਾ ਡੈਮੋਕ੍ਰੇਸੀ ਦੇ ਉਲਟ ਸੀ ਹੀ ਵਾਂਟਡ ਏ ਬੈਨੀਫੀਸ਼ੈਂਟ ਡਿਕਟੇਟਰ ਉਹ ਡੈਮੋਕ੍ਰੇਸੀ ਦੇ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਹੀ ਉਲਟ ਲਿਖਦਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਵੋਟ ਦੀ ਡੈਮੋਕ੍ਰੇਸੀ ਪਰ ਜੇਕਰ ਵੋਟ ਦੀ ਡੈਮੋਕ੍ਰੇਸੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਨੂੰ ਸਵਰਾਜ ਮਿਲਣ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਸਟੇਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਿਲੇਗੀ ਐਂਡ ਦਿਸ ਇਜ਼ ਦ ਇਫੈਕਟ ਕਿ 47 'ਚ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨਾ ਕਪੂਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਵੀ ਦੂਜੇ ਤੀਜੇ ਜੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਮਾਸਟਰ ਤਾਰ ਫਲਾਮ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਕੀ ਗਲਤੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਸਵਾਹ ਤਰਨ ਤਾਰਨ ਔਰ ਜਗਰਾਵਾਂ ਤਹਿਸੀਲ 'ਚ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਗਿਣਤੀ ਹੈ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਾਪੂਲੇਸ਼ਨ ਸੋ ਹਾਊ ਕੁਡ ਦ ਬ੍ਰਿਟਿਸ਼ ਗਿਵ ਏ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਲੈਂਡ ਔਰ ਸਿੱਖ ਸਟੇਟ ਸੋ ਉਹ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੇ ਕਲੀਅਰ 100 ਸਾਲ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਹੀ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਸੀ 1928 28 ਅਕਤੂਬਰ ਨੂੰ ਚਿੱਠੀ ਲਿਖੀ ਹੈ ਔਰ 30 ਨੂੰ ਸਾਈਮਨ ਕਮਿਸ਼ਨ ਲਾਹੌਰ 'ਚ ਆਇਆ ਕਾਂਗਰਸ ਨੇ ਅਪੋਜ਼ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਔਰ ਉਹ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਲਾਜਪਤ ਰਾਏ ਨੂੰ ਜੋ ਵੀ ਲਾਗਾਂ ਪਈਆਂ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਇਹ ਯਾਨੀ ਉਹਦਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿ ਵੋਟ ਬੈਂਕ ਡਿਪਲੋਮੇਸੀ ਜਾਂ ਪਾਰਲੀਮੈਂਟਰੀ ਡੈਮੋਕ੍ਰੇਸੀ ਸਿੱਖ ਕਦੇ ਵੀ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਸਟੇਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੈ ਸਕਦੇ ਐਂਡ ਟਰੂ
Anybody want to add on or respond to that?
So, actually when you read the Saja and that letter, it is the brilliance, the way he weaves it. And, when we are saying it that he says this to the Muslims and this to the Hindus, that's not what comes across. It's not a harsh letter. It's a very stern letter, but it's not a harsh letter. It's not like I am telling you this. It's woven with, look, when you read that letter, see the genius of the man. He's saying the same things, but the way he is saying it, he is doing it in a way that he wants them to think. This is the way it is. And if you do this, the misgivings. And, so it's the style of how you talk and how you present, which is very, very critical in the way he's doing it. If anything we can learn is how he does it.
So, and because Sir John Simon Commission, Sir John Simon wala, ਉਹਦੀ actually ਜ਼ਿੰਮੇਵਾਰੀ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਬਟਵਾਰੇ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ initial findings create ਕਰਨੀਆਂ. Eventually they were going to figure out what to do with South Asia like other colonies in the world. Puran Singh is advocating that something needs to be done about the Sikhs also, and he's also advocating the constitution which is being thought of being drawn there, how many fallacies it has. So he's actually creating a forewarning that those who want to decide the destiny of South Asia, where the three majority communities stay, they need to actually understand the character of those people. That's one thing I want to say. The other two, which are very important writings as well. One is his critique of Tagore, Gandhi and Sir Jadunath Sarkar. It was a response he published in Modern Review, Calcutta, because in India, Bengali nationalism had created a rift between the Gurus. Because most people don't read about Sikhi. They had created a rift between, this is Tagore. So think about this, that how even a serene mind gets into this level of political nature. Who actually wrote an article called Rise and Fall of Sikh Empire. In that article, he uses quite, a vocabulary which I cannot accept of the Gurus. And I will repeat one line for you and you tell me how you feel now. He wrote something like, a flowing river of Guru Nanak was turned into a dirty pond by Guru Gobind Singh. Because this was a political essay. He printed that in Modern Review in Calcutta. Remember, Calcutta was a Renaissance center, ICS bade. Puran Singh ne jawab likha, which they printed, which was not available for the longest time. Te pichle 20 saalan vich Professor Puran Singh studies include karaya. Then Sardar Gurtej Singh, Harinder Singh, Mahbub ne bhi ude jawab likhe ne. What I'm trying to say is, people who created the history of India, people like Sir Jadunath Sarkar, who translated this from Bengali to English, they created a narrative of what we hear in India today. They created the narrative of when Gandhi says Guru Gobind Singh is a misguided patriot of India, because Gandhi used to call Tagore his Gurdev. You have to understand how the Bengali nationalism becomes Indian nationalism, and why they started not only liking Guru Nanak and separating Guru Nanak from Guru Gobind Singh. Professor Puran Singh's genius and his ability to, I would say, confront the wrong narrative being populated by the leaders of the time. You can see it in this. He has one on critics and his Sikhs. He has one on Guru Gobind Singh, where he talks about a lot of these things. And he completely differentiates that how we are the people who are, he in fact uses phrases like, even the prayer of the enslaved people is different than the prayer of the free people. And this is where he introduced Sikhs. Kehna saadi da prayer hi different hai. Tusi ta gulama wangu pray karde ho, assi azada wangu pray karde ha. वो बड़े insightful essays ने in the context of rise of Indian nationalism in 1920s and 19 teens actually.
And what are those essays? Which publication is that?
Sikhs and His Critics is one, and the other one is called Guru Gobind Singh.
Thank you.
Thanks to all the presenters. It's been a very inspiring afternoon and very educational, so we're glad that we're here. Also thanks to, I would say, Harinder and Manpreet, their relentless emails, just reminding us every day that we got to be here, so extremely thankful for that as well. Rindavirji, I would like to direct your, you had a slide on Veer Singh Ji. And I think we all talked about self-consciousness and the immense love that he had for, I guess, the ultimate. There, I believe that you narrated that they were in a fort and he had opposition for people coming in to, and he did not fight, he had enough people with him who could retaliate. But your concept of his not responding to that fight by having people on board versus what the Guru Gobind Singh had articulated in terms of his, I think I felt that a little contradictory, if you want to throw some light on it.
Sure, contradiction is good. Let's become vast as Whitman had written. देखो गल ये है कि पहली गल मैं प्रोफेसर पूरन सिंह का perspective present कर रहा सी, not my concept. Just so we are clear. Only which he's showing the grandness of Bhai Veer Singh. Bhai Veer Singh, this is Veer Singh, not Veer, right? ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਉਹ ਬਾਬਾ ਵੀਰ. So Naurangabad mein tahi likhya si, so it's clear. You have to know again the culture of the Lu, and I can recommend a chapter in a book to read more about it. I wrote an article on Bhai Maharaj Singh. They were contemporaries and proteges as well. But we have to understand what is happening. The period between 1839, when Maharaja Ranjit Singh dies, this was purely about state nada. And the state which sidelined 6, Ranjit Singh sidelined 6. It was a multicultural pluralistic monarchical model, not a Sikh kingdom. In that state, when 1849 it is getting annexed, this period there are a lot of wars, there are a lot of treacheries, there are a lot of murders, there are a lot of assassinations. Read Patwan Singh's book on it with Jyoti Rai. It's easy read and you can figure out one chapter in there. In that context, even when the Punjabi poets write, like Shah Muhammad da ek Jangnama, ਉਹਦੇ ਚ ਲਿਖਦਾ ਕਿ ਜੇ ਰਣਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੂੰ ਅੱਜ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਨਾ ਫਿਰ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗਣਾ ਸੀ that who are the real defenders of Punjab. Because none of the Dogras, other people actually forget saving Punjab, they actually went against Punjab. ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਇੱਕ ਉਹਦੇ ਕਵਿਤਾ ਲਿਖੀ ਹੈ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ, ਮੈਂ ਕੰਟੈਕਸਟ ਦੇ ਰਿਹਾ what I was trying to say. ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹ ਕਵਿਤਾ 'ਚ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿ ਜੰਗ ਹਿੰਦ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦਾ ਹੋਣ ਲੱਗਾ, ਦੋਵੇਂ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹੀ ਫੌਜਾਂ ਭਾਰੀਆਂ ਨੀ, ਅੱਜ ਹੋਵੇ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਤਾਂ ਮੁੱਲ ਪਾਵੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਖਾਲਸੇ ਨੇ ਤੇਗਾਂ ਮਾਰੀਆਂ ਨੀ. A Muslim guy is writing this, Shah Muhammad in Jangnama, because what happens during that time is Sikhs in the Khalsa army are fighting the British, and Indians on behalf of the British are against the Sikhs or the Punjab. This is the context. Us context in which there are some players. Hira Singh हैगा, Dhyan Singh हैगा, Gulab Singh हैगा, Lal Singh हैगे. Maharaja Ranjit Singh the legitimate children ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬਾਰ-ਬਾਰ change ਹੋ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ depending on who can be the ruler. In that context, they say there are 2 Sikhs who otherwise are not interested in Raj. But when they see enough is enough, they leave their deras. This is very important because otherwise dera ajkal kuch aur ban gaya. Dera used to be where you train in Sikh thought, Simran. And Puran Singh invoke ਉਹ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਡੇਰੇ ਵਾਲੇ ਹੁਣ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਰਾਜ ਨੂੰ ਬਚਾਉਣ ਲਈ ਲੜਨ ਲਈ ਤਿਆਰ ਖੜੇ ਨੇ. ਉਹਦੇ ਚੋਂ ਇੱਕ ਬੈਟਲ ਆ ਉਹ ਭਾਈ ਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੜਦਾ, ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਆਪਣੇ ਭਰਾ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਦੋਗਲੇ ਬੰਦਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਭੇਜੇ ਨੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਵਾਲੇ ਗਲਤ ਇਨਫੋਰਮੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਕੇ. So he's saying we know this. Why do we want to kill them when they have the wrong information? That's the context. And we have to be very, very clear about the nuancing of it. ਉਹ ਦੋਨੋਂ ਸਾਈਡਾਂ ਤੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਖੜੇ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਦੋਨਾਂ ਸਾਈਡਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਲੱਗ ਰਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਨੂੰ ਹੀ ਬਚਾਉਣਾ, ਬਟ ਇੱਕ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਐਂਟੀ ਸਿੱਖ ਫੋਰਸ ਆ ਉਹਨੇ ਭੇਜੇ ਨੇ with incentivization. So in the personal understanding of Guru's message for Baba Veer Singh, he decides not to fight them, and Puran Singh is invoking that spirit.
So I think we have
relevance में थे आज ते वाले कहना ये साढ़े नहीं है. If you know better, then you have to make some decision making with a pause. Don't respond automatically.
So I think we have time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions.
Actually, I have a question for Amy Benjis. So, Professor Virk's, one of the last slides he had, Professor Puran Singh's poem or interpretation of the Mool Mantra. And it was quite unique. And you're writing poetry today. Do you think there's enough space in our community to accept this sort of a non-official sanctioned interpretations?
I'm glad you used the word interpretation, because Puran Singh doesn't call them translations. And that's why I think Professor Burke said that all three of his meditations on the Japji were different. Because it's the different stages of your life what you go through. You know, we at the Institute have, last year we did Shabbat of the Week, where we transcreated 52 Shabbats. I can tell you that we put a note there because I felt uncomfortable. We both felt very uncomfortable, Harinder Singh and I, that you're limiting it because this is our understanding right now and changes, and hopefully it will grow. And Shabbat is Guru. It's always fresh. How can you box it? So to say that this one's translation is better, does it speak to you? That's the key. I mean, when I began my journey with the translations of Manmohan Singh. Did they speak to me? Absolutely. They spoke to me more than somebody else's. So there's always room for the seeker. If you label it that this is the official, this is the only thing, there's a problem there. There's a huge problem there. But for a seeker, you can get just the last line of the Guru Prasad was beautiful, it was exquisite. I never thought about it that way. So with each rendering, with each offering, because all what we can do is offer what we are experiencing right now, maybe someone will connect. Who knows?
So one last question. I think we have room for one more.
First of all, thank you so much. It was really, really a good session today. So if Puran Singh was alive today, what would be his way to bring about a human consciousness today, looking at the current political and the religious environment here?
I think that's what we covered in all the slides. It would be the exact same thing. And he would basically stand up like he did at that time. Imagine Chief Khalsa Dewan ਉਹਨੂੰ ਪੁੱਛ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ, ਜਦ ਇੱਕ ਤਰਫ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਗਾਲਾਂ ਵੀ ਬਕ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ in a sense ਕਿ ਤੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਜੇ ਪੂਰਾ ਸਿੱਖ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ, ਪਰ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਸਮਝ ਰਹੇ ਕਿ ਤੂੰ ਸਮਝ ਬੜੀ ਹੈ, ਤੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਪੁੱਛਦੇ ਕੀ ਕਰਾਂ, ਉਹਦਾ ਜਵਾਬ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸੁਣੋ ਕੀ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਸੀ ਲਾਸਟ ਵਿੱਚ। ਟ੍ਰਾਂਸਲੇਸ਼ਨ ਵਾਲੇ ਕੁਐਸਚਨ ਨਾਲ ਮੈਂ ਜੋੜ ਦਿੰਦਾ, ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੇ ਆਪ ਉਹਦਾ ਆਨਸਰ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਹੋਇਆ ਆਪਣੀ ਰਾਈਟਿੰਗ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, which is more important in my opinion. He says, I will take Macauliffe's any day over anyone else's because of his intention, even if it is not that good. He's written that himself. He compares, ਉਸ ਵੇਲੇ Trump ਦੀ available ਆ English ਵਿੱਚ, ਤੇ ਉਸ ਵੇਲੇ Macauliffe ਦੀ available ਆ. He says, I will take this literal one any day. Because he himself, when he translated, ਉਹਦੇ ਚ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ word use ਕੀਤੇ ਨੇ, ਕਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ translate ਕੀਤਾ, he has used 3 words. In some places, he has written, these are my readings. Other places, he has written, these are my meditations. Other places, he actually used the word, these are my transcreations. So his message will be the same. Love, see, and then express. In fact, another essay hai, first life, then its expression. ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਜੀਓ, ਫਿਰ ਜੋ ਜੀਣ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੋ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਨਜ਼ਰ ਆ ਰਿਹਾ, ਜੋ ਮਿਲ ਰਿਹਾ, ਉਹ ਦੱਸੋ।
I may add just one. Puran Singh ਨੇ ਟਰੰਪ ਦਾ ਵੀ ਟ੍ਰਾਂਸਲੇਸ਼ਨ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੇ ਰਿਜੈਕਟ ਕਰਤਾ। ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਮੁਕਾਲਖ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਰਿਜੈਕਟ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈਗਾ। ਉਹਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਐਸੇ ਹੈਗਾ ਜਾਂ ਜੋ ਵੀ ਲਿਖਿਆ, ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਮੁਕਾਲਫ ਨੇ ਗਿਆਨੀਆਂ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ ਲੱਥਾ ਸੀਗਾ, ਕਾਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਰਗੜਾ ਲਾਇਆ ਹੋਇਆ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਟੀਮ ਗਈ ਹੈ ਮੁਕਾਲਫ ਨੂੰ ਗਾਈਡ ਕਰ। ਔਰ ਸਭ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਪਹਿਲਾ ਟ੍ਰਾਂਸਲੇਸ਼ਨ ਹੈ ਫਰੀਦਕੋਟੀ ਟੀਕਾ, ਉਹਦੀ ਨਕਲ ਚੱਲਦੀ ਆ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। ਸਾਹਿਬ ਸਿੰਘ ਹੋਇਆ, ਮਨਮੋਹਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਹੋਇਆ। ਤਾਂ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਦਾ ਵਿਊ ਇਹ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿ ਗਿਆਨੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਬ੍ਰਾਹਮਣਵਾਦ ਦੀ ਟਰਮੀਨਾਲੋਜੀ ਵਿਧਾਨ ਦੀ ਯੂਜ਼ ਕਰਨੇ ਨੇ। ਅਸਲੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਟ੍ਰਾਂਸਲੇਸ਼ਨ ਹੈ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਦਾ ਉਹ ਹੋਵੇਗਾ, ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੀਆਂ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਭਾਸ਼ਾ 'ਚ ਸਕਾਲਰ ਪੈਦਾ ਹੋਣਗੇ ਔਰ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ, ਜਰਮਨ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ, ਫ੍ਰੈਂਚ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਜਾਂ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਉਸ ਪੱਧਰ। ਤਾਂ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਆਤਮਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਟ੍ਰਾਂਸਲੇਟ ਹੋਣਾ ਉਹ ਹੋਏਗਾ, ਉਹਦਾ ਇਹ ਹੈਗਾ। ਬਟ ਹੀ ਡਿਡ ਨਾਟ ਲਾਈਕ ਮੁਕਾਲਫ ਟ੍ਰਾਂਸਲੇਸ਼ਨ ਜਾਂ ਬਾਕੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼। ਉਹਨੇ ਗਿਆਨੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੰਡੈਮ ਕੀਤਾ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਗਿਆਨੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਉਹ ਗਿਆਨੀ ਬਦਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਫਰੀਦਕੋਟੀ ਵਾਲੇ ਦਾ ਟੀਕਾ ਹੋਇਆ, ਉਹਦੀ ਨਕਲ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਸਾਰੀ ਅਜੇ ਤੱਕ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਉਹ ਵਿਦਾਂਤ ਦਾ ਭਰਿਆ, ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਬ੍ਰਾਹਮਣਵਾਦ ਦਾ ਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ, ਸਿੱਖੀ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਓਰੀਜਨਲ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਟ੍ਰਾਂਸਲੇਸ਼ਨ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਲਿਖੀ ਅੱਡ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਉਹਨਾਂ 'ਚ ਰਿਫਲੈਕਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ.
So one last thing, let me ask one last. I think we have the speakers are going to be here, so you guys can come up afterwards and ask any questions. One last message of the day, and I'm going to ask this for everybody. 10 seconds or less, one sentence. If there's one thing in one sentence, Harinder, in one sentence, everybody's going to give me one. If you had to walk away, what would be that message?
He wrote Introduction to Bhai Singh's Dictionary of Guru Granth Sahib, and he's written 18 pages on it, and he says, learn the aesthetics of the words of Gurbani.
Okay. Any Gorji?
I think for me it was an experience, Barney, because from that experience you'll taste the nectar.
I will say the same thing. ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਜੀਓਗੇ ਤੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਦੀ ਕਵਿਤਾਵਾਂ ਸੁਣੋਗੇ ਜਾਂ ਪੜ੍ਹੋਗੇ ਉਹਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਇਲਾਹੀ ਪਿਆਰ ਮਿਲੇਗਾ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ. And then you will fall in love with him automatically.
Why?
Like anybody said, I'm in my early 20s, so got a lot to learn still. I have so much more to read. I've only read that poem, so I have a lot to learn.
All right. Professor?
I believe he was a genius, visionary ahead of his time, 100 years ahead of his time.
I'd like to thank everybody on the panel here for their time and their insight. The speakers will be here if you guys want to ask any questions. We still have closing remarks, so I'd like to invite Indi Kaurji to come up here and deliver the closing remarks.
It's been an amazing morning. Thank you so much all for coming here. There are, this has been our host, Dr. Harinder Singh Chadha and his lovely wife Manpreet Chadha. This was their vision. They are champions of Sikri. They wanted to bring Sikri to the Southern California, LA area. And this is the second program. We did one in the Gurdwara Sahib for the children. And we'll be looking forward to doing 2 more with them. So thank you. I'd like to invite at this point in time, if Dr. Harinder Chadha and Manpreet please could come on stage, and also Harinder Singh. For this celebration, if you could please come. For this celebration, we've put together this publication that we have spoken about, and this has been made possible because of their support and generosity, and this is a gift from us to them, and from them to the community. So, thank you. So I'd like Harinder Singh to say a few words before we end the evening. Yeah.
So basically it's selected writings of Puran Singh to give flavor about him. Some spiritual essays, some political essays, some poetic elements, and the idea is to go pursue him more, and all of you will get a copy as well. Before you leave, please take one, and made possible by their generosity as well. Thank you, and Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Maya, if you're in the hall, can you please come up on stage, please?